Chapter 40-60. Just as she had said, although Shangguan Tianhua had grounded her, he couldn't possibly ground Ning Xuefei, who had come all the way from afar as well. After hearing their words, she immediately nodded in agreement. Although there had been a kidnapping incident not long ago, this was still the territory of the 3 pavilions in the North Island. As long as precautions were taken, there was no need to worry about their personal safety. The two immediately went out with the little curly bear and went straight to the Hong's Chamber of Commerce in the inner street of the marketplace. Today happened to be the opening day of the inner street. They didn't even need to reveal their identities and directly walked into the gate of the Hong's Chamber of Commerce along with the crowd. On the North Island, female cultivators were extremely rare, especially the 2 women who were rare beauties. Even if they were mixed in the noisy crowd, no matter where they went, they would naturally become the focus of the audience. As soon as the 2 of them walked into the Hong Chamber of Commerce, a sharp-eyed shop assistant abandoned the other customers and welcomed them with a face full of joy. "Ladies, what treasures are you looking to buy? Do you want me to show you around the shop?" "No, I'm looking for a little shop assistant of your Hong's Chamber of Commerce," Ning Xuefei said impatiently. "Little shop assistant? I'm a little shop assistant, right? What can I do for you, miss?" The shop assistant was slightly stunned, and then quickly smiled attentively. Such a beautiful woman came to find him. Was he going to have good luck with women today? Secretly pinching Laner, who was snickering, Ning Xuefei rolled her eyes speechlessly and curled her lips. "I'm not looking for you, I'm looking for another little shop assistant." As they spoke, Ning Xuefei and Laner, who were already the center of attention, became the focus of the audience. Everyone present couldn't help but look at each other. 2 drooling beauties were looking for a little shop assistant. What was going on? Was this what people said, fresh flowers are destined to be inserted in cow dung? Looking for a little shop assistant? Si Haishao had just come back at this moment, although he was already drunk. But his strength meant that no matter how drunk he was, he wouldn't fall down directly. Hearing the sweet female voice coming from the crowd downstairs, he immediately poked his head out of the private room on the 2nd floor in a trance. After seeing Ning Xuefei and Laner, Si Haishao's eyes instantly widened. What the fuck? These 2 girls were simply the best. Although Nan Tianba and the Southern Heaven Gate brothers had accompanied him to the brothel, they were only ordinary women after all. They could not be compared to the female cultivators on the Middle Island. They were on a completely different level, so Si Haishao was not able to enjoy himself to the fullest. However, he did not expect that the moment he returned to the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Si Haishao's appetite was immediately aroused when he found these 2 exquisite girls that were rarely seen in Nakajima. He looked at the 2 girls lecherously while pinching his chin and muttering, "You're looking for a young man? Why did he look for a young waiter? Could it be that these 2 women are the mistresses of some young waiter?" At this moment, Si Haishao was both drunk and lustful. As he thought about it in a daze, he immediately felt that it was highly possible. He had been busy dealing with the internal affairs of the 3 great pavilions during this period of time and hadn't officially walked around the 3 great pavilions. It was not surprising that he did not know Shangguan Laner. As far as he knew, there were no female cultivators on the North Island, so he ruled out the possibility that the 2 women were cultivators of the 3 pavilions. Since these 2 girls were looking for some bullshit young waiter, then they were definitely mistresses. Damn it, just which fellow was it that was so lucky to get such a stunning and exquisite chick? What a waste of God's gifts. Even a manager like me doesn't have such luck with women. Thinking of this, Si Haishao could not help but feel lustful. These 2 women were definitely ordinary women who had not seen much of the world. Since they were interested in a mere young waiter, then wouldn't it just be a matter of a word for him to get them into bed? Wah, God wants me to enjoy my luck with women. I really can't stop it. Si Haishao immediately forced himself to calm down and couldn't wait to get up and walk downstairs. At the same time, he was still imagining the wonderful scene of 2 stunning beauties serving him together in his mind. That feeling was simply killing him. Just then Lin Yi suddenly appeared in the crowd at the door. Lin Yi came here to buy the supplementary materials that the king of junk had told him before. Although Hong Zhong was no longer here, these were basically things that could be bought normally, not precious treasures like the star ink stone that could only be found by chance. Therefore, he thought that Si Haishao would not make things difficult for him for such a small matter. Of course, if Si Haishao really did this, Lin Yi could also go to other places to buy them, such as asking Chen Heihu for help. However, Chen Heihu's business was not as big as that of the Hong's Chamber of Commerce. Even if he was willing to help, many materials were not in stock, and he had to find someone to buy them temporarily, which was a little troublesome. As soon as he entered the door, Lin Yi noticed the 2 women, Ning Xuefei and Shangguan Laner, who had become the focus of the crowd. The sharp-eyed little curly bear also found Lin Yi at once, and directly jumped over everyone's head and jumped onto Lin Yi's shoulder. "Little buddy, you're here. I was just looking for you." Ning Xuefei's eyes suddenly lit up, and she squeezed over with Shanghai Laner. Shanghai Laner had a strange expression. She pointed at Ning Xuefei and then pointed at Lin Yi. "Quack. He is the little buddy you are looking for. How could it be so coincidental? What's wrong?" Ning Xuefei looked at Shanghai Laner with a puzzled look. Shanghai Laner was stunned for a moment, and then said incredulously, "Your little buddy is actually my little junior brother Lin Yi that I told you about." "Are you serious? How could this be?" Ning Xuefei was taken aback when she heard the words. Lin Yi looked at Ning Xuefei and he was also very surprised. How did she come here? She even knows Shanghai Laner? Besides being surprised, he couldn't help but secretly wonder. How could this world be so small? I can even encounter such a thing. However, noticing the strange gazes of other people, Lin Yi suddenly realized that there were too many people in this place. It was better to ask the two women to go out and change to a quieter place to talk. However, before waiting for Lin Yi to speak, Si Haishao had already forced the crowd and squeezed over with the smell of alcohol. Si Haishao was originally obsessed with lust. Now that he saw the sudden appearance of Lin Yi, he was even more excited. Although he hadn't met Lin Yi before, he had seen Lin Yi's portrait, and the words of Shanghai Laner had also confirmed Lin Yi's identity for him. Previously he was still thinking about how to find a way to trick Lin Yi out. He didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, Lin Yi actually took the initiative to come to him. Chapter 4061. How could this brat Lin Yi be able to obtain these two exquisite beauties? Today, whether it was for official or personal reasons, Si Haishao felt that he had to make Lin Yi kneel. Lin Yi, as a newcomer to the welcoming pavilion, you actually disobeyed the rules. You actually dared to bring two brothel girls out in broad daylight and swaggered around in front of my Hong Merchant Guild. Where do you think the image of the three great pavilions is? Si Haishao reprimanded him with a righteous expression. Unfortunately, his pair of perverted eyes that occasionally glanced at the two girls betrayed his true nature. Previously, when he went to the brothel to seek pleasure, he heard Nan Chenba and Southern Sky Gate mention that the three great pavilions were extremely strict with their disciples. They would never allow them to go out and find brothel girls. Anyone who disobeyed would be severely punished. Of course, rules were rules. They were mainly targeted at newcomers. People like Nan Chenba and Southern Sky Gate never took these rules seriously. As long as they weren't caught on the spot, then it was useless. Because he had just returned from the brothel, Si Haishao subconsciously thought of the two girls as brothel girls. After all, even if they were Lin Yi's girlfriends, there would only be one of them. How could there be two of them together? No matter what, Lin Yi was a cultivator. It was impossible for him to find an ordinary girl as his partner. At the very least, he would find a female cultivator. However, female cultivators were very arrogant. Even Si Haishao only had one female cultivator as his wife. Only those brothel girls could do something like threesome. However, brothel girls were more daring and had more tricks up their sleeves. They could even do something more open than this. He had just played 1 against 3. What did you say? I advise you to keep your mouth clean. Be careful of the trouble that comes from your mouth. Lin Yi heard this and his aura turned cold. Oh, with your insignificant strength, you still dare to pretend to be a tough guy in front of me? Si Haishao suddenly laughed wildly. He pointed at Lin Yi and sneered, "Guest expert, help this shopkeeper suppress him. Inform the welcoming pavilion's pavilion master to come and pick him up." Just as he finished speaking, 4 unfathomable figures suddenly appeared around Lin Yi without warning, surrounding him tightly in the center. Lin Yi's heart tightened. These 4 guest experts were completely different from those he had seen before. In the Hong Chamber of Commerce, although the guest experts were hired by the Chamber of Commerce, there were also designated assistants. The original 4 guest experts had already followed Hong Zhong to Middle Island. It was an unfamiliar face who only obeyed Si Haishao's orders. However, even if the person was different, to be able to become a guest expert of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, he would at least be an expert above the gold core stage. This was beyond doubt. Seeing that Lin Yi did not dare to make a move, Si Haishao smiled even more complacently. He turned his head to look at the 2 women lecherously and said, "These 2 beauties, didn't you come out to sell your goods for spirit jades? The shopkeeper has plenty of them. Furthermore, I guarantee that you will give more than that poor brat. Why don't you follow me in 2 days?" The situation suddenly changed. Ning Xuefei and Shangguan Laner were still a little confused at first, but now that they were so openly teased by the old man in public, they finally reacted. You old bastard. What did you say I am? Shengguan Laner could not help but gnash her teeth in anger. You actually said that we are prostitutes? I will fight with you. Ning Xuefei was so angry that her pretty face turned red. Regardless of everything, she directly attacked Si Haishao. The two of them, in terms of status, were at the level of little princesses. They were noble people who could not bear the slightest grievance. Now they were being humiliated as prostitutes in public. Seeing that the two women actually dared to attack him, Si Haishao could not help but be stunned. He subconsciously felt that something was wrong. However, he could not figure out what was wrong. He immediately greeted them with an obscene smile. Haha, you have quite a character. This shopkeeper likes little chilies like you. Anyway, we are out to sell our goods. Don't tell me that if that brat Linny can play I can't? Si Haishao said as he stretched out his hand to touch Ning Xuefei and Shengguan Laner. However, before he could succeed, 5 figures suddenly flashed behind the two women. Si Haishao did not see what was going on. His face was directly kicked and he was sent flying to the wall more than 10 feet away. The surrounding people quickly moved to the side. The 4 guest experts saw that the situation was not good. They immediately left Lin Yi and rushed in front of Si Haishao, confronting the 5 people who appeared out of nowhere. As a result, the momentum of each side was actually equal. These 5 people, each of them was actually a golden core stage expert. Even if they did not count the tsunami, there were already 9 golden core stage experts confronting each other at this moment, which really shocked the surrounding audience. Golden core stage experts had always been a rare existence. How could there suddenly be so many of them? In a trance, there was a feeling that golden core stage experts were everywhere. These people are the core disciples of Soaring Sky Pavilion. Someone in the crowd suddenly exclaimed in a low voice. The clothes of the disciples of the 3 pavilions were different. As long as you paid a little attention, you could recognize them at a glance. The 4 guest experts of the Hong Chamber of Commerce suddenly felt a thump in their hearts. 4 against 5, they were originally at a disadvantage and did not dare to act rashly. If the other party was really a core disciple of Soaring Sky Pavilion, then they were a complete local bully. Once things got out of hand, they could not afford to provoke them at all. These 5 masters of Soaring Sky Pavilion were naturally arranged by Shengguan Tianhua. Shengguan Laner had just been kidnapped not long ago. Even if he, as a grandfather, was broad-minded, it was impossible for him not to take any precautions. What's more, now that Ning Xuefei, the real princess of West Island, had come, it was even more necessary to protect her. Otherwise, if Ning Xuefei had a little problem here, it would directly be a crisis for the 2 islands. If it was not handled properly, it was not impossible to trigger a war between the 2 islands, so they had to be careful. When the 2 sides confronted each other, the leader of the 5 masters of Soaring Sky Pavilion looked coldly at the 4 guest officials opposite him and said, "How dare you? These 2 ladies, one is the daughter of the owner of West Island, and the other is the granddaughter of the master of Soaring Sky Pavilion. You dare to insult them as prostitutes in public and even touch them. I really don't know why the Hong Chamber of Commerce would send such stupid scum to be the shopkeeper. I must give an explanation to the big shot above me. If you dare to stop me, come and try." After that, the master of Soaring Sky Pavilion shook his body, and the next moment he appeared directly above Si Haishiao's head. Without saying a word, he grabbed Si Haishiao's neck with one hand and lifted him into the air. The 4 guest experts were shocked by the information revealed by his words and did not dare to move for a long time. They could only watch Si Haishao being abused. Chapter 4062. The 4 guests were so scared that they didn't dare to move. As for Si Haishao himself, although he was tipsy and dizzy, he still vaguely heard the words West Island Lord and Master of Soaring Sky Pavilion. He was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat, and his tipsy feeling was mostly gone. Unfortunately, it was too late for him to wake up. His opponent's strength was much higher than his, and he didn't have any chance to resist at all. At this time, even begging for mercy was just wishful thinking. Just now, when he was blinded by lust, he had completely offended the 2 women, and even the big shots behind them. Under everyone's gaze, in front of the 4 guests of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, this master of Soaring Sky Pavilion began to ravage Si Haishao bit by bit. Crack, crack, crack. Under everyone's gaze, every bone and meridian in Si Haishiao's body was mercilessly destroyed by a powerful and overbearing true qi, until it was completely broken. At first, Si Haishao still had the strength to scream, but after a while he didn't even have the strength to scream. In everyone's eyes, he was like a duck that had been strangled. The blue veins on his forehead stood out, and he desperately screamed, but he couldn't make any sound. Looking at this scene, everyone whispered to each other. Regarding Si Haixiao's tragic end, they could only say 3 words: sad, ridiculous, and pitiful. Bang. The master of Soaring Sky Pavilion casually threw Si Haixiao, who had fainted, on the ground, and turned to the 2 women for instructions. Miss Ning, Miss Shangguan, do you want to take this person back and cure him? Although the other party was the manager of a branch of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, and under normal circumstances except for the top management of the Hong Chamber of Commerce's headquarters, no one else had the right to punish him. But today's matter involved the 2 misses of West Island and Soaring Sky Pavilion, so Si Haixiao had only himself to blame. Even if they took him back and killed him, the Hong Chamber of Commerce didn't have the face to stop it. Hearing this, Shanghai Laner and Ning Xuefei looked at each other and shook their heads at the same time. They shook their heads in unison. Both of them were not ruthless people. Although this old bastard was extremely hateful, it was already miserable enough that he was tortured to this extent in public. Anyway, he did not take advantage of them, so there was no need to pursue him relentlessly. If that's the case, then I'll spare his dog life for now. The expert from the Soaring Sky Pavilion nodded and then retreated behind the 2 women with a solemn expression. Just like the others, Lin Yi was speechless when he saw Si Haixiao gasping for air on the ground. The previously high and mighty shopkeeper of the Hong Chamber of Commerce was now like a dead dog. After what happened today, the Hong Chamber of Commerce behind him would not protect him. In order to explain to West Island and Rising Sky Pavilion, they would even punish Si Haixiao severely. In short, Si Haixiao, the newly appointed shopkeeper, had only been in high spirits for a few days, but in the blink of an eye he was finished. Little junior brother. Let's go and find a place to have a good talk with me. When exactly did you become a staff member of the Hong Chamber of Commerce? Why didn't I know about it at all? Shangguan Laner pouted gloomily. The matter of the northernmost island. Lin Yi didn't tell her, and Ning Xuefei kept her in suspense. She was kept in the dark from the beginning and became an outsider. Compared to being slandered by Si Haixiao as a prostitute, this matter was much more serious. Yes, I also have something very important to ask you. Yes, I also have something very important to ask you. Ning Xuefei immediately put aside the unhappiness just now and pulled Lin Yi excitedly. Then, okay. Lin Yi nodded helplessly. Anyway, seeing that the Hong Chamber of Commerce was in a mess, he couldn't buy anything for a while, so he could only go with these 2 young ladies for the time being. Being surrounded by 2 beautiful young ladies on both sides, Lin Yi's treatment really made the people around him drool with envy. Especially when they thought of the rich backgrounds of these 2 women, they were even more jealous. Any one of them would be a winner in life with both power and beauty, let alone 1 against 2. This kid looked thin and weak. He didn't look like an expert and there was nothing special about him. How could he be favored by the heavens? Of course, jealousy was just jealousy. Looking at the 5 Soaring Sky Pavilion Gold Core stage experts scattered around the 2 women, with Si Haixiao's bloody example in front of them, no matter how unbalanced they were, they could only watch helplessly and did not dare to make the slightest movement. Compared to Lin Yi's blessing of having 2 women, Si Haixiao's ending was really bitter tears. When he woke up from the unbearable pain all over his body, a whole day had passed. When he finally realized the situation he was in, he was so shocked that he couldn't help but gasp. As the manager of the North Island branch of the Hong's Chamber of Commerce, Si Haixiao was actually thrown on the street of the inner street of the market and left to fend for himself. What the fuck? Are you all dead? How dare you treat me like this? Today I will kick all of you out. Si Haixiao's old face suddenly turned red when he was looked up and down by the strange eyes of passers-by, and he cursed angrily. Even if he made such a stupid mistake as yesterday, he was still a manager after all, and it was impossible for him to end up like a beggar on the street. Si Haixiao immediately cursed and tried to get up, but after struggling for a few times he found that he could not stand up at all. Then he realized that the tendons in his limbs had been broken by someone with true qi, and he was now a useless man. But even so, Si Haixiao still did not lose his usual arrogance. He shouted to the passers-by, "Whoever comes over and carries me to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, I will give you a big reward." If what he said was on the open day of the inner street yesterday, maybe some passers-by who did not know the truth would be willing to give it a try. But now it was not the open day, and those who could come and go here were all people of status in the North Island. Si Haixiao's stupid feat yesterday had already been spread by word of mouth, and no one would pay attention to such a blind fool. After shouting for a long time, seeing that the passers-by were still indifferent, Si Haixiao finally stopped shouting in despair. But he did not give up. Since no one was willing to carry him, he would climb over by himself. The inner street was so big that even if he climbed all the way from the street to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, the distance was not too far. Once he arrived at the Hong Chamber of Commerce, it would be his territory. Under the gazes of the onlookers, Si Haishao gritted his teeth and forced his way to the entrance of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. However, his subordinates, who were incomparably fawning over him, were only slightly stunned when they saw him. Then they immediately looked away as if they did not see him. Chapter 4063. However, the people in the store just looked at each other, and then went on with their own business with no intention of helping Si Haishao at all. Humph. Good. Very good. Today I've seen the fickleness of human nature. Didn't you see that my tendons and meridians were broken, so you think I'm a useless person? Let me tell you, I can recover from this injury by taking the holy healing medicine. Even if I can't, I'm still your shopkeeper and your life and death are still in my hands. Very good, I've seen your performance. None of you will have a good ending. Si Haishao kept scolding. At this time, the young man who was the closest to him and was often beaten by him a few days ago suddenly said, I don't know if we will have a good ending, but you definitely won't. Your matter has been passed to the headquarters yesterday, and the higher-ups of the headquarters have already dealt with you. In order to give a satisfactory explanation to the Master of West Island and the Master of Soaring Pavilion, you have been completely removed from the Hong Consortium of Chamber of Commerce and will never be employed again. What? That's impossible. You're talking nonsense. How dare you lie to me? Do you want to die? Si Haishao's body shook in disbelief, and then he suddenly roared crazily. Lie to you? Open your dog eyes wide and take a good look before saying anything. A short-lived branch manager like you is truly unprecedented in the history of our Hong Chamber of Commerce. Your Excellency can really be considered as the first person in history. The shop assistant sneered disdainfully and pointed at a notice pasted in the middle of the wall. It clearly stated the punishment of Si Haishao by the higher-ups of Middle Island of the Hong Consortium of Chamber of Commerce, and the seal was indeed the unique seal of the headquarters. In an instant, Si Haishao felt like he was struck by lightning, and his mind went blank. Just because of a drunken flirtation, the shopkeeper Fong, who was still high and mighty yesterday, was fired by the Hong Consortium of Chamber of Commerce forever? Even though Si Haishao was lying at the door in a daze, the people of the Hong Consortium of Chamber of Commerce didn't care about him. They continued to do their own things. A new ruler brings a new minister. What they needed to think about now was when the new shopkeeper would arrive. As for an idiot like Si Haishao, they didn't care about him. In just a short moment, Si Haishao seemed to have aged a few decades. He raised his head with great difficulty and said, Even though I'm no longer your shopkeeper, I'm still your esteemed customer since I'm here to buy medicine. I'm here to buy healing medicine, so I'm still your esteemed customer. Is this how you treat your honored guest? The shop assistant who was closest to him couldn't help but sneer. Honored guest? Could it be that not only are your tendons and meridians crippled, but your brain is also crippled? Oh right, to be able to do something as stupid as what you did yesterday, you don't have any brains to begin with. Then I shall be merciful and give you a reminder. I'm sorry, but you've already been blacklisted by the Hong Chamber of Commerce, no matter if you go to the branch or the headquarters. We won't accept you. Si Haishao was completely speechless. He stared helplessly at the healing elixirs on the display case. A good dog doesn't block the way. I advise you to find another place to lie down. Otherwise, if you affect the business of our Hong Chamber of Commerce, you won't be able to bear the consequences. The shop assistant sneered with an unfriendly expression. Si Haishao clenched his teeth. If it was in the past, he would have killed this fellow with a slap. It was a pity that he was a nobody now. Furthermore, he was a cripple who couldn't even walk. No matter how indignant he was, he could only swallow his anger for the time being. He crawled out of the Hong Chamber of Commerce silently. Si Haishao didn't give up just like that. He turned and crawled towards the Chamber of Commerce next to him. His top priority now was to quickly buy healing elixirs to treat his injuries. Even if he couldn't treat them in a short period of time, he had to at least stabilize his injuries and prevent them from worsening. The Hong Chamber of Commerce wasn't far away. It was the wealthy metropolis. Although their foundations were slightly weaker than the Hong Chamber of Commerce, the difference was limited. Si Haishao shamelessly crawled all the way to the wealthy metropolis. He couldn't care less about the strange gazes of the people around him. He shouted impatiently, Someone quickly prepare a level 5 meridian unblocking pill for me. All the tendons and meridians in his body had been shattered by someone's true qi. Only a level 5 meridian unblocking pill had a chance of treating such injuries. The employees of the wealthy metropolis were stunned. After whispering to each other, they didn't dare to make the decision on their own. They immediately invited Manager Hao out. "Oh, isn't this the new Manager C next door? What a rare guest. May I know what orders you have for my humble shop today?" Manager Hao appeared to be warm on the surface, but everyone could see the hint of mockery hidden in his eyes. Furthermore, he had no intention of helping Si Haishao up from the start. Si Haishao suppressed his anger and said, "I need a level 5 meridian unblocking pill. Prepare it for me." "A level 5 meridian unblocking pill? Ah, this is a rare big deal." Manager Hao raised his eyebrows. Then he said regretfully, "It's a pity that our humble shop doesn't have a level 5 meridian unblocking pill in stock at the moment." "What? No stock?" Si Haishao almost vomited blood when he heard that. Whether he could recover from his injuries and find a chance to make a comeback depended entirely on this level 5 meridian unblocking pill. How could the wealthy metropolis not have it? Unbeknownst to him, it wasn't that the wealthy metropolis did not have it in stock. It was just that Manager Hao didn't want to sell it to him on purpose. After winning the last auction in the extreme North Island, the Hong Chamber of Commerce could be said to be like the sun at high noon. Even the wealthy families would have to tolerate such a competitor. There was no need to offend the Hong Chamber of Commerce for a stupid trash like Si Haishao, and it was not worth it. If we don't have a level 5 meridian unblocking pill, then there should be a level 4 great recovery pill, right? Si Haishao didn't want to give up. Although the level 4 great recovery pill was not as effective as the level 5 meridian unblocking pill, it could at least stabilize his injuries. Unexpectedly, Manager Hao shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, we don't have it either. Someone bought it out of stock some time ago." "You don't have it either?" Si Haishao was stunned. If it was worse than a level 4 great recovery pill, other healing pills would not have any effect on his current injuries. Si Haishao had no choice but to crawl out of the wealthy metropolis and turn to other merchant unions. His purpose was obvious. He was still looking to buy a level 5 meridian unblocking pill and a level 4 great recovery pill. However, the reply that the other merchant unions received was the same. They were all out of stock. This time, no matter how slow Si Haishao's brain was, he finally realized that something was wrong. These merchant unions were obviously looking out for the Hong Merchant Union's face. They didn't dare to sell to him at all. Chapter 4064. However, Si Haishao did not give up. Even if he had to crawl all the way, he had to ask all the chambers of commerce in the inner street. He did not believe that all the chambers of commerce would ignore the large amount of spiritual jades and follow the Hong Consortium's lead. Finally, when Si Haishao climbed to the point of exhaustion and was about to give up, he saw a 4th-grade great recovery pill on the display of a store called the Central Chamber of Commerce. Si Haishao was overjoyed. Even if there was no 5th-grade meridian unblocking pill, this 4th-grade great recovery pill was a lifesaver for him. Si Haishao hurriedly crawled into the door of the Central Chamber of Commerce. He pointed at the display case and shouted, "Guards, I want that 4th-grade great recovery pill. It's on display. You can't possibly lie and pretend that you don't have it in stock, right?" The manager looked at him in surprise and smiled. "Sir, you must be joking. This is business that comes knocking on your door. As a businessman, how can I reject it? Since you want it, I'll get someone to pack it up for you. As for the method of payment, would you like to swipe the spiritual jade card?" "Of course." Si Haishao took out the spiritual jade card from his bosom with great difficulty and handed it over to the steward. He was secretly rejoicing in his heart. Fortunately, he had earned a lot of spiritual jades over the years. This was the capital for him to stage a comeback in the future. However, a moment later, Si Haishao was dumbfounded. The spiritual jade card had been frozen and could not be swiped at all. This news caused Si Haishao to spit out a mouthful of blood in front of everyone. All of his spirit jades were on this spirit jade card. This was his entire fortune and his life. Not only was he tortured into a cripple, but he could not even use the spiritual jade card that was his last hope. Si Haishao almost fainted in front of the Central Chamber of Commerce in despair. Gathering his last bit of spirit, Si Haishao crawled out of the door in a daze. However, he did not know where to go. There was no way out. This time he really didn't have any ideas. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from beside him. "If you want the elixir, follow me." Si Haishao looked up in the direction of the voice and found that the person who spoke was a mysterious person wearing a black windbreaker. Even his face was covered by a black bamboo hat, making it impossible to see his face clearly. "Are you talking to me?" Si Haishao had already lost all hope. At this moment, he was like a drowning man grasping at his last life-saving straw. The mysterious man did not reply, but just lowered his head and gave him a meaningful look. Then he walked to the side. Si Haishao was confused, but he still clenched his teeth and followed after them with great effort, hoping to get lucky. In any case, he was nothing now and he was penniless. He was a complete cripple with a rotten life. There was nothing to be afraid of. As if he was waiting for Si Haishao, the mysterious man deliberately walked very slowly. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, they finally stopped in front of a grand and luxurious tea house, and it was called the Central Tea Party. Si Haishao couldn't help but feel puzzled. Look at this name. Could it be that it was opened by the same company as the Central Chamber of Commerce? Speaking of which, as the former Four Directions supervisor of Honging Group, Si Haishao had specially investigated this Central Chamber of Commerce before he came to North Island. This was a business that had only recently risen to prominence. However, in just a few months they quickly occupied all the islands, even the middle island where the competition was the fiercest. Their Chamber of Commerce appeared at the same time. Si Haishao used the Honging Group's intelligence system, but in the end he still could not find out the owner behind the Central Chamber of Commerce. He only knew that this person was very mysterious and had a very terrifying power. The Central Chamber of Commerce was not like the other chambers of commerce, which grew slowly from small to large. It gave people the feeling that it had grown from nothing to something in just a few days. Suddenly, it was like a spring breeze, thousands of pear trees bloomed, and suddenly, it was all over the 5 main islands of Heaven's stage. He followed the mysterious man all the way into an elegant private room. Seeing that the mysterious man sat down and faced him, Si Haishao braced himself and said nervously, "You were looking for me?" Before he finished his sentence, the mysterious man did not speak but took out a grade 5 meridian conduit elixir and placed it on the table in front of Si Haishao. This is for me?" Si Haishao couldn't help but swallow his saliva, his eyes shining as he stared at the grade 5 meridian conduit elixir in front of him. This was the only elixir that could save his life now. However, Si Haishao was not a fool. No matter how much he desired it, he dared not reach out to take the elixir. He could only rub his hands awkwardly and say, I don't have spiritual jade." "You don't need spiritual jade. I'll give it to you," the mysterious man said calmly. Si Haishao was elated, but he still suppressed his greed and said, "This? I think that I have no value now. I wonder if you have value." "You just haven't realized it," the mysterious man interrupted. Si Haishao was stunned, not understanding what the other party meant. "As long as you promise to work for me wholeheartedly, this grade 5 meridian conduit elixir will be yours," the mysterious man stated. "All right." Si Haishao agreed without hesitation. He had nothing left now. No matter what he did for the mysterious man in the future, it would be better than being a cripple waiting for death. The mysterious man nodded in satisfaction and said, "I heard that you started out in the intelligence department. Not bad. I have an organization in my hands and I'll hand it over to you in the future." "I'll take charge? What do I need to do?" Si Haishao's eyes lit up. The mysterious man smiled faintly and said, "It's very simple. Help me find some people with potential but evil intentions. For example, people like you." Si Haishao suddenly felt that his brain was not working properly. It was easy to understand finding people with potential, but evil intentions? What kind of request was that? There's no need to ask why. As long as you agree, I'll give you a brand new future. Your status won't be lower than the manager of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. As for the power, it'll be beyond your imagination. The mysterious man's tone was calm, but it sounded strangely enticing to Si Haishao. "All right, I agree." Si Haishao nodded immediately. "Very good. From today onwards, you'll be the manager of the Chamber of Commerce in the North Island. Of course, this is only your public identity. As for your secret identity, it's the team leader of the intelligence team in the North Island," the mysterious man said calmly. Even though Si Haishao had already thought of countless possibilities in his mind, he could not help but be shocked when he heard the mysterious man's words. Chapter 4065. One simple sentence from the other party, and Si Haishao became a shopkeeper again. What's more, he became the leader of the intelligence team. Life was indeed unpredictable. This great rise and fall had come too quickly. Just as Si Haishao was so shocked that he didn't know what to say, the mysterious man took out another bottle and placed it beside the Great Meridian Channel unblocking pill. He said, "Drink this bottle of medicinal liquid now. It won't affect your body, but you have to take the antidote once a month. If you don't have any ulterior motives, I will give you the antidote regularly." Si Haishao's heart sank. There was no free lunch in this world. The mysterious man gave him such a huge benefit, but there were conditions. There's no point in hesitating. Do you think that I'll let you leave this room alive if you don't agree after I've said so much to you? As he spoke, a towering aura erupted from the mysterious man, causing the entire tea party to tremble. Even with Si Haixiao's experience, he was still dumbfounded by this terrifying aura that he had never seen before. Not to mention that he was now a cripple. Even if he was at his peak, he would probably be no stronger than an ant in front of this mysterious person. Si Haixiao had no choice. Since things had come to this, he could only crawl to the table, pick up the bottle of medicinal liquid and drink it. He didn't dare to have any ulterior motives. You're quite sensible. Go and have a good rest. Go officially to the Central Chamber of Commerce tomorrow. The mysterious man waved his hand lightly. Yes, I'll take my leave. Si Haixiao excitedly took the Meridian Channel conduit pill and kowtowed to the mysterious man. He crawled backward out of the private room. There was already a servant waiting at the door to help him change, shower, and recuperate. After Si Haixiao left, the door inside the private room suddenly opened automatically without any warning. The mysterious man's domineering aura dissipated instantly. He kowtowed respectfully to the private room inside, not daring to cross the line. It's settled. He'll officially take office tomorrow. I'll personally supervise him during this period, the mysterious man said respectfully. All right, you may leave. A woman's voice came from inside the private room. Yesterday, after leaving the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Lin Yi and the two ladies found a clean and tidy restaurant. Although it was far from being as high class as the Soaring Sky Pavilion's splendid sun house, and it didn't have spirit energy delicacies that easily cost hundreds of spirit jades, it was just some ordinary dishes that had nothing to do with cultivation. However, it was still very delicious and it had the warmth of a home. The 5 Soaring Sky Pavilion core disciples had been following the 3 of them, constantly monitoring everyone's movements. With Si Haixiao's appearance, they had to be extra vigilant. It would be a dereliction of duty if another blind person came to disturb the mood of the 2 young misses. However, under the strong request of Shangguan Laner and Ning Xuefei, they did not enter the private room. They could only be on standby in the surrounding areas. Only Lin Yi and the 2 women were left in the private room. There was also a little curly bear who was busy eating and drinking. I didn't dare to ask more last time in a hurry. It turns out to be Miss Ning of West Island. How disrespectful. Regarding the matter of the northernmost island, many thanks for your help, I can't thank you enough. Engrave it in my heart. Lin Yi raised his glass and thanked Ning Xuefei. If I knew you were Lin Yi, I would have saved you even more. This is what I should do. Ning Xuefei's lips curled into a meaningful smile. Lin Yi was slightly stunned when he heard this. He couldn't help but look at Shangguan Laner. He thought that she said this because she was Shangguan Laner's best friend. Love me, love my dog. Ning Xuefei smiled slightly. When they were on the northernmost island, she didn't know about the matter between Shangguan Laner and Lin Yi. Her words were referring to her other best friend, Han Jingjing. After the contact on the road just now, she could be sure that this was the Lin Yi that Han Jingjing had been yearning for day and night. However, she didn't want to break the window paper for such a fun thing. It would be good to wait until the time to give them a big surprise. Well, you two don't have to keep me in suspense anymore. Little fellow, what happened? Quickly tell me honestly. Shangguan Laner couldn't wait to urge. Lin Yi and Ning Xuefei looked at each other and no longer hid it. They talked about the matter in the northernmost island to her. After listening to the encounter between the 2, Shangguan Laner was amazed for a long time. She couldn't help but sigh that the world was really too small. They could even know each other like this. But then she wondered, little junior brother, how did you get injured at that time? Is the northernmost island so chaotic? Yeah, I wanted to ask this question too. Lin Yi, you were injured quite badly at that time. Ning Xuefei said curiously. Although she had a guess, it was just a guess. Lin Yi hesitated for a while, but thinking that these 2 weren't outsiders and had a close relationship with him, they wouldn't betray him. He lowered his voice and admitted, Miss Ning, you must have heard about what happened that night. Zheng Tianjie died because of a cauldron explosion. Actually, it was my doing. Ah. The 2 women were shocked when they heard this. Zheng Tianjie's status was not much inferior to theirs. His death had caused quite a stir in the past. According to the elders in the family, if it wasn't for the Dan god Zhang Liju personally coming out and confirming that this guy died because of his cauldron explosion, Zheng Dongjue would have sent out the elites of Zhongdao's Dan Hall. They didn't expect that the cause of such a huge incident was Lin Yi. After being stunned for a while, Shangguan Laner suddenly praised him excitedly, little junior brother, you're really amazing. Zheng Dongjue was someone Grandpa met when he brought me to Zhongdao. He's not a good person. I heard that a lot of girls in Zhongdao were harassed by him. Little junior brother, you're doing the people a favor. Ning Xuefei asked curiously, then why did you kill him? Oh, I know, it must be because he saw that you had so many elixirs that you couldn't buy even if you bought them, so he wanted to rob them. Lin Yi smiled and shook his head. That's not it. Miss Ning should have an impression of my conflict with him. I bid against him at the auction and offended him. He didn't plan on sharing Tianchan's matter with the two girls. After all, there wasn't a need for it. One more person knowing would mean one more trouble for Tianchan. It was better not to mention it. Chapter 4066. Right, I said he's a bad guy. Junior brother, you did a good job. Shengwan Laner chimed in. She suddenly paused and pinched the little curly bear's neck, saying, You're a foodie. Why can't you change your bad habit of licking all the dishes first? We haven't touched anything, but the dishes on the table are all covered with your saliva. How can we eat? The little curly bear was caught off guard and choked. As soon as Shengwan Laner loosened her grip, he immediately spat out the food in his mouth all over the table, and then he burped with satisfaction. Lin Yi and the other two looked at each other and were speechless. They stared at the little curly bear for a long time and said helplessly, Let's order another table. I haven't eaten enough. Seeing the little curly bear's innocent expression, Ning Xuefei felt funny and distressed. She quickly helped him out and changed the topic, saying, Since you're so familiar with me and Little Lon, Lin Yi, why don't you be our tour guide and show us around in the next few days? I've long heard that there are many scenic spots in the North Island. Although I've been here many times before, I always come and go in a hurry and never have a good time. I'd like to, but I'm a newcomer in the Welcome Pavilion. According to the rules, I can't go out at will. Lin Yi said with a wry smile. Although he had this eldest senior brother who was now in charge to help him bear the burden and secretly disappear for a while to look for the king of scrap weapons, it was not a big deal. At most, people would think that he was hiding in the cave for closed-door training. However, if he swaggered out with the two young ladies to play, it would be too eye-catching. What should we do? Little Lon, do you have any good ideas? Ning Xuefei turned to ask. Although she was the princess of the West Island, every place had its own rules. She was not the kind of ignorant little girl who took herself as the center of everything and didn't care about the life and death of others. Oh, let me think. Shengwan Laner rolled her eyes and patted her head, saying, It doesn't matter. I got an idea. As long as my grandfather arranges a position for you, they can't say anything about you. Position? What position? Lin Yi asked with a strange expression. I don't know. Anyway, I will definitely let Grandpa think of a way. This problem will be left to him to worry about, hee. Shengwan Laner said indifferently. All right. Lin Yi could only nod in agreement speechlessly. As for the casting, he could only put it aside for a couple of days. Anyway, the king of junk had said that it might not be a bad thing to maintain it for a longer period of time, so it shouldn't be a big deal. Since they were scared by Si Haishao before, the two girls did not have the mood to continue playing today. After having a meal with Lin Yi, he quickly returned under the protection of the 5 Soaring Sky Pavilion Corps disciples. Early the next morning, a transfer order was suddenly sent to the Welcoming Pavilion. Everyone in the Welcoming Pavilion was shocked. The newcomers of the 3 great pavilions were all gathered together to listen to their orders. Everything was done in a very formal manner. There was a deacon who was in charge of conveying the orders of the Elders Guild who personally appeared and accompanied him. And there was Hu Yunfeng with a pale face. After a meeting of the Elders Guild of the North Island, Lin Yi of the Welcoming Pavilion is appointed as the reception deacon of the West Island. He is in charge of receiving Miss Ning, a guest from the West Island. He is also responsible for all the matters of her travel in the North Island. If she encounters any problems, she can act at her own discretion without asking for additional instructions. The deacon read the transfer order in public. As soon as the words came out, there was an immediate uproar. Even Hu Yunfeng had an indescribable look of astonishment on his face. Reception deacon of the West Island? What kind of position is this? I have never heard of it before. The point was that it was personally appointed by the Elders Guild, and he had the right to act at his own discretion. It didn't sound simple at all. Under the envious eyes of the crowd, Lin Yi received the transfer order, but he was secretly speechless. Shanghai Tianhua, the top tycoon, is really leisurely and carefree. He actually thought of such a unique title for me. Can be said that he took a lot of effort. However, just as Lin Yi took the transfer order and was about to turn around and leave, the deacon suddenly said, Little brother Lin Yi, wait a minute. I have a private letter from Pavilion Master Shengwan here. Please take it with you. Boom. The crowd was even more excited. Shanghai Tianhua, the pavilion master of the Rising Pavilion, actually gave a private letter to a newcomer of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. The weight of this letter is more enviable than the inexplicable transfer order just now. Damn it, how many generations of good fortune does Lin Yi have? Most of the newcomers were just watching the fun, but Hu Yunfeng, the pavilion master of the welcoming pavilion, had a pitiful expression, as if he had eaten shit and had to savor it slowly. Shengguan Tianhua was a high and mighty peak-level existence. Even with his status as the pavilion master of the welcoming pavilion, it was difficult for him to even speak to him face-to-face, let alone form any sort of relationship with him. Just what had this Lin Yi done to deserve such special treatment from such a powerful figure? Even Hu Yunfeng was in such a state. Kang Mingming, Murong Zhen, and the other rivals who regarded Lin Yi as a thorn in their side, were so shocked that they couldn't speak for a long time. Although the sun was still shining brightly, their hearts had already fallen into an ice cellar, frozen into a pile of frozen lumps. Lin Yi didn't care about this group of people who were so depressed that they vomited blood. After receiving the private letter from Shanghai Tianhua, he turned around, walked to an empty place, opened it and read it carefully. Lin Yi, this old man thinks that you're smart and dependable. You have a lot of potential and this training is a rare opportunity. I hope you'll do your best and protect the princess. Be a qualified personal bodyguard for the Island Flower. Close master of the Island Flower? The last sentence in the letter made Lin Yi spit on the spot. He felt that he was born to do this. Wherever he went, he had to do this work. It was like this in the secular world, and now he was on the Heaven Stage Island, but he still couldn't escape this fate. As soon as he finished reading the letter, the gathered newcomers were in an uproar again. Lin Yi looked up and saw Shanghai Laner and Ning Xuefei, two little beauties with powerful backgrounds, smiling sweetly and waving at him not far away. With the Princess of West Island in one hand and the Princess of Chongtian Pavilion in the other, looking at the backs of Lin Yi and his companions, people in the welcoming pavilion were completely petrified. They all sighed in their hearts. As a newcomer, he should learn from Lin Yi. He is a real winner in life. If we can't find a strong backer, I think we can give up on Lin Yi. Meng Tong sighed faintly behind the crowd. Chapter 4067. Just like what Meng Tong had said, at least for now they were no longer a threat to Lin Yi. Even if they did not give up, they could only swallow their anger for now. Bringing two beauties to tour the North Island in the eyes of anyone was a heavenly task. Lin Yi, on the other hand, did not have such dirty thoughts. However, he had been on the Heaven Stage Island for more than half a year, and he had never had such a good time. It could be considered as a rare relaxing experience after cultivating hard. However, just as Lin Yi was accompanying the two ladies to tour around, a piece of heavy news suddenly spread throughout the North Island, becoming the new topic of conversation after a meal. The former manager of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Si Haishao, who had molested the two princesses in public, had now become the manager of the Central Chamber of Commerce after he was abused into a cripple. His meridians were all broken, and he was forever removed from his position by the Hong Chamber of Commerce. How could he be promoted so quickly? This Si Haishao doesn't look like much, how could he be so capable? Lin Yi could not help but be puzzled. Such a bad old bastard, there are actually people willing to hire him as a manager. Is this Central Chamber of Commerce sick? Shanghai Laner said angrily. Even if she was simple and did not hold a grudge against Si Haishao, it would be strange for her to be happy when she suddenly heard this kind of news. Ning Xuefei also frowned but said with some doubt, Central Chamber of Commerce? This name sounds familiar. It seems to be in the limelight recently. I don't know why, but I also feel the same way. Lin Yi also frowned. He did not know what Central Chamber of Commerce was, but this word made him feel like he had heard it before. Although the three of them were surprised and puzzled, they were having fun and did not pay too much attention to it. Si Haishao had already paid a heavy price previously. As long as he did not provoke them again, he was just an unrelated passerby. At the same time, the two brothers Nan Tianba and Nan Tianmen were beating their chests and stamping their feet. What a waste of alcohol. Si Haishao had such a good backer. He had just gotten a little closer to him, but now he was pushed to the bottom. Not only had they lost a backer, but they had also been severely reprimanded by their uncle, Nantian Aurora, in his letter. Si Haishao was someone he had paid a huge price to finally raise to his current position. Just because these two fellows had brought him to a brothel to have fun, they ended up playing with him until he became an idiot with overflowing sperm. This was great. All his previous efforts had gone to waste. He had wasted an astronomical amount of spirit jades. Not even a sound was heard. Just as the two brothers were regretting their decision, They did not expect to receive such a piece of news. Si Haishao had miraculously regained his position in the blink of an eye. When Nan Qianba and the Southern Heaven Gate received the news, they immediately made their way to the newly opened Central Chamber of Commerce. As expected, they saw the high-spirited Si Haishao. "I am Manager Si. We finally found you. We haven't been able to find you for the past 2 days and we've been extremely worried." Nan Tianba and the Nan Tianmen brothers rushed over with faces full of joy. Were you really looking for me everywhere?" Si Haishao's expression turned cold. The miserable experience from before had already become a shadow that he could not get rid of for the rest of his life. That was his most desperate and helpless moment. However, these two people did not show up from the beginning to the end. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. How could he not bear a grudge? Seeing this, the two brothers hurriedly explained, It's true. Speaking of this, it's all our fault. We shouldn't have brought you to that kind of place to get drunk. Otherwise, such a big thing wouldn't have happened. Actually, after sending you back to the Hong Family Chamber of Commerce the day before yesterday, the two of us also drank ourselves into oblivion. When we woke up, it was already yesterday evening. When we heard that something had happened to you, we searched everywhere for traces of you. However, we couldn't find you. Hearing the two of them say this, Si Haishao's expression became much more relaxed. He had already left with the mysterious person yesterday evening. It was normal for the two brothers to say that they couldn't find him. Alright then, this old man will believe you for now. This matter will be over for now. Fortunately, this old man had the help of a benefactor. Otherwise, the two of you would probably have to collect this old man's corpse. Si Haishao was half afraid and half glad as he said this. Yes, shopkeeper Si, you're truly blessed by the heavens. Nan Qianba and Southern Heavenly Gate wiped away the cold sweat on their foreheads. They had finally tricked this old thing. With their way of doing things, they would always support the strong and trample on the weak. When Si Haishao was successful, they naturally wanted to get closer to him. As for whether Si Haishao came to look for him when he was in trouble, only they themselves would know. Seeing Si Haishao sitting on a specially made wheelchair, Southern Heavenly Gate asked with a face full of concern, Shopkeeper Si, how are your injuries? Do you want us to get some healing medicine for you? No need, this old man's injuries aren't too serious. I only broke a few meridians. I've already taken a 5th grade meridian unblocking pill. It's only a matter of time before I recover. You don't have to worry about me. Nan Qianba and Southern Heavenly Gate nodded and said, although these injuries can be healed, this old man must take revenge. Forget about the two girls, that Lin Yi is the main culprit that caused this old man's tragedy. If I don't take revenge, I'm not a man. Nan Qianba and Southern Heavenly Gate nodded and said, that's right. We must find a way to kill that brat Lin Yi. He's too despicable. However, I heard that he's always with Shanghai Laner and Ning Shuefei. He's also surrounded by the 5 experts from the Rising Sky Pavilion. It's not a good time to make a move on him. The future is long. Isn't it just a few more days? This old man still has this much patience. Si Haishao's eyes were filled with hatred. He then said, this old man has made a comeback, but I haven't had the time to celebrate. Apart from the two of you, I don't know anyone else on the North Island. Why don't we go for a drink and have some fun? Since Shopkeeper Si has given the order, we wouldn't dare to disobey. The two of them immediately smiled and said. The 3 of them immediately found a top-notch restaurant and chatted happily. However, this time, Si Haishao had learned his lesson. He didn't dare to mention anything about finding women again. After all, he was forced to take the poison. If he fooled around all day and didn't do anything serious, he would be finished if he angered the mysterious person behind him. You two are the local bullies of the North Island, so you have a deep understanding of all aspects of the North Island. I have a question to ask you. I don't know if you have ever heard of people with potential but evil intentions? Si Haishao said, weighing his words. Nan Qianba and Southern Heavenly Gate were stunned. They then blurted out, isn't that you, Jia? Chapter 4068. Si Haishao could not help but curl his lips. Yuzha had already disappeared, and not even a shadow could be found. What was the use of mentioning him? He continued, is there anyone else other than him? Southern Heavenly Gate frowned and thought for a moment. Suddenly he slapped his thigh and said, yes, there's someone called Kong Ming Ming in the welcoming pavilion. Some time ago, because I suspected that he was Lin Air, I specially observed this person. He's very sinister and full of evil tricks, but he has some brains. Rumor has it that this kid is vengeful. Even when the newcomers fight in the arena, he will use underhanded methods. Many people have been tricked by him. That's interesting. Si Haishao's eyes lit up when he heard this. Southern Heavenly Gate laughed. What's even better is that this guy is the same as us. He is also a mortal enemy of Lin Yi. His hatred is not shallow. Si Haishao was even more satisfied. He immediately said, "That's great. Then I'll trouble you to arrange for this person to meet me. I have great use for him." Although Southern Heavenly Gate did not understand since Si Haishao had said it, he had no reason to refuse. He immediately set off for the welcoming pavilion. During this period of time, Kang Mingming had not been doing well. It could even be said that it was the worst period of time since he came to the Heavenly Stage Island. Not only was he defeated by Lin Yi last time, but now that he had lost his backer, Su Lingchong, as a new deacon, he had become somewhat awkward. The newcomers no longer took him seriously, and it was basically impossible for him to advance further. Even the pavilion master, Hu Yunfeng, had begun to distance himself from him. Recently, all the big and small matters had been handed over to the newcomers to manage, giving him fewer and fewer instructions. And for a position like his, once there were no missions, it meant that he had no power. He was not far from becoming a transparent person. He could only watch helplessly as Lin Yi latched onto a super thick thigh like Shanghai Tianhua, while his own situation was deteriorating. If this continued, it was almost certain that he would be stepped on by Lin Yi. Kang Mingming was currently surrounded by a sense of crisis. However, he had no idea how to deal with it. Coincidentally, the Southern Heavenly Gate had come knocking on his door. It was as if someone had sent him a pillow just as he was about to doze off. However, as much as Kang Mingming believed that this was a rare opportunity, he still called Pin Liang along for safety's sake. If something happened, he'd at least have someone to cover for him. Pin Liang, on the other hand, wanted to see what these people were up to. He agreed without hesitation and followed them. He brought the two of them to the restaurant. To put it nicely, the meeting between Kang Mingming and Si Haishao was like old friends at first sight. To put it bluntly, they were birds of the same feather. After Kang Mingming's flattery, the atmosphere at the table immediately became harmonious, and the two sides talked happily. "I heard that you guys have a grudge with Lin Yi as well?" Si Haishao finally brought up the matter at hand. "That's right, shopkeeper Si, you don't know. Lin Yi and I have a blood feud, and so does brother Zhong. Our grudge can't even be finished in 3 days and 3 nights. Kang Mingming said bitterly. "That's perfect. We are on the same side. The enemy of an enemy is a natural ally. Zhaoming, if you're willing to surrender to me, that's fine. If you want me to protect you in the future, that's fine too, but you have to do something first. You need to prove your loyalty to us, right?" Si Haishao squinted his eyes and smiled. Kang Mingming was overjoyed when he heard this, but he was a little troubled. I won't hide it from you, Manager Si. A while ago we took the initiative to find trouble with Lin Yi. We wanted to eliminate him in one fell swoop, but the result wasn't what we wanted. He dodged it. Seniors Nan can also testify to this. Si Haishao glanced at Nan Chenba and Southern Sky Gate. Seeing the two brothers nod their heads, he said indifferently, "Since you've already failed, it can't be considered a proof of loyalty. Since you guys could mess with him once before, you can naturally mess with him again now. What do you think?" But these days he's been with the two misses. If we want to deal with him face to face, it won't be easy. After all, we're just rookies in the welcoming pavilion. Doing this is no different from courting death. I hope Manager C can understand this. Kang Mingming said with a bitter face. That may be the case, but if we can't deal with him face to face, can't you think of another way? If you don't even have this much ability, even if I accept you, what's the use? Si Haishao curled his lips and said. This old thing, he wouldn't release the eagle until he saw the rabbit. Kang Mingming thought to himself. Then he thought of something and said, I've thought of a way. Last time we went to mess with Lin Yi, he seemed to be forging. Now that he's busy playing with the two misses, he definitely won't have time to care about that place. What do you think, Manager C? Si Haishao's eyes lit up when he heard this. He stroked his beard and said, Not bad, this is a rare opportunity. Once something like forging starts, it can't be stopped. Even if he's not here, the forging will still continue. If you guys take this opportunity to mess with him, even if you can't do anything to him, you'll still make his heart ache. Then it's decided. As long as you do this well, it'll be your proof of loyalty. In the future, I'll take good care of you. You'll be able to achieve great success. Okay, I'll leave now. Just wait for my good news, Manager C. Kang Mingming said excitedly. He turned around and left with Zhong Pingliang. He'd suffered a huge loss at Lin Yi's hands last time. This was the perfect time to get back at him and make the guy feel heartache. He didn't have to fight Lin Yi head-on anyway, so there was no risk at all. On the way, Zhong Pingliang was worried. He wanted to send a message to Lin Yi, but he didn't even know where Lin Yi was. He could only follow Kang Ming Ming and play it by ear. When they reached the cave entrance, Kang Ming Ming jumped in impatiently, with Zhong Pingliang following closely behind. At this moment, King of Junk was studying the forging notes his Shifu had left him. Although the accident from before seemed to be safe and there was still room to salvage the situation, King of Junk was truly scared out of his wits. While Lin Yi was collecting materials, he had to calm down and review his forging plan from start to finish. He had to review the notes, and perhaps he'd be able to find his blind spots and prevent similar mistakes from happening again. It was because he was too focused that he didn't notice Kang Xiaoming and Kang Xiaoming sneaking in. It was only when the two appeared behind him that he finally reacted. "Who's there?" The King of Junk was shocked and jumped up from the ground. Chapter 4069. Damn, when did Lin Yi get such a helper? Fortunately, I was cautious enough to prepare the alchemic firebomb in advance. Otherwise, today's effort would have been in vain. Kang Ming Ming spat with lingering fear. Pin Liang, on the other hand, was speechless as he looked at the trash king on the ground. He didn't even know that the two of them had snuck in like that. Wasn't this guy a little too unwary? He was knocked out by Kang Ming Ming with just one move, and Pin Liang didn't even have a chance to sneak up on him. While Pin Liang was thinking, Kang Xiaoming had already stepped past the King of Junk and reached the edge of the pool. He looked at the strange lump of metal in the middle of the pool and smiled coldly. "This is the weapon Lin Yi is crafting, right? I heard he even asked Hong Zhong to get him a lot of valuable materials. Let's take this thing away today, don't you think it'll hurt him to death?" Before Pin Liang could say anything, Kang Xiaoming reached into the pool and fished out the lump of metal. The pool looked as calm as a pool of stagnant water, so there wasn't much of a threat to it. However, right after that, Kang Ming Ming's expression changed abruptly. Roar! A hoarse and miserable howl instantly penetrated the entire cave. Even the birds in the forest outside were startled and flew away. Fish. Accompanied by a scalp-numbing sizzling sound, a layer of skin on Kang Ming Ming's hand was burned off. His hands swelled like carrots at a speed visible to the naked eye. He hurriedly let go and the iron lump fell on his feet with a bang. Another layer of skin was burned off. Don't be fooled by the forging pool's lukewarm appearance, as if it was no different from an ordinary pool. However, the temperature inside was not something a human could endure. Even if he was a Foundation establishment expert, his body was still made of flesh and blood. In the eyes of experts, Kang Ming Ming's action was purely a case of an old man hanging himself. He was tired of living. "It's so hot." It was scalding. It was scalding. Pin Liang didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he watched Kang Ming Ming rolling on the ground. He was still thinking of a way to deal with this situation. He didn't think that the idiot would fall into the trap of his own accord. This was good, he didn't even have to think. Without another word, Pin Liang grabbed Kang Ming Ming's ankle and dragged him out of the cave. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, Kang Ming Ming's screams finally subsided. He looked at Pin Liang and said weakly, "What the hell was that? Why was it so hot?" Pin Liang couldn't help but laugh inwardly. What else could it be? What? Boss Lin Ming 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 hand? You even dared to use your hands to directly take the things in the forging pool. Even with your stupid intelligence, it was truly shocking. But on the surface, Pin Liang's eyes rolled as he analyzed. "Xiaoming, I suspect that this is a trick Lin Yi prepared for us. He used to do this all the time, pretending to be lax to lure us in. Think about it. After what happened last time, this place is obviously exposed. If it were you, would you still stay here to forge?" Kang Ming Ming paused and shook his head decisively. "Of course not. If it were me, I would have moved a long time ago. I wouldn't stay here and be targeted by others." That's why he should have moved a long time ago. That's why he made this piece of junk to lure us here to destroy it. This is exactly what he wants. Pin Liang said confidently. "That's right. I was suspecting that this piece of junk doesn't look like a weapon at all. It's a trap. Lin Yi is really cunning. He even got someone to guard this place, making it sound like this piece of junk is something good. I wouldn't have fallen for it otherwise." Kang Ming Ming cursed angrily. He was the same type of person. When he analyzed Lin Yi, he naturally had the worst of intentions. He didn't know that he was the one who brought this upon himself. There was only one real reason. He was too stupid. Seeing that Kang Ming Ming had taken the initiative to explain himself, Pin Liang happily agreed. The two returned to the restaurant and reported to Si Haixiao. Si Haixiao was stunned when he saw that Kang Ming Ming had bandages all over his body. He looked like he was seriously injured. "You were beaten up by Lin Yi?" "No, Manager Si, I was tricked by him." Kang Ming Ming started complaining with tears and snot. In summary, it wasn't that he didn't do his best. It was just that Lin Yi was too cunning. After listening to Kang Mingming's story, Si Haishao, Nantianba, and the others looked at each other. But thinking about it carefully, Kang Ming had his reasons for being tricked this time. If he didn't make Kang Mingming hand over his proof of loyalty, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to trick people like this no matter how cunning he was. Fine. Although you didn't succeed this time, even if you didn't make any contributions, you still worked hard. This old man has seen your sincerity. Consider this your proof of allegiance. In the future, this old man will naturally protect you, Si Haishao said coolly. Kang Mingming was overjoyed. He patted his chest and said, "Thank you, Manager Si. If you need anything in the future, I will go through fire and water without hesitation." Very good. Let's see what you do next. Si Haishao nodded in satisfaction before turning to Pinliang. Xiaoming is under me now and I've acknowledged him. But you, Pinliang, I can't just take you in just because you're Xiaoming's friend. You have to contribute something or you'll have to be put on probation. Pinliang nodded in satisfaction before turning to Pinliang. Pinliang thought about it and pretended to be troubled. Manager Si, I also went to destroy things just now. It's just that Xiaoming was in front. He was scalded the moment he picked up the metal lump. I could only save him first. I didn't have a chance to show off. That may be the case, but I treat everyone equally. Xiaoming suffered so much before I accepted him. If you want me to accept you as well, you can't have no contributions at all. Si Haishao shook his head. That's right. This old man wasn't easy to fool. Pinliang was secretly panicking. These people were obviously targeting Boss Lin Yi. If he didn't find a way to sneak in now, it would be very difficult to get inside information about them in the future. Suddenly, Pinliang's eyes lit up. Right, Manager Si, aren't you looking for people with bad intentions but potential? I happen to know one and it's a rare beauty. Chapter 4070. As expected, as soon as Si Haishao heard the word beauty, although he was still sitting in a wheelchair and had yet to recover from his injuries, he became visibly excited. He quickly asked, "Oh? What beauty? Quickly tell this old man." Zhong Pingliang smiled and said, "Her name is Murong Zhen. She's a newcomer in the welcome pavilion just like us. She also has a grudge against Lin Yi. She was with us when we went to deal with Lin Yi." "There's such a thing? Isn't she a natural ally?" Si Haishao was even more elated. He immediately said, "Pinliang, hurry up and invite this lady Murong over. If she can satisfy me, I will remember that you have done a great deed." "Got it." Pinliang answered and left, leaving Kang Xiaoming looking like he'd just eaten shit. During this time, Murong Zhen had always been Kang Mingming's favorite. Although he failed to deal with Lin Yi, he was still satisfied with Murong Zhen's service. This coquettish woman was much better than ordinary women. She was also a master at the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment. Conquering her in bed was a different kind of pleasure. But now, Zhong Pingliang wanted to introduce her to Si Haishao. Fuck, I didn't take the initiative to share with him. Does he have to disgust me like this? Kang Xiaoming cursed at Pinliang in his mind, but he didn't dare show it on his face. It was pointless to say anything else now that things had come to this. He could only swallow his pride and accept it. Soon, Murong Zhen's coquettish figure appeared before everyone's eyes. Si Haishao almost couldn't hold himself back when he saw her natural seduction. He swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva and hurriedly said, "This old man is Si Haishao. I'm the manager of the Central Chamber of Commerce. I've long heard of Miss Murong's beauty. You're indeed a beauty. How pitiful." Si Haishao couldn't be blamed for losing his composure. He was a lustful man. He had no resistance to women's charms, otherwise he wouldn't have made such a stupid mistake. Since he came to the North Island, he had only been taken to a brothel by Nan Tianba and Nan Tianmen once, and the women he played with were just ordinary women. Murong Zhen, a naturally seductive expert in the foundation building realm. There was no comparison at all. Manager Si really knows how to speak, praising me until I'm embarrassed. Murong Zhen pretended to be shy as she covered her mouth and smiled. She then glanced at the crowd from the corner of her eyes and said in a coquettish manner, "I'm tired from walking such a long distance on such a hot day. Shopkeeper Si, are you so heartless to not even arrange a seat for him?" As a veteran, Si Haishao understood Murong Zhen's seductive gaze. He gestured to the southern heavenly gate beside him to give up a seat and said with a lecherous smile, "Lady Murong, you must be tired from your journey. Why don't you sit next to me? This seat is specially prepared for you. Manager Si, you really know how to dote on me. I'm embarrassed." Murong Zhen smiled tenderly and immediately sat down beside Si Haishao. Her petite body naturally leaned close to him. Seeing Si Haishao's lecherous expression, Kang Ming couldn't help but curse in his mind. Murongjin really was a slut that could be slept with by anyone. She even threw herself at an old man like him. She had no morals at all. Kang Ming, however, had forgotten that Murongjin had slept with him back then. She was only interested in his backer. For this kind of woman, Qin Feng was not a match for her. For a woman like her, her body was just a capital. As long as the opportunity was right, she could use it for a trade at any time. Pin Liang, I'm very pleased that you were willing to introduce Lady Murong to me this time. I'll remember that you've done a great job. Work hard in the future, I have high hopes for you. Si Haishao praised Zhong Pinliang as he enjoyed Murong Zhen's flirtatious behavior. This time Kang Ming was even more depressed. It seemed like Si Haishao favored Zhong Pinliang even more, and he himself had to settle for second place. As for Murong Zhen, there was even less of a chance for him to compete. Accompanying Ning Xuefei and Shangguan Laner to play around, Lin Yi, the island beauty's personal expert, was in a much better mood than Kang Ming. However, he didn't completely forget about his business during the play. He brought the two girls to the Hong Merchant Association again. This time, without Si Haixiao's obstruction, Lin Yi successfully bought most of the supplementary materials listed by King of Junk. He even got one of the two rare materials that King of Junk mentioned that required luck. However, the last one was nowhere to be found. The appearance-growing mushroom was a spiritual medicine that looked very similar to Ganoderma. At the same time, it was a rare material for forging weapons. According to King of Junk, the 5 elements during forging were different from the normal 5 elements. The process of forging weapons was the reverse of the 5 elements. Therefore, the key to perfectly harmonizing the attributes of the materials depended on the appearance-growing mushroom. However, the appearance-growing mushroom was as rare as the heart-devouring exquisite grass. More importantly, once it was harvested, it had a very short lifespan and would easily wither and become useless. Therefore, unless a special reservation was made, even a large merchant association like the Hong Merchant Association wouldn't be able to stock it. It was the same for other merchant associations. Fortunately, Lin Yi wasn't in a hurry. After making a reservation at the Hong Merchant Association, he specifically went to find Chen Heihu and asked him to help him buy it. It was only then that Ning Xuefei finally realized what was going on. She asked doubtfully, "Lin Yi, so you're not a waiter from the Hong Merchant Association?" "Of course not. The newcomers in the Welcome Pavilion don't work part-time outside. As for the reason why I went to the northernmost island with Hong Zhong last time, it was only because I had a good relationship with him. I never said I was a waiter from the Hong Merchant Association." Lin Yi shrugged. "Then why did you ask me to ask Hong Zhong for elixirs last time? I thought you were from the Hong Merchant Association." Ning Xuefei pouted. Lin Yi smiled and said, "Actually, I refined those elixirs myself." However, it was true that he was from the Hong Merchant Association. "Is this for real? So many elixirs were refined by you?" Ning Xuefei's eyes widened. At that time, the Hong Merchant Association was pushed aside by a few other merchant associations. They couldn't bring out any decent items for auction, so I helped Hong Zhong. That's how I got those elixirs. Lin Yi explained lightly. Chapter 4071. At this time, Shangguan Laner interrupted and said, "So, the highest grade elixir that you gave me as a birthday gift last time was also refined by you, junior brother?" "Yes." Lin Yi nodded and admitted. There was no need to hide this kind of thing from the two of them. "You can even refine the highest grade elixir so easily. I didn't expect that you, Lin Yi, are such a powerful alchemist." Ning Xuefei's face was full of admiration. She suddenly said, "By the way, I heard that there is a kind of elixir that can directly improve one's strength. It's called the Foundation Establishment Elixir. You can directly upgrade after eating it, unlike the Foundation Establishment Barrier Breaking Elixir, which can only be used to break through the barrier. I wonder if you can refine it?" "You also know about the Foundation Establishment Elixir?" Lin Yi was slightly surprised. Looking at the Heaven Stage Island, the Foundation Establishment Elixir was an extremely rare and precious elixir. Even in a big chamber of commerce like the Hong Chamber of Commerce, it was rare. "That's right." Ning Xuefei proudly raised her neck. "This is, a good friend of mine told me about it. I can try, but I can't guarantee that I will succeed." Lin Yi did not make any promises. "That's great." Ning Xuefei suddenly became excited and said, "I have collected a lot of materials for refining the Foundation Establishment Elixir. Let's refine it together. Then, after refining, the 3 of us will divide it. But I want 2 portions and I have to bring one for my good friend." "Okay, no problem." Lin Yi nodded and agreed. Since Hong Zhong went to Middle Island, he lost a reliable channel to purchase the heart-devouring exquisite grass. In the future, if he wanted to refine more foundation establishment elixir, he could only wait for the news from Jianghu. He was a little worried about this recently. He did not expect that Ning Xuefei would actually help him in his time of need. But, according to Lin Yi's estimations, even with Ning Xuefei's high status as the daughter of the West Island's master, she wouldn't be able to collect too many ingredients in private. After all, the heart-devourer exquisite grass was extremely rare, and it wasn't something that could be collected easily. However, after a few days, Ning Xuefei sent someone to deliver a large basket full of materials. This really shocked Lin Yi. After a rough estimation, there were actually at least 10 sets of materials inside. Even with Lin Yi's mental fortitude, he was still shocked by this scene for a long time. Comparisons were odious. Lin Yi couldn't help but marvel. How did Ning Xuefei collect all these? This time Lin Yi could not help but feel a surge of emotions. After some preparation he was about to start refining the pill. However, the two ladies, Ning Xuefei and Shangguan Laner, came to him at this time and said in unison, "We want to watch you concoct pills, we want to protect you." This sudden bizarre request simply made Lin Yi not know whether to laugh or cry. Of course, he knew that the two of them did not have any malicious intentions and were sincerely good to him. They didn't mean to harm him. They wanted to see him concoct pills purely for fun, but if they did that, the secret of his divine armament cauldron would be exposed. After pondering for a long time, Lin Yi finally decided to agree and warned, "That's fine, but you can't tell anyone about me concocting pills. Can you guarantee that?" Of course, this is a secret between the three of us." Ning Xuefei and Shangguan Laner immediately high-fived excitedly to celebrate. "Little junior brother, your cave residence is too small. Let's go to my Hualan house to refine pills. It's more spacious there and no one will disturb us," Shangguan Laner suggested. "All right." Lin Yi nodded. In terms of external environment, Hualan House was the #1 residence in Soaring Pavilion after all, and it was indeed more reliable than his cave residence. Carrying a large basket full of elixirs, the three of them came to Hualan House and immediately entered the practice room specially for Shangguan Laner to cultivate. They began to prepare to start concocting pills. Seeing Lin Yi take out the divine armament cauldron, Ning Xuefei's eyes suddenly lit up, and she said in surprise, "Lin Yi, your alchemy furnace seems to be a little different from others." Although she was not an alchemist, she had seen others concoct pills before. However, she had never seen such a strange part like a tablet on someone else's alchemy furnace. Of course, she didn't know that it was a tablet. Lin Yi smiled and said, "The divine armament cauldron can automatically concoct pills. It's the only one in the world and you can't see it anywhere else." After searching for the formula for the foundation building pill and putting the elixirs in, the tablet said, "Please wait a moment. Jing is calculating the time and temperature curve for Lin Yi, and will automatically generate the alchemy script." "Wow, that's amazing." Ning Xuefei's eyes turned into little stars. Her admiration for her best friend, Han Jingjing, was like a surging river. She was even more confident about the automatic casting mechanism that Han Jingjing was now developing. However, Shanghai Laner asked in surprise, "Little junior brother, who is Jing? Is she the name of your alchemy furnace?" "No, she's my girlfriend in the secular world," Lin Yi said with a warm smile. It wasn't just Han Jingjing. All the important women around him made him feel warmth from the bottom of his heart, and he was reluctant to part with them. "Junior brother, it turns out that you have a girlfriend. You never told me about it." Shangguan Laner's eyes flashed and then she asked, "Is she still in the secular world?" Lin Yi shook his head and sighed. "No, she also came to the Heaven Stage Island, but she was not transmitted to the North Island. I don't know which island and which sect she is in now." Since the last time he accidentally met Tian Chan on the extreme North Island, Lin Yi had been worried about this problem. Even Tian Chan had encountered such a big trouble. With Han Jingjing's strength, it should be more difficult for her to adapt to the complicated environment of the Heaven Stage Island than Tian Chan. He didn't know how she was now. Fei Fei can help you. She is the real princess of the West Island. She may not know other places, but if your girlfriend happens to be in the West Island, she will be able to find it. Fei Fei, am I right?" Shanghai Laner suggested. When Lin Yi heard this, he suddenly had hope. He turned his head and looked at Ning Xuefei expectantly. Han Jingjing was a woman. According to the situation that most of the female cultivators on the Heaven Stage Island were concentrated in the West Island, the possibility of her being transmitted to the West Island was at least more than 60%. "Okay, I'll ask someone when I go back," Ning Xuefei promised vaguely. She did not directly tell them about Han Jingjing's current situation. She wanted to give them a big surprise. Chapter 4072. The whereabouts of Han Jingjing, Rock Candy, Sydney, Tian Chan, Song Lingrui, Wang Xinyan, and the others were a big concern for him. Even if he couldn't meet them for the time being, if he could know their whereabouts and current situation, he could be relieved. As for the others, Lin Yi originally wanted to let Ning Xuefei inquire about them, but then he thought it was not good to inquire so much, and Ning Xuefei must have sent someone to inquire about them. It would not be good if they were targeted by someone with ulterior motives. Why are you calling me Miss Ning again? Didn't I say that I am the same as little Lan Er? You should call me little senior sister Fei Fei. Ning Xuefei said angrily. Well, okay, little senior sister Fei Fei. Lin Yi quickly surrendered. That's more like it, hee hee. Ning Xuefei stuck out her tongue proudly. Back to business, Lin Yi immediately began to refine the foundation establishment pill. To be on the safe side, he did not put all 10 sets of materials in it, but divided them into 2 batches. The Divine Armament Cauldron also had a maximum tolerance limit. With the previous experience of alchemy, Lin Yi had long been familiar with this. There was no unexpected situation in the process of alchemy this time. In addition to the time taken a little longer than usual, the only thing that surprised Lin Yi was the last out of the furnace. Although there were only 10 sets of materials, the 2 furnaces added up to a total of 14 foundation establishment pills, each of which was of the best quality. This result really shocked Lin Yi himself, not to mention Ning Xuefei and Shengguan Laner. At this moment they looked at Lin Yi as if they were looking at a monster. Their watery eyes were full of admiration. Lin Yi was a little embarrassed by their gazes. He shrugged and said, the main thing is that the materials are good and the quality is rare. It's normal to have these more. Shengguan Laner had no concept of these things, but Ning Xuefei was imperceptibly influenced and had a good understanding of alchemy. When she heard this, she was surprised and said, normal? 2 furnaces refined a total of 14 best quality foundation establishment pills. Was this still considered normal? Lin Yi, you're too humble. Even the pill god Zhang Liju wouldn't be able to do that, right? Little senior sister Fei Fei is too kind. I'm just a newcomer. How can I be compared to Master Zhang? Lin Yi smiled faintly and waved his hand. His current level of alchemy was all thanks to this cheap master of his that he had never met before. According to the agreement, the refined foundation building pills were divided among the 3 of them. Ning Xuefei took 6 pills, and 3 of them were for her good friend. Shanghai Laner took 3 and left the remaining 5 for Lin Yi. I only need 3. You can have the other 2. Lin Yi refused. He knew that the 2 girls didn't like to train. If they wanted to increase their strength, they could only rely on elixirs. Taking 1 more foundation building pill would increase their strength, and it wasn't a bad thing for the 2 girls. After all, even if they had a strong background, there would always be times when they had to rely on themselves. Just like when Shanghai Laner was kidnapped. However, Shengguan Lan shook her head repeatedly and said, I don't need so much. I don't need to be too strong. If I improve too quickly, I won't be able to protect myself. If I increase too fast, Grandpa will suspect me. I don't want him to know about our secret. Ning Xuefei said matter-of-factly, you made these. It's all your work to be able to produce so many foundation-building pills. The extra 2 should have been yours. Although she said that, Lin Yi still felt guilty and said, otherwise give these 2 to your friend. Just give these 2 to your friend. If I'm not wrong, these elixir ingredients were prepared by him, right? This was not difficult to infer. Ning Xuefei was a blacksmith, not an alchemist. Normally, even if she knew about the existence of foundation-building pills, she wouldn't specially prepare so many foundation-building pills. This was not something that could be bought casually. She definitely doesn't want it. I'll make the decision for her and give it to you. Don't be so wishy-washy and pushy. Ning Xuefei decided. Lin Yi couldn't help but feel strange. Foundation-building pills were rare elixirs that could only be found by luck. How good was the relationship between Ning Xuefei and her friend, for her to make the decision for him? But thinking about it, they should be super close friends who were like sisters. Since it had come to this, Lin Yi couldn't refuse anymore. He could only choose to accept it. He owed her a favor and could only think of a way to make it up to her in the future. At this time, Shanghai Laner suddenly suggested excitedly, since it has been distributed, then let's take it together now? And this is a good idea. Let's refine elixirs together and break through together. Ning Xuefei raised both of her hands in agreement. Foundation building pills didn't have any side effects. It didn't matter where it was taken. Lin Yi didn't need to dampen their spirits on this kind of thing, so he nodded and said, okay, I have no problem. The three of them immediately began to adjust their state. They took the newly refined foundation building pills one after another and focused on breaking through to a higher realm. Every peak of the foundation building realm was a threshold that was extremely difficult to cross. Last time on the extreme North Island, Lin Yi didn't need the help of elixirs and directly broke through to the middle stage of the foundation building realm. But if he wanted to break through to the peak of the middle stage of the foundation building realm now, the difficulty increased not by 1 or 2 times, but by 10 times, 20 times, or even 30 times. However, for this attempt to break through, Lin Yi was still full of confidence, because he now had a total of 5 foundation building pills in his hands. Looking at the whole Heaven Stage Island, even a young master with a deep background didn't have such an exaggerated capital. In a spurt of energy, he took 4 foundation building pills in succession, leaving only the last one as a reserve. This attempt to break through could be said to be a real big deal for Lin Yi. Time passed slowly, and when Lin Yi opened his eyes again, a whole day and night had passed. In his eyes, a frightening light flashed and disappeared, and his vigorous and majestic aura was slowly withdrawn. In just a day, Lin Yi gave people the feeling that he had been reborn. Previously, when he was at the peak of the middle stage of the foundation building realm, Lin Yi's aura was strong and sharp, like a sharp sword being unsheathed. Now, his aura had become more vigorous and majestic, but it was no longer so aggressive. It had become a lot more reserved and deep, like a sharp sword being sheathed. Even if there was only a trace of sharpness left, it was still enough to shock people. The feeling of the peak of the late stage of the foundation building realm is not bad. Lin Yi slowly exhaled with satisfaction. Chapter 4073. This kind of thing, if spread out, could shock a large number of people's jaws. No matter how high the talent potential was, even with the help of the best elixirs, the cultivation road could only go up step by step. Upgrading 2 levels in a row was not unique, but it was also rare in the world. Lin Yi's heaven-defying performance, which no one knew about, could be summed up. Other than the powerful effects of the 4 supreme-grade foundation building pills, the most important factor was his hard work in his daily training. Only by accumulating strength could one become a true king. Feeling the almost qualitative change of the full true qi around him, Lin Yi even couldn't help but feel that with his current strength, if he faced a master like Zheng Tianjie again, he should have the strength to fight head-on. Zheng Tianjie was a master of Gold Core stage. Even if he was only in the early stage of Gold Core, he was completely superior to all the masters of Foundation Establishment stage. Foundation Establishment and Gold Core were 2 completely different concepts. According to the common understanding of the world, even the strongest Foundation Establishment peak, it was impossible to be a direct opponent of Gold Core stage, even if this person was an alchemist. Between the Heaven Stage peak and the early stage of Foundation Establishment, there might be a gap in strength. After all, from Heaven Stage to Foundation Establishment, there was a threshold of change. If one was not adapted, it was possible to be defeated. But Gold Core was different. However, Lin Yi didn't have such a feeling at all. If he hadn't fought with a master of Gold Core stage, it would have been fine. But now he really felt that with his current strength, he would not lose to Zheng Tianjie in a head-on battle. In front of the Foundation Establishment stage, whether Gold Core stage was really an invincible legend, Lin Yi had a strong hunch that maybe he would be able to personally verify it soon. After Lin Yi, Shengguan Laner and Ning Xuefei also completed their breakthroughs. Shanghai Laner had broken through to the middle stage of Foundation Establishment long ago with the help of Foundation Building Pill and the personal guidance of Shanghai Tianhua. Now she was promoted again. She became a master of the peak middle stage of Foundation Establishment. As for Ning Xuefei, although the Princess of West Island also doesn't like to cultivate, her strength progress is no less than that of Shengguan Laner. Now she is also at the peak of the middle stage of Foundation Establishment. From refining pills to breaking through, the 3 of them stayed in the room for an entire day and night, not taking a single step out of the room. When they finally opened the door and walked out, the 5 core disciples of Soaring Sky Pavilion, who were ordered to protect the 2 young ladies, looked at Lin Yi with a different expression. 1 against 2. And 2 princesses at that. This brat was too awesome. To be able to pick up girls to this extent, even if he didn't do anything else in this life, his future would still be limitless. Shanghai Laner and Ning Xuefei didn't notice the strange look in everyone's eyes. Only Lin Yi grinned awkwardly. He seemed to have done something that made these people's imagination run wild. As his strength increased, in Lin Yi's eyes, the originally unfathomable masters of Gold Core stage are no longer so unreachable. These masters also have emotions and they also have a burning heart for gossip. He can only hope that they don't spread this matter, otherwise Lin Yi will be pushed to the teeth of the storm again. With nothing to do, after Linny went out, he took the two girls to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, wanting to see the news of the life mushroom. However, as soon as he walked through the door of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, the familiar figure inside made Lin Yi's footsteps stop, and then he said happily, "Elder Hong, when did you come back?" Seeing Lin Yi, Hong Zhong also looked happy. He quickly greeted him and looked him up and down. He said in amazement, "Young hero Lin, it's been a long time, you have been reborn again. This speed of improvement of your strength has truly broadened this old man's horizons. Congratulations. Grandpa Hong, you only saw junior brother but didn't you see us?" Shanghai Laner came up behind him and said with a smile. "Haha little Lan, no matter who I miss, I can't miss you little girl." Hong Zhong said with a smile. Then he turned to look at Ning Xuefei and saluted, "You must be Miss Ning of West Island. I've heard a lot about you. Come on, please come upstairs." "Just call me Fei Fei, Grandpa Hong," Ning Xuefei said with a sweet smile. After inviting the three of them to the private room upstairs, Hong Zhong immediately asked people to set up a banquet. After exchanging greetings and catching up with each other, he personally apologized to Ning Xuefei and Shanghai Laner on behalf of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. But the two women didn't care about it at all. Even if they held a grudge, they would settle it with Si Haishao, not with the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Then Hong Zhong told Lin Yi the reason why he came back to the North Island this time. "To tell you the truth, I came back to the North Island on my own initiative. Si Haishao made such a big scandal, so I had to come back to clean up the mess. Now I'm the vice president and also the manager of the North Island branch." Lin Yi was slightly stunned when he heard this, and then he wondered, "Elder Hong, with your connections in the North Island, you are indeed the best candidate to clean up the mess, but why does it sound like a demotion to be the manager of the branch?" Normally, if Hong Zhong really came here to clean up the mess, he only needed to say a few good words, and he didn't need to be the manager of the branch at all. It wasn't good for him, the vice president, to stay in the North Island for a long time and be far away from the power core of the headquarters in Middle Island. Intuition told Lin Yi that Hong Zhong didn't have a good time in Middle Island these days. As expected, Hong Zhong sighed and said, "Young Master Lin, you don't know. Although I was promoted to the vice president because of my merit, and I'm also one of the top executives in the headquarters of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, I've been operating in the North Island for a long time, so I don't have a deep foundation in the headquarters. So, when I went to Middle Island recently, I was pushed aside by a group of people led by the executive vice president." Lin Yi's eyelids twitched slightly. This situation really caught him off guard. A powerful dragon couldn't suppress a snake in its old haunts, not to mention that the other party's position and power were above Hong Zhong's. He was a real local dragon. Hong Zhong took a sip of wine and continued, "I have an empty position but no real power, so I can't do anything at all. They've already made me a mere figurehead. If I continue to stay here, I'm afraid I'll completely become an idler. So I can only take this opportunity to go back to the North Island first, so at least I can be a little more independent." It seems that the Hong Chamber of Commerce is also a Jianghu. Lin Yi sighed and then comforted him, "It's okay, we'll do it step by step. Elder Hong, tell me in detail when you have time and I'll see if I can help." Chapter 4074. Cheers. Shanghai Laner and Ning Xuefei answered cheerfully. Lin Yi also raised his glass and put Hong Zhong's matter aside for the time being. Hong Zhong was his ally. The better Hong Zhong did, the more help he would be to him in the future. But for now, even Hong Zhong himself didn't know how to get out of the predicament. Lin Yi was only an honorary vice president and half an outsider to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, so he couldn't help much at the moment. There was still plenty of time. However, it wasn't a bad thing for Lin Yi that Hong Zhong came back to the North Island now. He was a reliable person, and it would be much easier for him to get some rare treasures from the Hong Chamber of Commerce. After the meal, Lin Yi asked, "Mr. Hong, I need a spiritual medicine called Appearance Mushroom. I've booked it here before. Do you have any news?" "Young Master Lin, I'll ask someone to check it out." After a while, Hong Zhong, who got the report, shook his head and said, "There's no news yet. I've used Appearance Mushroom before, so I know a little about it. It's not only rare, but it will wither quickly after being picked. So, very few trial takers will go to collect Appearance Mushroom. Even if they book it in advance, it's hard to get it in a short time." "I see. Then we can only wait." Lin Yi couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. "Young Master Lin, don't worry. I'll ask someone to increase the reward. It won't take long." Hong Zhong comforted him with a smile. Those who take the task to collect spiritual medicine are gone for many days, so it's normal to have no news for a while. Few people will go there just for Appearance Mushroom because it's a waste of energy and cost, and it can't be sold at a high price. But with a high reward there must be brave people. As long as I raise the reward, someone will be interested. At least when they go to collect medicine, they'll pay more attention to appearance mushroom. And the probability of finding it will be higher. Hearing this, Linny suddenly had a thought. He said, "Where exactly are the people that old Hong mentioned gathering herbs? Could it be the back mountains of the 3 pavilions? Can I go there personally?" Linny didn't know how long the king of junk could drag on, but it was better to get these supplementary materials as soon as possible. Rather than relying on others, it was better to rely on oneself. This had always been Lin Yi's style. This old man has forgotten. Young hero Lin, although you are still a newcomer to the welcoming pavilion in terms of strength, you are much stronger than me. He has long surpassed most of the disciples of the 3 pavilions. When Hong Zhong heard this, he was stunned for a moment. Then he reacted and explained, "The place to pick the herbs is not in the back mountain. That is the private territory of the 3 great pavilions. Only disciples of the 3 great pavilions with permission can enter. Normally it is not open to the public. Furthermore, many rare herbs and resources, even if they are found, will be handed over to the 3 great pavilions and are not allowed to flow out." Linny thought it made sense. Just like the newcomer's trial, the herbs collected in the process would eventually be handed over to the back mountain hall. They were not allowed to take them out privately. If it is not the back mountain, then where is it? Linny continued to ask. The back mountain is rich in resources. But the back mountain is not the only place in the North Island where you can collect herbs. You can go to other places. However, young hero Lin, if you really want to go in person, you need to register an account in the North Island Cultivators Guild. Hong Zhong suggested. The North Island Cultivators Guild? It was the first time that Linny had heard of this name since he came to the Heaven Stage Island for half a year. Hong Zhong nodded and said, "Yes, this is a guild that theoretically covers all the cultivators in the North Island. With the 3 pavilions as the leaders, other forces and grassroots rogue cultivators will also register and gather in the North Island Cultivators Guild. It will issue all kinds of reward trial tasks every day. Only the cultivators who have registered with it can accept the task and get the reward." "So I can also go?" Lin Yi's eyes lit up. Of course, the disciples of the 3 pavilions are the mainstream group there. Young hero Lin, you must know that the newcomers of the Welcome Pavilion will become the official outer disciples of the 3 pavilions after 1 year. Unless they become the core disciples of the Gold Core stage or apprentice to the elders of the 3 pavilions, the cultivation resources are still very limited. If they want to improve quickly, they have to rely on themselves and constantly do trial tasks to get paid, Hong Zhong explained in detail. "But I heard people say that the 3 pavilions give out missions themselves?" Linny was confused. "That's right, but the missions issued by the 3 pavilions are generally high-risk and high-reward missions. Although they're specially prepared for the disciples of the 3 pavilions, ordinary outer disciples can't do them if they're not strong enough. In contrast, the missions issued by the Cultivators Guild in the North Island every day are much easier. It's a way for most of the outer disciples of the 3 pavilions to increase their experience and also a shortcut to earn spiritual jades. For example, young Master Lin, the heart-devouring exquisite grass you asked me to buy was obtained from the bounty mission over there," Hong Zhong revealed. Lin Yi's interest was piqued. He asked eagerly, "Elder Hong, are there any requirements for registering at the Cultivators Guild?" "There are no thresholds. As long as your strength is above the foundation establishment stage, it's okay. Your Welcome Pavilion generally doesn't encourage newcomers to go there to take trial tasks, so they won't tell you at all. But with your strength it's a different story." Hong Zhong smiled lightly. "Okay, then I'll try." Linny immediately made up his mind. Before his voice died away, Shanghai Laner and Ning Xuefei suddenly said in unison, "Great, we want to go with you." Lin Yi's face suddenly darkened, but before he could object, Hong Zhong had already spoken for him. "No, that place is extremely dangerous. If you two go, not only will you not be able to help young Master Lin, but you will also get into trouble. It's only been a few days, have you forgotten Si Haishao? Grandpa Hong, we may not necessarily meet that old bastard," Shanghai Laner said weakly. Hong Zhong shook his head helplessly. "What I mean is, there are more than 1 or 2 scumbags like him in the cultivation world. Beautiful female cultivators like you too, no matter where you go, you will be the focus of attention and it's easy to get into trouble. The trial site is completely out of the control of the 3 pavilions and the West Island. If anything happens, it's too late to save you." Chapter 4075. Young Master Lin, you have to be careful. It's a mess over there, and it's not like the 3 pavilions where there are all kinds of restrictions. It's not uncommon for people to kill each other without saying a word. Even if your strength is good now, you have to be careful. Hong Zhong specially reminded him. Don't worry, Elder Hong. I understand. Lin nodded. In order to get the mutual life mushroom as soon as possible, he had to go this time. If he delayed it for too long, God knew if he would fail this time. And during this time, Lin Yi also clearly felt that his life in Welcome Pavilion was a bit too comfortable. After Su Lingchong disappeared, the remaining people like Kang Mingming and Meng Tong were no longer his opponents. They didn't pose any challenge to him. This kind of environment was actually not a good thing for cultivation. Even if it was to improve his strength, Lin Yi had to go out to gain experience and look for further opportunities. This time it was not only to find the mutual life mushroom, but also Lin Yi had another more important purpose, which was to look for opportunities to break through to the peak of Foundation Establishment realm, so that he could get ready to break through to the Elixir realm as soon as possible. Actually, the only thing I'm a little worried about now is how to explain to Welcome Pavilion. Lin Yi frowned and said. This time he would definitely be out for a long time. If he didn't have a suitable reason, Welcome Pavilion might make trouble. After all, he was now nominally the reception deacon of West Island. If he left Ning Xuefei behind and went to do a task, it would be a serious dereliction of duty. It's okay, junior brother, just go. Feifei and I can help you. Just say that you went to buy things for us, hee. Shengwan Laner giggled. Buy things? What kind of weird reason was that? Lin Yi nodded with a bitter smile. Since Shanghai Laner had already said so, even if others wanted to take the opportunity to cause trouble, they couldn't refute. Elder Hong, do you know where the mutual life mushroom can be found? Lin Yi asked. Hu Kai Mount Tianwu. This is the place with the highest probability of finding the life phase mushroom. The life appearance mushrooms usually grow in cold and damp places with no light. So, young hero Lin, after you get there, you can try your luck at a few of the streams. You should be able to reap some rewards, Hong Zhong suggested to Lin Yi based on the information he knew. Few I'll remember Mount Tianwu. However, where is this mountain located? Lin Yi asked. This mountain is also considered a famous mountain. Its fame is no less than the back mountain of the three great pavilions. Its location is between the North Island and the Middle Island. Hong Zhong said with a smile. Ah, between North Island and Central Island? Could it be that the two islands are connected? Lin Yi was shocked. Not bad. Young hero Lin, you can't be thinking that the North Island and the Middle Island are separated by the sea, right? Hong Zhong asked curiously. Yes. Lin Yi scratched his head awkwardly. Ever since he came to Heaven Stage Island, he had always heard people talking about the 5 main islands of Heaven Stage. Moreover, it was very difficult to travel between the North Island and the Middle Island. Naturally, he thought that the 5 main islands of Heaven Stage were isolated from each other. Hong Zhong couldn't help but smile and said, actually, according to young hero Lin's understanding, it's not wrong. Although the North Island and the Middle Island are connected by a long and narrow mountain range, just like the back mountain of the three great pavilions, this mountain range is occupied by all kinds of powerful spirit beasts. Moreover, it is often affected by natural disasters such as hurricanes. The danger level was much higher than the depths of the back mountain. Therefore, even powerful cultivators would rarely cross the two islands on foot. If they travel between the two islands, they usually use flying spirit beasts or treasured ships. Treasured ships? Lin Yi was slightly stunned. Another new thing that he had never heard of. There are sea beasts wreaking havoc in the sea. Coupled with the threat of natural disasters, it's even more dangerous than traveling by land. No matter how good the sailing technology is, it's impossible for ordinary ships to travel between the two islands. Only treasured ships can do it. Hong Zhong paused and explained, treasured ships are left behind by ancient craftsmen. Not only is the body of the ship far stronger and more reliable than ordinary ships, the key point is that there is a powerful formation on the ship that can resist super strong attacks and natural disasters. Moreover, it has a confusing effect on most sea beasts. Even if it passes over their heads, it won't be discovered. That's really a wonderful work of art. Lin Yi was amazed. Unfortunately, the Tao of equipment forging has declined for many years now, and it's difficult to even see an ordinary equipment forging master, let alone a grandmaster equipment forging master. The extraordinary ancient art of forging treasured ships has been lost since a long time ago, and there's one less treasured ship that's destroyed. Now, it has already become a symbol to measure the strength of the various merchant groups, and the stronger the merchant group, the more treasured ships under its command. Hong Zhong sighed with emotion. What do you mean by that? Lin Yi couldn't help but feel strange. Even if the number of treasured ships was rare, it didn't have to be directly related to the strength of the merchant association. Every merchant association had its own strengths. For example, the Five Elements Commerce under the Middle Island Pill Hall had always been in the business of elixirs and didn't dabble in other businesses, but it was still recognized as the #1 merchant association. Young hero Lin, you don't know that the transportation of goods between the Heaven Stage Islands usually goes by water, and the only way to do that is to rely on treasured ships. So, treasured ships determine the most important transportation capacity of the merchant association. It's the lifeline that the big merchant associations rely on to survive. Hong Zhong said seriously, it's not that we can't take the other routes, but the flying spirit beasts in the sky can only carry 2 little goods each time. The transportation capacity is not on the same level as that of treasured ships. I see. Lin Yi finally understood. As for the mountain range, of course it's not that we can't take it, but there are too many uncertain factors and the risk is too high. It's hard to control. Moreover, the mountain road is rugged. Unless we take it often or have some special needs, the price is too high. Normally, no one is willing to try it, Hong Zhong said. Indeed. Big merchant associations prioritize stability and reliability. The land route is so risky. If we pin our hopes on it, it'll ruin our reputation if there's an accident that leads to a shortage of goods. Lin Yi nodded in agreement. Last time, the Hong Merchant Association was jointly targeted by several other merchant associations. In fact, it was because they used the shortage of goods to make a fuss. At the level of a top merchant association, their advance and retreat depended on the market's reputation. If they were careless, they might lose everything. That's right. With young hero Lin's comprehension and insight, it'll be a loss if you don't do business. Hong Zhong chuckled and then said, I brought this up because I want to tell you that I have friends in the Middle Island. If young hero Lin accidentally goes to the Middle Island, you can look for Assistant Manager Kai of the Five Elements Commerce under the Middle Island Pill Hall. Chapter 4076. Even if Five Elements Commerce didn't join hands with other chambers of commerce last time, it was obvious that they were competing with each other. The top management of the 2 chambers of commerce were just friendly on the surface, but it was hard to say that they were friends. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised, this is a private friendship. When I was young, I participated in a few trial missions with him. He's a reliable person. Young hero Lin, if you have any problems, you can go to him. I'm just giving you a heads up. Young hero Lin, it's unlikely that you'll go to Middle Island for the time being, so you might not need him, Hong Zhong said with a smile. Whether I need to use him or not, I'll keep your kindness in mind. Lin Yi nodded gratefully. Coming out of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Lin Yi sent Shanghai Laner and Ning Xuefei back to Hualan residence. He went back to the welcoming pavilion to inform senior brother Ku and the others, and then went to the King of Jianghu's secret casting base. He didn't know how long he would be gone this time, so he should at least inform him in advance. However, as soon as he walked into the cave, Lin Yi was shocked by the King of Jianghu's miserable appearance. He was covered with bruises all over his body, and the white gauze was still stained with blood. Brother Wang, what's wrong with you? Lin Yi asked quickly. The King of Jianghu smiled indifferently and waved his hand. I'm fine. I was accidentally sneaked in 2 days ago. It's okay to get some minor injuries. I'm used to it. Was it Kong Ming and his men? Lin Yi guessed correctly. The King of Jianghu had protected this secret base very well, and no one had ever known about it for so many years. It was only because he was careless last time and was followed by Kong Ming and his men that people knew about this secret casting base. I'm really fine. When I used to cast weapons, I was often burned by fire and exploded many times. But that Kong Ming you mentioned, his moves are a bit strange. I've never seen anyone use alchemy fire as a fighting move. It's quite powerful, but it's okay. I'll be fine after a few days of rest. The King of Jianghu laughed carelessly. That move should have been a pill flame bomb. It's all my fault for causing you to be injured. I'm truly sorry. Lin Yi said apologetically. He had been playing around with Laner and Ning Xuefei these days and didn't pay attention to the King of Rags. He didn't expect that such a thing would happen. He was too careless. After saying that, Lin Yi went behind the tattered king and placed his palm on his back, using his mental cultivation method to heal him. Brother Lin, what are you doing? Feeling the warm genuine chi from Lin Yi's palm, the King of Rags was shocked. While feeling comfortable, he found that the wounds all over his body began to itch, which was a sign of self-healing. After a while, Lin Yi slowly withdrew his true chi and said, Brother Wang, how do you feel now? It was much better than before. My wounds don't hurt at all. Brother Lin, what kind of technique is this? It's too amazing. The tattered king stretched his arms and legs and said in surprise. based on his past experience. This kind of injury would hurt for at least another month. He didn't expect it to be completely healed by Lin Yi's treatment. It was unbelievable. Lin Yi chuckled and said, "It's just a small trick. Brother Wang, if you get injured again in the future, just let me know. It's just a small injury." That's good, that's good. There's no weapon that doesn't get injured. I won't be polite to you in the future. The King of Rags scratched his head and laughed. Right, I came here this time to tell you, Brother Wang, that I'm going out to look for the life-growing mushroom. As for when I'll be back, I can't say for sure. So, I'll have to trouble you to keep an eye on this place, Brother Wang, Lin Yi said. Yes, the life-growing mushroom is hard to find. I'll have to trouble you to make a trip. The King of Rags nodded and then suddenly said, By the way, Brother Lin, are you going to hide your identity this time? Of course. The North Island Cultivators Guild is a complicated place. I can't go there as a newcomer in the Welcome Pavilion. It'll be too eye-catching. Lin Yi nodded. In that case, Brother Lin, you can't use your original Thousand Silk mask anymore. After all, many people know about it. Even if you wear it, it's hard to guarantee that it won't be discovered. Let me modify it for you. King of Junk suggested. Modify the Thousand Silk mask? Lin Yi was a little stunned. He remembered that the King of Rags mentioned that he could also make this kind of mask. That's right. Although it takes a lot of effort to make this thing, it's easy to modify it and change its appearance. The King of Rags took Lin Yi's Thousand Silk mask and asked casually, Brother Lin, what do you want to look like? Lin Yi thought about it. If that's the case, then I'll have to trouble you, Wang bro, to make me look like a rugged warrior. In Jianghu, in addition to powerful strength, appearance was also a very useful weapon. For example, a martial artist with a rough appearance, because of the first impression, people would think that he was not intelligent and simple-minded, so he was more likely to be trusted. Of course, it was also easier for people with ulterior motives to look down on him, so he could pretend to be weak to eat the tiger. In a short while, the Thousand Silk mask in the hands of the King of Rags had completely changed into a new look. Just as Lin Yi requested, it looked rough and domineering. From a distance, it looked like a standard martial artist. But if you looked closely, you would find that it was rare to see a martial artist. Brother Wang, your craftsmanship is really amazing. I think it's more than enough to be a professional painter. Lin Yi praised from the bottom of his heart. With a few simple sketches, he could make such a full and vivid appearance. It was really a magic skill. The King of Junk chuckled proudly and said, As a blacksmith, the key to designing a casting plan lies in the drawing. The accuracy of the drawing directly determines the success rate. Don't think that I've never forged anything decent before, but my basic skills aren't bad at all. Besides, I like drawing for fun when I have nothing to do. I've made a fool out of myself, Brother Lin. Lin Yi gave the guy a thumbs up. Putting everything else aside, the King of Garbage's talent and craftsmanship alone was a rare prodigy. The next day, Lin Yi set out early in the morning. He put on the brand new Thousand Silk mask and went to the Cultivators Guild in the north according to Hong Zhong's guidance. It was not far from the 3 pavilions. It was less than 5 kilometers away from the 3 pavilions. Although it was still early, the lobby of the Cultivators Guild was already full of people. Chapter 4077. At a glance, more than 50% of the people in the crowd were dressed like disciples of the 3 pavilions. Most of them were outer sect disciples. Apart from them, there were some grassroots itinerant cultivators from the cultivator tribes. There were also some merchants' own trial teams. For a large chamber of commerce like the Hong Chamber of Commerce, if they lacked something, they would usually offer a reward to buy it. However, this method was not suitable for small merchants. They usually recruited some people to form a trial team. In addition to collecting for themselves, they could also earn spiritual jades through reward tasks. It was a small cost and they could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. However, this method had a lot of uncertainty, and the supply was often not enough. Therefore, they were destined to be small chambers of commerce. Passing through the noisy hall that was like a market, Lin Yi went straight to a room on the side. There was a sign here that indicated it was a special registration point. In fact, if Lin Yi came here specifically for the Mutual Life Mushroom, he did not have to come to the North Island Cultivators Guild. He could find a way to go directly to Mount Hutsai Tianwu. However, Lin Yi finally decided to listen to Hong Zhong's advice and register here. Because as long as he accepted a task here, he could directly get the corresponding information from the Cultivators Guild, including the route map and all kinds of things to pay attention to. It could save him a lot of tedious preparation work, which was what Lin Yi really needed. The registration process was not complicated. After Lin Yi showed his cultivation of the foundation building stage, he quickly passed the test and got a membership card of the Cultivators Guild. Of course it was not free. It cost 100 spiritual jades. Just like the spiritual jade card, after instilling the user's signature true chi, he could rely on a special microformation to identify and verify his identity. It was also a special technological product on the Heaven Stage Island. Its reliability and security were much better than the similar products on Earth. 100 spiritual jades was not expensive. This membership card was not only the identity symbol for Lin Yi to join the Cultivators Guild of the North Island, but also the reward for completing tasks in the future. Like the spiritual jade card, it could be used at the major chambers of commerce under the jurisdiction of the Merchant Union. And with Lin Yi's current appearance, his name showed on the membership card was Lin Yi. After completing the membership, the next thing Lin Yi had to do was naturally to accept the mission. The North Island Cultivators Guild divided the tasks into two areas, one for the Golden Core Stage and the other for the Foundation Establishment Stage. Gold Core Stage members had private rooms, and missions were all completed in the private rooms. However, many Gold Core Stage missions were issued by the three Great Pavilions, and most of them were received by the disciples of the three Great Pavilions. Very few people would come here to receive missions, except for a few powerful rogue cultivators. As for the Foundation Establishment Stage mission area, it was the lobby that Lin Yi had just passed through. The situation was the complete opposite of the Gold Core Stage. It was bustling with activity and overcrowded. All the tasks would be written on the task board and hung on the big blackboard in the middle. After the mission was completed, it would be cancelled. Those that had been accepted but not yet completed would have a tick on the mission board, indicating that it was still in progress. However, other than the various bounty missions, Lin Yi noticed that there was also a blackboard next to it. From top to bottom it was filled with names. It was also the focus of everyone's discussion. List of North Island experts? Looking at the dark gold characters at the top, Lin Yi couldn't help but be slightly surprised. This list was really big. The North Island Cultivators Guild claimed to include all the cultivators in the North Island. Could it be that those mysterious super experts were all on this list? Lin Yi thought that if this was the case, then he really had to take a good look and even write it down carefully. At least when he had a conflict with others in the future, he would have a plan in mind. However, at the first glance full of expectations, Lin Yi immediately rejected this possibility. The reason was very simple. Many of the high-level big shots of the three great pavilions did not appear on this list, and there was no Ram Jia, not even the head of the sky-reaching pavilion, Shanghai Tianhua. If it was said that Shangguan Tianhua was not the #1 master of the North Island, that would not be surprising. But if it was said that Shangguan Tianhua could not even make it into this so-called North Island master ranking, that would be too ridiculous. Looking carefully at the description of the list next to it, Lin Yi realized that the so-called North Island experts list was actually just a gimmick. Strictly speaking, this list could only be regarded as a list of task contribution points, not a list of strength. Moreover, this list was limited to those in the Foundation Establishment realm, and experts above the Elixir realm were not included in this list. In the North Island Cultivators Guild, every time you completed a bounty mission in addition to the reward, you would also get a corresponding point called task contribution points. The more bounty missions you completed, the more points you had, and the higher your ranking was. If that's the case, then this ranking isn't completely worthless. Lin Yi said thoughtfully as he rubbed his chin. Although it was ranked by task contribution points instead of a more intuitive assessment of strength, in the North Island Cultivators Guild, which mainly focused on bounty missions, the mission completion rate could reflect strength to a large extent. At least in the Foundation Establishment realm, it was relatively reliable. At this time, the staff of the Cultivators Guild updated the list. The first place was still the same name, but the string of contribution points behind it had skyrocketed. Wow, Senior Brother Su Zhaohe is so awesome. I haven't been here for only a few days, but the contribution points have increased so much again. It has exceeded 100,000. This is too exaggerated and too powerful. A person dressed as a disciple of the sky-reaching pavilion exclaimed, unable to hide the admiration and awe in his tone. Yes, the second place now only has more than 60,000. This gap is too big and there is no suspense at all. In the entire history of the North Island Cultivators Guild, there are only a few who can surpass 100,000. The people around him also sighed. At this time one of them boasted, what do you guys know? Senior Brother Su is a rare genius in the North Island in 1,000 years. He's not even 30, and he's already in the Foundation Establishment realm. I heard that Senior Brother Su is already preparing for core formation. If this continues, he will definitely become a legend like the Elixir God Zhang Liju. If he's so strong, then why is he still doing missions? Isn't it better to save all the energy he used to do missions and try to core formation as soon as possible? Someone asked. Chapter 4078. If he's that powerful, then his future is limitless. Hearing the discussions and exclamations of the people around him, Lin Yi only glanced at the names on the leaderboard and shook his head. None of this had much to do with him, and he wasn't interested in it either. Turning his head to look at the mission leaderboard, Lin Yi began to search for missions related to Wuxia Tianwu Mountain. Only by doing so would he be able to obtain the corresponding map and information from the guild. After searching back and forth between the densely packed mission boards, Lin Yi finally found a mission that fit the requirements. Mission issuer is the Wealthy Guild. Mission location is Wuxia Tianwu Mountain and the surrounding mountains. Seeking to purchase 100 bitter fruit, 100 heartless phoenix eyebrows grass. Purchasing such a large amount of spiritual medicine was already considered a big mission in the mission area for the foundation establishment stage. If it was someone else, it would be very difficult to complete the mission alone. However, Lin Yi had the Skybolt pig. As long as he went to the right place, it would only take him a bit more time to collect the spiritual medicine, so it wasn't a problem. However, just as Lin Yi was about to accept the mission, he saw a member of the guild put an eye-catching tick on the mission board. A mission that was hard to come by was snatched away just like that. Lin Yi's face immediately darkened. He could only curse his bad luck and helplessly turn around to continue searching in the mission area. At this time he suddenly heard someone say, "Captain Junior Lee Cabello isn't here today. He was called to do a temporary mission at the Blue Cloud Pavilion. We're currently lacking one person. Should we find someone else to join us?" The person called Captain was a masked woman. She nodded in agreement and said, "That's a good idea. This time, there are so many spiritual medicines in Wuxia Tianwu Mountain. Just the three of us won't be enough." Hearing this, Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. He walked to the side of these people and purposely muttered to himself, "It's already so late, why isn't old Xiao here yet? I can't accept any missions by myself. I came here for nothing. This guy is really unreliable." As expected, when these people looked at each other just now, their gazes fell on Lin Yi. There was a sense of scrutiny in their gazes. Seeing that Lin Yi's appearance was rough and he was a typical martial artist, they immediately nodded in relief. The masked woman walked up to Lin Yi in 2 steps and said, "Fellow trial taker, I inadvertently overheard your words just now. Do you want to do the quest too?" When Lin Yi saw that she had taken the bait, he was overjoyed. He quickly nodded and said, "Yes, I originally discussed with my companion that we would go together, but this guy is always in trouble. It seems that he won't be able to come this time. He's having a headache." What a coincidence. Our team just so happened to receive a mission to gather spirit herbs at the Heaven Meridian Mountain, and we're also lacking a member. Would you like to join us? The masked woman immediately threw out an olive branch. Join your team? Lin Yi pretended to hesitate for a moment and then agreed, "That's good. Anyway, I have nothing to do by myself." That's what I was thinking. When he had been observing earlier, Lin Yi had already discovered that many people in the lobby did quests in groups. For example, the trial team in front of him was led by the leader. The others assisted and they worked together to complete the quests. In comparison, the trial takers who did quests alone. Although there were not many of them. After all, a high reward meant a high risk. The difficulty of the quests issued by the big chambers of commerce was not low. It was impossible for a person to complete them alone. At most, they could only complete some small, unpresentable quests. If one accepted a quest in a team, the contribution points after the quest was completed would belong to the team leader. As for the reward, it would be distributed among the team members. Every team had different ways of distributing the reward, some more, some less. For the weaker trial takers, joining a team was far more reliable than doing small quests alone. At least in terms of reward, it was far better than doing small quests alone. Seeing that Lin Yi readily agreed, the masked woman immediately became happy. "That's great. Let me introduce myself. I'm Huang Xiaotao, the leader of this trial team. My current strength is at the late stage of foundation establishment." After a pause, Huang Xiaotao immediately introduced the 2 people beside her. These 2 are junior brother Chen Muzhuan and junior brother Song Jima. They are both in the middle stage of foundation establishment. The 3 of us are disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion. So they were all from the same sect? Lin Yi secretly nodded, but he pretended to be bold on the surface. He cupped his hands and said to the 3 of them, "I'm Ling Yi. I'm a loose cultivator. Please take care of me." Under normal circumstances, when everyone introduced themselves, they would state their strength because this was the basic basis of cooperation. However, Lin Yi did not say it, and Huang Xiaotao and the other two did not pay much attention to it. They thought that Lin Yi's strength was not high and could not be compared to the three of them, so he was too embarrassed to say it. However, even if Lin Yi did not say it, they could at least be sure that this Ling Yi, whom they met for the first time, was definitely a foundation establishment expert. Otherwise, if he could not pass the test, he would not be able to become a member of the guild. In any case, this time, it was not a dangerous mission to deal with a powerful spirit beast. It was just to gather spiritual herbs. As long as they had a certain level of self-protection, it would not be a problem. Even if they were not strong, it was not bad to be a coolie. Lin Yi's participation would be very helpful to their team of three. The three of them exchanged greetings with Lin Yi for a while. Afterwards, they did not stay in the guild for long. They immediately left the guild under Huang Xiaotao's lead and prepared to set off. Holding the map and route provided by the guild, Lin Yi estimated his position and found that Wuxia Jianghu mountain was thousands of miles away. He could not help but ask doubtfully, "Leader Xiaotao, that Wuxia Jianghu mountain is so far away. How are the four of us going to get there? Wouldn't it take a lot of time to walk there?" Hearing this, the three of them smiled at each other and didn't reply. Huang Xiaotao walked to an empty space and whistled towards the sky. A moment later, a flying spirit beast whistled as it spiraled down and landed in front of the four of them. Seeing this, Lin Yi could not help but be surprised. In front of him was a large spirit bird with beautiful tail feathers. It had a gentle personality and was extremely fast. It was the best choice to become a flying spirit beast. If it was sold, it would probably be sold for a sky-high price. This Huang Xiaotao's wealth was not low. Even people like the Southern Sky Gate did not have their own flying spirit beast. However, Huang Xiaotao, as a disciple of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, had one. It could be seen that it was not without reason that Qin Muzhuan and the others were willing to rely on her. Of course, there was another possibility. That was, this large spirit bird was bought by Huang Xiaotao for a large sum of money to make it convenient for her to do bounty quests. Chapter 4079. I see. Lin Yi nodded. It made sense. The butterfly queen that Murong Zhen subdued was also a flying spiritual beast, but it was not suitable for long-distance riding. Compared with other flying spiritual beasts commonly used by the three pavilions and the Chamber of Commerce, this spiritual bird was not small. It was not crowded even after 4 people got on it, and it was very stable after taking off. They could even meditate and cultivate. After the spiritual bird took off, the 4 of them had nothing to do, so they chatted with each other to kill time and get to know each other better. After all, Lin Yi was a newcomer. The more they knew each other, the more familiar they would be with each other. After chatting for a while, Lin Yi suddenly said, "Captain Xiaotao, I have some doubts, but I don't know if I should ask. Of course, if it's not convenient, it's okay. I'm just curious. Since we're in the same team, we should be honest with each other. Brother Ling Yi, if you have any questions, just tell me. I'll tell you everything I know," Huang Xiaotao said enthusiastically. "Okay, then forgive me for being presumptuous. Captain Xiaotao, you just said that the 3 of you are disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion, but as far as I know, the 3 pavilions don't accept female disciples. Don't all female cultivators go to the West Island? Also, why does Captain Xiaotao need to cover her face?" Lin Yi asked curiously. In the Welcome Pavilion for more than half a year, except for Murong Zhen, he had never heard that there were female disciples in Blue Cloud Pavilion. As for why the other party covered her face, he had some guesses. This woman was either extremely beautiful like a fairy or extremely ugly. Anyway, no matter which one it was, it should be easy to get into trouble. Otherwise, if it was just an ordinary beauty, there was no need to cover her face deliberately. It was easy to arouse people's imagination and attract attention. This. Huang Xiaotao was slightly stunned. She didn't want to hide it, but she didn't know what to say at the moment. At this time, Song Jima immediately explained for her enthusiastically, "Brother Ling Yi, you may not know this, but Captain Xiaotao used to be an excellent disciple of Soaring Sky Pavilion. She came from the same cultivator tribe as the famous Su Zhaohe. Because of her outstanding strength and talent, she was valued by the higher-ups of Soaring Sky Pavilion. In addition, Su Zhaohe, a rare genius disciple, also said good things about her. So Captain Xiaotao made an exception and stayed behind instead of being sent to West Island." Soaring Sky Pavilion's disciple? Didn't Captain Xiaotao just say that you're all disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion? Lin Yi asked in astonishment. Huang Xiaotao's eyes dimmed, but she didn't say anything. Instead, Song Jima continued to speak on her behalf. If that incident hadn't happened, Captain Xiaotao would still be a disciple of the Soaring Pavilion with a bright future ahead of her. she wouldn't have been forced to come to our Blue Cloud Pavilion. Although that's how we got to know Captain Xiaotao, every time I think about that incident, I feel indignant on her behalf. That matter? Lin Yi frowned slightly. He had been rushed from the Soaring Pavilion to the Blue Cloud Pavilion. Why did this experience sound a little similar to Murong Zhen's? Brother Ling Yi, you should have heard people talking about how talented Su Xiaohe is, right? Actually, this guy looks dignified, but he's a hypocrite. Song Jima gnashed his teeth in indignation and said, not long after entering the Soaring Pavilion, he forced Captain Xiaotao to become his cultivation partner. Originally, everyone loves beauty. This isn't a big deal, but this bastard is unscrupulous in order to achieve his goal. In the end, Captain Xiaotao had no choice but to use her head to hit the wolf spikes. Only after she disfigured herself did that shameless bastard give up. After that, Captain Xiaotao was kicked out of the Soaring Sky Pavilion and entered our Clear Cloud Pavilion. Now that I look at it, I thought he was being kind back then, putting in a good word for Captain Xiaotao to enter the Soaring Pavilion. He was simply a wolf with ulterior motives. If that's the case, then that Su Xiaohe is really a scumbag with a human face. Lin Yi finally understood why Huang Xiaotao had purposely covered her face, and he secretly felt pity for her. Thinking back, even a top-notch young master like Su Lingqiong could do such a despicable act like raping Shanghai Laner. He could be said to be the same kind of trash as Su Xiaohe. The Soaring Pavilion looked bright and beautiful in the eyes of the world, but it was simply a gathering of scumbags on the inside. If the upper beam was not straight, the lower beam would be crooked. However, the weak were prey to the strong. This was the nature of the cultivation world. Taking Lin Yi's own experience as an example, if he didn't have enough strength, he would have long been trampled to death by Meng Jueguang and his gang. How could he still be alive today? Didn't the law enforcement hall intervene in this matter? Didn't Pavilion Master Shangguan of the Soaring Pavilion ask about it? Lin Yi continued to ask. Lin Yi didn't dare to guarantee what would happen to other people, but after a few interactions he still trusted Shanghai Tianhua's character. No matter how much of a genius Su Xiaohe was, he believed that Shanghai Tianhua wouldn't cover up such a vile act just because he cherished talent. Brother Ling Yi, you're a wandering cultivator, but you seem to understand the matters of our three great pavilions quite well? Song Jima and the other two looked at Lin Yi in surprise, but they didn't take it to heart. There were many wandering cultivators who wanted to join the three great pavilions, so it was very normal for them to pay more attention to the matters of the three great pavilions. Song Jima sighed and said, actually, the law enforcement hall intervened in that matter. However, that bastard Su Xiaohe went to the law enforcement hall and was released very quickly. The conclusion that the law enforcement hall came to was that there wasn't enough evidence. The most infuriating thing was that bastard actually made a countercharge, saying that Captain Xiaotao framed him. That's simply preposterous. As for Pavilion Master Shangguan, that kind of high and mighty big shot is so busy every day. How would he have time to care about such a small matter? It was said that this case was transferred to the law enforcement hall by the second senior brother of Soaring Sky Pavilion, Su Lingqiong. Pavilion Master Shangguan probably hasn't heard of it at all. Su Lingqiong again. Even Lin Yi, an outsider, couldn't help but feel indignant when he heard this. Su Lingqiong, this guy harbored evil intentions. He himself often did such dirty things. Su Xiaohe could be so arrogant, maybe he was in cahoots with him. What happened after that? Captain Xiaotao didn't think of reversing the verdict? Did she just swallow this resentment? Lin Yi said indignantly. If it were him, he would have tried to kill Su Xiaohe long ago. How would he have allowed that scum to live freely to this day? At this time, Huang Xiaotao, the person involved, finally opened her mouth and smiled bitterly. The gap between me and him is so big. What can I do even if I can't bear it? My only wish now is to save up spiritual jades to buy a youth-retaining elixir and restore my appearance. Then I'll leave the North Island and become a free and unfettered wandering cultivator. Chapter 4080. Currently, Su Xiaohe was regarded as the Soaring Sky Pavilion's genius of 1,000 years, and Shangguan Tianhua was about to take him in as a disciple, whereas she, Huang Xiaotao, was just a mere Clear Cloud Pavilion disciple without strength or influence. What did she have to contend against the other side? Lin Yi looked at her deeply and said meaningfully, Captain Xiaotao, if you don't untie this knot in your heart, even if you become a rogue cultivator, you won't be able to live freely. Perhaps, but what else can I do? Huang Xiaotao shook her head helplessly and changed the topic. She forced herself to raise her spirits and said to everyone, okay, let's stop chatting and get back to business. According to past experience, it will take us 3 days to reach the Hutsai Tianwu mountain. Everyone should rest well. I will be in charge of commanding the spirit bird. If we encounter any danger, I will inform you. Qin Muzhuan and Song Jima were already used to this. After looking at each other, they didn't say anything and closed their eyes to cultivate. Okay, then I will have to trouble Captain Xiaotao. Lin Yi nodded and didn't ask about the grudge between Huang Xiaotao and Su Zhaohe. He immediately sat down to cultivate. He had just broken through to the peak of the late foundation establishment stage. These 3 days were just the right time to stabilize his cultivation. The journey was smooth. After 3 days, the 4 of them smoothly entered the boundary of the Wuxia Tianwu mountain. As far as the eye could see, it was lush like a primeval forest. The mountains towered into the sky and stretched endlessly. Even compared to the mountains behind the 3 great pavilions, it was not small. There was a mysterious and powerful aura faintly emitting from it. Huang Xiaotao controlled the spirit bird and landed on the edge of the open space. After instructing the spirit bird to rise into the air again, she reminded Lin Yi and the others, "Everyone be careful. Although we are only in the periphery, we can't rule out the possibility of encountering powerful spirit beasts. If we are careless, we may pay with our lives. Do you understand?" "Understood." Lin Yi and the others replied in unison. "Alright, then I'll start assigning tasks now. Junior brother Qin Muzhuan will be in charge of being on guard and keeping watch, and I'll be in charge of restraining the nearby spirit beasts. As for brother Ling Yi, you'll follow junior brother Song Jima to gather spirit herbs." Huang Xiaotao instructed. Division of labor and cooperation was the essence of a trial team. The more spiritual herbs a place had, the more spiritual beasts there would be. If there was no one specifically responsible for guarding and restraining the beasts, in such a dangerous place, rashly gathering spiritual herbs would simply be courting death. Only when a few people worked together with sincerity would they be able to gather the spiritual herbs and retreat safely. As the team leader, Huang Xiaotao's words carried enormous weight. The 3 of them had no objections and immediately began to busy themselves. In order not to arouse suspicion, Lin Yi did not leave immediately. Instead, he followed them to complete the quest seriously. Wuxia Tianwu Mountain was surrounded by the sea on 2 sides and was surrounded by mountains on 2 sides. Adding on the fact that there were few people here, it created an abundance of spiritual herbs. Wealth came from danger. This was why even though it was extremely dangerous, many trial takers were still willing to come here. By working together, they had already avoided the dangerous areas where the spiritual beasts gathered. The 4 of them passed their first day without any danger. Ling Yi's role was to carry the spiritual herbs and dig them up. There was no skill to speak of. However, he had no complaints. Huang Xiaotao and the others had come to Wuxia Tianwu Mountain a few times before, so they had a good understanding of the place. If Lin Yi followed them, he would be able to quickly familiarize himself with the surroundings. The next day, when the sky was bright, the 4 of them continued their division of labor. Based on their previous tacit understanding, Lin Yi thought that it would continue to be peaceful. However, he didn't expect Qin Muzhuan, who was responsible for guarding the top of the tree, to bring them an unexpected piece of news. After Qin Muzhuan gathered everyone, he reported, 10 kilometers ahead, there is a spiritual herb thicket. From a rough estimate, there should be at least 100 spiritual herbs there. Everyone was immediately happy. A spiritual herb thicket with more than 100 spiritual herbs was a rare treasure. As long as they could successfully collect it, they would have completed half of the quest ahead of time. Then, are there any powerful spiritual beasts nearby? Although Huang Xiaotao was happy, she didn't let it get to her head. Qin Muzhuan shook his head and said, "Not yet. According to previous experience, there should be spiritual beasts nearby, but there shouldn't be many. At most, there should be 1 or 2 spiritual beasts. Perhaps they are patrolling the territory right now." Song Jima, who was at the side, nodded in agreement. Right, there shouldn't be too many spiritual beasts. Otherwise, senior apprentice brother Chen would definitely be able to find some clues. If there are only 1 or 2 spiritual beasts, then it would be like sending spiritual herbs to your doorstep. Captain Xiaotao? Seeing everyone looking at her eagerly, Huang Xiaotao didn't hesitate for too long. She immediately said, "Okay, we can't miss this opportunity. Since we found it, let's gamble. Junior apprentice brother Qin Muzhuan, you go from the top and carefully monitor the surroundings. Junior apprentice brother Song Jima and brother Ling Yi, you 2 go collect spiritual herbs. I'll be on the side to keep watch for you and restrain any spiritual beasts that might appear." "Okay." Everyone responded in unison and began to move without saying anything else. Without saying anything, Lin Yi and Song Jima quickly approached the location that Qin Muzhuan had pointed out. What made Lin Yi secretly surprised was that along the way, not to mention powerful spiritual beasts, They didn't even see a small wild beast. This situation was a bit strange. If it was just Lin Yi moving alone with his cautious style, he would first find a place with a wide field of view and observe for a while. However, this was a team operation and Lin Yi was only a temporary outsider. He didn't have the right to say anything, so he could only increase his vigilance and continue to follow them. Soon, Song Jima and Lin Yi arrived at the spiritual herb thicket. Looking around, there were all kinds of high-quality spiritual herbs in front of them. It was as if they were cabbages that didn't cost anything. "Brother Ling Yi, we've struck it rich this time." Song Jima couldn't help but swallow his saliva. As long as they collected all of these spiritual herbs, even if they couldn't complete the mission, they would still be able to sell these spiritual herbs for at least 1,000 spiritual jades. If they split it evenly, they would have at least 200 to 300 spiritual jades. This was a huge sum of money. With that, Song Jima hurried to start harvesting. Lin Yi, on the other hand, wasn't as impatient as Song Jima. He looked around calmly. Suddenly, under the shade of a tree not far from the spiritual herb thicket, a strangely shaped fruit tree attracted Lin Yi's attention. Chapter 4081. The deformity of the fruit tree was one thing, but what really caught Lin Yi's attention were the 5 dazzling golden fruits at the top of the tree. Even under the shade of the tree, they seemed to be shining with a frightening light. "Brother Ling Yi, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and pick the herbs. Although we have Senior Chen on guard and Captain Xiaotao to control the spirit beast, we still have to move quickly. If we attract some powerful spirit beast, then all our efforts will be in vain." Song Jima noticed that Lin Yi was in a daze and immediately urged him. However, when he noticed that Lin Yi was looking at the strange tree, he was also stunned and couldn't move his eyes away for a long time. After a long time, Song Jima finally reacted while gasping for breath. He pointed at the 5 shining fruits at the top of the tree and stammered, Could this be the legendary myriad crossing? Golden core fruit? 10,000 crossing golden dan fruit?" Lin Yi was slightly stunned. He had never heard of this name before. However, from Song Jima's expression of surprise, it should be some kind of high-level spiritual medicine. Qin Mujuan, who was responsible for monitoring the tree, noticed the strange behavior of the two people. A strange look suddenly flashed through his eyes and he immediately jumped down from the tree. However, when his gaze fell on the 5 fruits, his greed was still overflowing. Soon after, Huang Xiaotao, who was wandering around, noticed that something was wrong and approached the 3 people. After seeing the 5 golden dan-shaped fruits, her body suddenly seemed to be struck by lightning and couldn't move. 10,000 crossing golden dan fruit? Is this really the 10,000 crossing golden dan fruit? Junior Song Jima, I remember that you studied in the spirit medicine nursery for a period of time. Are you sure? Huang Xiaotao said with a face of disbelief. Captain Xiaotao, I guarantee with my head that these 5 fruits are definitely the 10,000 crossing golden dan fruit. As long as a golden core stage expert consumes it, they can directly raise their level by 1 level. If a foundation establishment stage expert consumes it, they will definitely succeed in forming their core. This is a truly priceless and rare treasure. Song Jima swallowed his saliva and said. This time even Lin Yi was shocked. A golden core stage expert could directly raise their level and a foundation establishment stage expert could guarantee a 100% success in forming their core. There was actually such a heaven-defying spiritual medicine in this world. After a while, Huang Xiaotao suppressed the excitement in her heart with great difficulty and said to the others, This is a great opportunity that we may not even have in our next life. Let's split these 10,000 crossing golden core fruits. Okay. Qin Mujuan and Song Jima hurriedly agreed. As for Lin Yi, he didn't have any objections. But, there are 5 10,000 crossing golden dan fruits here but there are only 4 of us. It won't be easy to divide them, right? On the way here Lin Yi had learned that in Huang Xiaotao's team, other than the contribution points going to the captain, the rewards were split equally among the team members. It could be considered a very kind and honest team. Song Jima retorted, What's so difficult about that? Everyone who sees it has a share. The 4 of us will each get 1, and the extra 1 will naturally belong to Captain Xiaotao. She's been taking care of us for such a long time, and she's even the team leader. If it were any other team she would definitely get the biggest share. This Song Jima is a kind person. Lin Yi secretly nodded. He said, I have no objections. Chen Muzhua looked like he was struggling, but since Song Jima and Lin Yi had already expressed their stance, he was the only one left. Even if he objected it would be useless. They could only nod along, but there was a hint of haze in their eyes, as if their scheme had succeeded. If that's the case I'll shamelessly take this universal golden pill fruit. Huang Xiaotao suppressed the joy in her heart and immediately said, "In order to make up for everyone's losses, I will distribute my share of the rewards for this and the next few missions to everyone." After the four of them finished their discussion, they immediately picked the 5 universal golden pill fruits and put them into their respective bags excitedly. Every one of them couldn't calm down. At this moment something strange happened. The jade pendant suddenly gave a warning and Lin Yi's eyelids twitched. With his current perception, he could clearly feel the aura of 5 powerful spirit beasts rapidly converging on their position from all directions. From the looks of it, it should have been premeditated. They were surrounded. Just as Lin Yi thought to himself that this was indeed a trap, the ghost that hadn't appeared for a long time spoke. "Young Lin, you're thinking too much. This isn't a trap." Looking at them, they must have discussed that they would only come to pick the universal golden pill fruit after it fully ripened. Therefore, while they were waiting nearby, they also cleared the area. However, they didn't expect you guys to snatch it in advance. I see. Listening to the ghost's words, Lin Yi could not help but perspire. It turned out that this wasn't a trap at all, but the 5 spirit beasts had already discussed the ownership of the fruits. They probably calculated that each spirit beast would get 1 fruit. On the other hand, Lin Yi and the rest were suspected of burglary. However, there was no such thing as first come, first served for heaven's treasures. According to the law of nature, it had always belonged to the strong. Regardless of whether it was Lin Yi or Huang Xiaotao, none of them would be so noble as to give away the universal golden pill fruit that they had obtained. Suddenly realizing that the universal golden pill fruit that they had coveted for a long time had been snatched away, the 5 high-level spirit beasts were instantly enraged and charged toward Lin Yi and the rest from all directions. At this moment, apart from Lin Yi, the rest of them had not noticed anything at all. They were still immersed in the ecstasy of picking up a precious treasure and could not extricate themselves. Should I remind them a little? Lin Yi hesitated for a moment. Although these people were only temporary companions, he did not want them to die in the spirit beasts' mouths just like that. However, before Lin Yi could speak, Huang Xiaotao's expression suddenly froze. She quickly silenced everyone and said sternly, "Something's not right. I feel that something's coming and it's not just one. Everyone be careful, I'll go take a look." Then, right in front of Lin Yi and the rest, Huang Xiaotao's figure gradually disappeared into the air at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as if she had evaporated into thin air, causing Lin Yi to be dumbfounded. Song Jima explained, "This is a very high-end forest concealment skill. As long as you're in the forest, you can hide yourself perfectly. Brother Ling Yi, don't be fooled by the fact that our leader is a woman. She's very powerful." Forest concealment skill? This is my first time seeing it. Lin Yi nodded thoughtfully. Chapter 4082. Song Jima and Qin Muzhuang were on full alert, while Lin Yi chose to climb a tree. With a wide field of vision and his powerful perception, he could perfectly grasp the movements of every blade of grass and tree in his surroundings. The 5 high-grade spirit beasts were getting closer and closer. Just as he was about to help everyone get rid of one of them, an incomparably fierce vital energy suddenly erupted from the north. When he fixed his eyes on it, he realized that it was Huang Xiaotao who had made her move. A 1-meter-long black arrow was propelled by a powerful burst of vital energy. Its speed was as fast as a black bolt of lightning. In the blink of an eye, it crossed a distance of 300 meters and struck the throat of one of the attacking spirit beasts. Even for high-grade spirit beasts, the throat was an extremely vulnerable and fatal area. No matter how strong and heaven-defying its vitality was, it would undoubtedly die after being pierced through the throat by an arrow. Without any suspense, a high-grade spirit beast was easily killed by Huang Xiaotao with a single arrow. I didn't expect her to be a rare expert in archery. It seems that Song Jima's evaluation wasn't exaggerated. Captain Xiaotao is indeed worthy of the word, very strong. Lin Yi praised her in his heart. The combination of the forest concealment technique and such a superb archery technique with extremely high lethality was simply an invincible and tyrannical combination of martial skills in the deep mountains and dense forests. However, judging from Huang Xiaotao's current panting expression, the astonishing consumption of the arrow just now was far from what it looked like on the surface. It was likely that this was her trump card, a powerful technique. Everyone be careful. They're coming. Huang Xiaotao shouted behind her with all her might. Without bothering to catch her breath and adjust, she immediately set her sights on another high-grade spirit beast. After one of the 5 high-grade spirit beasts was killed by her long-range sniper rifle, the remaining situation was exactly 1 person against 1 spirit beast each. However, the spirit beast that she had just killed was only in the middle stage of the foundation building realm. It was the weakest among the 5 spirit beasts. As for the remaining 4 spirit beasts, each of them was much stronger than it. 2 were at the late stage of the foundation building realm, and 2 were at the peak of the middle stage of the foundation building realm. Putting aside Lin Yi, who had concealed his strength, for Huang Xiaotao and the other 2, these 4 high-level spiritual beasts were like the king of hell. Huang Xiaotao took the initiative to target one of the ferocious spirit beasts in the late stage of the foundation establishment realm. It was very difficult for human cultivators to be a match for spirit beasts of the same level, but for Huang Xiaotao, who possessed the forest concealment technique and powerful archery skills, this dense forest was also her home ground. She might be able to put up a fight. In comparison, Song Jima and Chen Muzhuang's situation was much more difficult than Huang Xiaotao's. At the moment they were facing 2 spirit beasts at the peak of the foundation establishment realm, which were at the intermediate stage of the foundation establishment realm. One could imagine how much pressure they were under. As for Lin Yi, who was currently on the tree, he was being targeted by a huge thousand-eyed spider. This powerful late-stage foundation establishment spirit beast was covered in densely packed eyes from its head to its abdomen. Each of these eyes could shoot out a terrifying ray of light that was enough to harm the primordial spirit. Coupled with the huge web that it rapidly weaved, this was a typical killer of the jungle. After targeting Lin Yi, the thousand-eyed spider did not immediately launch a fatal attack. Instead, it would shoot out a ray of light from time to time to restrain Lin Yi, and at the same time, it would circle back and forth around Lin Yi. After a short while, Lin Yi was shocked to discover that he was surrounded by dense spider webs in all directions. He had actually been completely trapped by the dense spider webs in the sky and on the ground. From a distance, it looked like he was wrapped in a huge cocoon. There was no way out of the sky, no way out of the earth. There was nowhere to run even if he wanted to. Screech. The sharp and unpleasant cry of the thousand-eyed spider clearly revealed an indescribable sense of pride. At this moment, in its eyes, Lin Yi was just a delicacy that had been placed on the table, a helpless lamb waiting to die. Hee, a mere spider dares to be so arrogant. It seems that you really haven't seen much of the world. You've wasted so many eyes. Lin Yi stood in the middle and smiled unhurriedly. Screech, screech, screech. The thousand-eyed spider understood Lin Yi's mockery and immediately opened all the eyes on its body. Hundreds and thousands of terrifying rays of light interweaved to form a dense, life-threatening web that shot towards Lin Yi. At the same time, everyone below fell into a bloody and bitter battle. Huang Xiaotao's situation was slightly better. Her forest concealment technique was enough to protect herself. But even so, with the frightening intuition of a late-stage foundation establishment spirit beast, she was almost caught by it several times. Huang Xiaotao was surrounded by danger several times, but she barely escaped. As for Song Jima and Chen Muzhuan, their situation was even more miserable. They were 2 mid-stage foundation establishment experts, but they had to deal with 2 spirit beasts at the peak of the mid-stage foundation establishment. This was simply an impossible task. In the blink of an eye, the 2 of them were wounded. Fortunately, the 2 of them had a tacit understanding and maintained a defensive formation with their backs against each other. They didn't seek to kill the 2 spirit beasts, but only sought to protect themselves. However, this defensive strategy could only allow them to delay for a little longer. Every time the spirit beasts pounced on them, they would leave a wound on them. If this continued, even if they weren't bitten to death by the spirit beasts, they would bleed from the wounds on their bodies until they turned into dried corpses. Seeing that the situation was getting worse, Huang Xiaotao, as the team leader, finally didn't dare to delay any longer. If this continued, everyone except her would die here today. I can only take a risk. Huang Xiaotao clenched her teeth. After a few confrontations, the forest blood wolf, which was at the peak of the late-stage foundation establishment, had begun to adapt to her tactics. Every time Huang Xiaotao wanted to raise her hand to shoot an arrow, the forest blood wolf would always be able to retreat in advance even when it was in a state of concealment. Furthermore, it was extremely proficient in running like a snake, so Huang Xiaotao couldn't lock onto it at all. Once again, Huang Xiaotao entered a state of concealment. The forest blood wolf was carefully on guard against any movement in its surroundings. Although it wasn't like Lin Yi, who could roughly capture Huang Xiaotao's position through its senses, it had a far sharper sense of smell and hearing than humans. If Huang Xiaotao was careless and stepped on any flowers or grass, it would be a fatal flaw. Suddenly, the forest blood wolf made a move after hearing a slight rustling sound. If it was not absolutely confident, with its patience and cunning, it would not easily attack. However, this time, it had already grasped the weakness of the human opposite it. Chapter 4083. With Huang Xiaotao's frail body, This claw alone was enough to seriously injure her. However, the forest blood wolf did not choose to chase after her. Instead, it froze on the spot. Unknowingly, a black arrow had pierced through its neck. After a while, the forest blood wolf fell straight to the ground. It struggled and howled for a long time before finally losing all signs of life. Phew. Huang Xiaotao let out a long sigh of relief. If she had not taken the risk to lure the opponent over with the forest blood wolf's cunning, it would have been hard to say who would have the last laugh. Fortunately, she had smeared a lethal poison on the arrow. Otherwise, even if the arrow had successfully pierced through the forest blood wolf's body, it would not have died due to its thick skin and flesh. After killing the forest blood wolf, Huang Xiaotao did not stop at all. She did not even have time to catch her breath as she turned around and rushed towards Song Jima and Qin Muzhuang. If she had delayed any longer, they might have died. That was the truth. When Huang Xiaotao arrived, Song Jima and Qin Muzhuang were already in a precarious situation. Not only were they covered in wounds, but they could not even stand properly. On the other hand, the two spirit beasts at the peak of the Foundation Establishment intermediate stage were still alive and kicking. However, with the addition of Huang Xiaotao, the situation was instantly reversed. In less than the time it took to burn a stick of incense, the two Foundation building middle stage spiritual beasts were killed by the three of them. Lying on the ground in a sorry state, Song Jima panted heavily as he applied medicine. He looked at the giant cocoon made of spider silk above his head and said worriedly, "Brother Lingyi has been up there for so long, will something happen to him? I'll go up and take a look." Huang Xiaotao did not care about the pain in her body or her remaining strength. She gritted her teeth and prepared to climb up the tree. From what she remembered, the spirit beast that had its eyes on Lin Yi seemed to be a thousand-eyed spider, a spirit beast that was even stronger than the forest blood wolves. Ling Yi, on the other hand, was the weakest of the group, and he had been fighting the thousand-eyed spider one-on-one for so long. He had faced the thousand-eyed spider one-on-one for so long. Huang Xiaotao knew the danger of rushing up so recklessly. However, even if there was only a slim chance of survival as the team leader, she could not leave Ling Yi in the lurch. However, just as Huang Xiaotao got up to climb the tree, she stared at the giant cocoon and suddenly flames shot out in all directions. Then, the giant cocoon quickly turned into ashes in the fire and scattered with the wind. Lin Yi then appeared and jumped down from the sky. Song Jima looked at Lin Yi, who was in a rather sorry state but had no obvious injuries, and said with a dumbfounded expression, "Brother Ling Yi, what are you doing? You're really amazing. The one you're eyeing seems to be the thousand-eyed spider, right? That's a spirit beast in the late stage of the Foundation Establishment stage, and you can even deal with it." Not only him, but Huang Xiaotao and Qin Muzhuo were also looking at Lin Yi with obvious shock in their eyes. They had always thought that Lin Yi was the weakest among them. "Haha, it's just that I happen to know a fire attribute martial technique. Its spider web is just a trap of its own making. It was purely luck. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to deal with it." Lin Yi smiled modestly. "So that's how it is. Fire does seem to restrain spiders. Brother Ling Yi, you're really lucky. However, don't be so humble. Luck is also a kind of strength." Song Jima and the other two came to a sudden realization. Lin Yi secretly smiled. It was true that fire countered spiders, but at the late stage of the Foundation Establishment stage, if one didn't have enough strength, it would be useless. No matter how much you tried to restrain yourself, it was all in vain. The thousand-eyed spider could kill you with just a few rays of light. With Lin Yi's strength, dealing with this thousand-eyed spider was as easy as beating a dog. If he hadn't intentionally hidden his strength and delayed it, he would have been able to kill this stinky spider in one move. He wouldn't have dragged it until now. Of course, if Song Jima and Qin Muzhuo were really in mortal danger, Lin Yi would have no choice but to give up on hiding his strength and help them out. Of course, if Song Jima and Qin Muzhuo were in mortal danger, Lin Yi would have no choice but to give up on hiding his strength and help them out. Alright, it's already a blessing that everyone managed to survive today. This place has already been cleared by the 5 spirit beasts, so it should be the safest place for now. Let's take a good rest here first. We'll continue after we've more or less recovered, Huang Xiaotao ordered. Just as everyone was about to respond, 3 figures suddenly descended from the sky. They all had sinister smiles on their faces as they landed in front of everyone. Sweeping a glance at the 3 people who obviously had bad intentions, Lin Yi raised his head and looked up. Sure enough, he saw a flying spiritual beast circling in the sky. If the other party hadn't come from the sky, they wouldn't have been able to escape his perception. "Tsk, why are you all so heavily injured? It must have been hard on you guys. Come on, hurry up and hand over the myriad crossing golden dan fruit. I don't need to search it myself, right?" The person in the lead was a frivolous and arrogant youth. He raised his eyebrows at Huang Xiaotao and sneered. Su Jianghu, you're despicable and shameless. Huang Xiaotao finally reacted. Even though her face couldn't be seen through the mask, her current emotions could be felt from her trembling body. Shameless? Is this your first day out on a mission? This place has always been a place where only the capable can get what they want. If you don't want to die here, be tactful and hand over the myriad crossing golden dan fruit. Su Jianghu laughed complacently and looked Huang Xiaotao up and down playfully. Huang Xiaotao, if you had become my sixth sister-in-law back then, would you have ended up like this? Women are all cheap. Serves you right. Not only did you get disfigured, you're also in such a miserable state. TSK. Huang Xiaotao gritted her teeth in humiliation. If she hadn't fought the 5 spiritual beasts to the point where both sides were injured, she wouldn't have needed to fear Su Jianghu. However, now that he had taken advantage of her misfortune, it was too late to say anything. You really don't want to hand it over? Then I won't hold back. Su Jianghu sneered maliciously. Huang Xiaotao was once hailed as a cultivation genius. To be honest, he didn't dare to look down on this woman. However, everything was now in his grasp. Seeing that Su Jianghu was about to make a move, Huang Xiaotao had no choice but to grit her teeth and hand over the 2 myriad crossing golden dan fruits. That's more like it. Su Jianghu snatched the 2 myriad crossing golden dan fruits and drooled greedily. At the same time, the 2 people who had appeared with him also began to force the crowd to hand over the myriad crossing golden dan fruits. Chapter 4084. Hearing this, Huang Xiaotao and Song Jima were shocked. They were still wondering why they were so unlucky to meet Su Jianghu at this time. They didn't expect Qin Muzhuan to be the mole. Qin Muzhuan, you traitorous dog. How can you face Captain Xiaotao like this? You. Song Jima angrily cursed. However, he was immediately kicked to the side by Su Jianghu. Huang Xiaotao quickly chased after him and helped him to the side. Give it to you? If you wish. There are only 5 10,000 crossing golden dan fruit. The 3 of us have to each have 1. In addition, I have to give my 6th cousin too. He is about to become a disciple of Pavilion Master Shangguan. At that time, he will need to please Princess Shangguan Laner. Naturally, I have to give her 1. How can 4 be enough? Don't talk nonsense, quickly hand it over. Su Jianghu turned hostile. Hearing this, Lin Yi, as an outsider, completely understood the other party's identity. This Su Jianghu was the cousin of the Soaring Sky Pavilion's millennium genius, Su Jiaohe. No wonder he dared to be so arrogant. This kind of scum was exactly the same as Meng Tong back then. He dared to use his connections to intimidate others, thinking that he was already a cut above others. Little did he know that in the eyes of others, he was nothing more than a clown who was not even worth a fart. You deserve it. Song Jima fiercely spat at Qin Muzhuan. He originally thought of the other party as a good brother that he could entrust his life to. He didn't expect the other party to be such a scum. Although Su Jianghu was not a good person, seeing a traitor being betrayed was a very satisfying feeling. Senior brother Su Yu. Qin Muzhuan never thought that Su Jianghu would burn the bridge after crossing it. He ignored his conscience and became a mole, causing him to be deserted. In the end, he didn't even get a single 10,000 crossing golden dan fruit. Wasn't his brain filled with water? You. If you keep wasting time with me, believe it or not, I will kill you right now. Su Jianghu fiercely stared at him with a murderous aura. No matter how good a treasure was, one must be alive to enjoy it. In desperation, Qin Muzhuan could only take out the universal golden pill fruit dejectedly, but it was snatched away by Su Jianghu. Diske, this is a treasure that no amount of spiritual jade can buy. With this treasure as a stepping stone, my 6th cousin brother will be able to become Pavilion Master Shangguan's disciple. Who knows, I might even be able to marry Miss Shangguan as well and become Pavilion Master Shangguan's grandson-in-law. As Su Jianghu spoke, he glanced at Huang Xiaotao mockingly and sneered complacently, Huang Xiaotao, you're just a piece of trash. To be able to catch my big brother's eye, that's already a rare honor, yet he's still unwilling? Aha, are you regretting it now? Unfortunately, it's useless. You're just an ugly monster with a disfigured face. Not only my brother doesn't want you, any random cat or dog on the street wouldn't want you either. Huang Xiaotao was angered to the point she gritted her teeth, yet she didn't retort. Rather than arguing with this kind of arrogant scum who only knew how to use his connections to intimidate others, it was better to save some energy. At this time, the other person brought by Su Jianghu walked in front of Lin Yi and said with a disdainful expression, Is there a hole in your brain? After talking for so long, why don't you hurry up and hand over the universal golden pill fruit? You're courting death. Don't you know how to use your brain? Is such a treasure something a country bumpkin like you can have? Lin Yi glanced at him and smiled, unmoved. He said indifferently, a bunch of trash. Now put down the universal golden pill fruit. Hurry up and scram, I can still leave you a way out. This person turned his head and looked at Su Jianghu. As if he had heard the funniest joke in the world, he suddenly laughed maniacally. He pointed at Lin Yi and said breathlessly, "Oh, looking at your appearance, I thought you were a country bumpkin. I didn't expect you to be such a tough guy. Ah, that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, in front of me, a late-stage foundation establishment expert, who do you think you are? So you don't want to hand it over. All right then, I'll reluctantly fulfill your wish." As soon as Lin Yi finished speaking, he suddenly raised his hand and used the 29 forms of frenzied fire fist. Boom. This person didn't even have a chance to react. His wild laughter stopped abruptly, and his head was directly smashed into pieces. Only a headless corpse was left, slowly falling down. Until his death, he didn't understand how he died in the hands of such a country bumpkin. This sudden turn of events shocked everyone present, and they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. They all looked at Lin Yi with shock in their eyes. Huang Xiaotao and Song Jima were scared silly. They had always thought that Lin Yi was the weakest. Previously, they had always made Lin Yi carry the elixirs for them and boasted that they had taken good care of Lin Yi. Now that they thought about it, they couldn't help but blush. It was so funny that they couldn't show their faces. A late-stage foundation establishment expert could be killed by a casual punch from Lin Yi without the slightest bit of resistance. What a terrifying and powerful strength. You're a golden core stage senior? The other subordinate that Su Jianghu brought was so scared that he peed his pants on the spot when he saw this brutal scene. Su Jianghu was also scared to the point that his face turned pale. It was clearly a flawless plan, and the myriad golden Dan fruit was already in their hands. Who would have thought that they would suddenly kick an iron plate and such a devil incarnate would appear? Although he was terrified, he looked at the myriad golden Dan fruit in his hand unwillingly. Suddenly, Su Jianghu shouted with a ferocious expression, "No. He's definitely not. At most, he's at the peak of the late-stage foundation establishment. Let's attack together. I don't believe that we can't kill him." As soon as he finished speaking, Su Jianghu braced himself and stepped forward. The subordinate who was scared to the point of peeing did not dare to fall behind. There was no reason for him to give up the myriad golden Dan fruit that was already in his hands. He immediately roared and charged at Lin Yi. "Be careful." Huang Xiaotao and Song Jima hurriedly warned. The shock brought by the bloody scene just now had not been completely digested. They subconsciously felt that no matter how strong Lin Yi was, it would be difficult for him to be a match for Su Jianghu and Song Jima. However, before the two of them finished speaking, Lin Yi stood still without dodging. With a calm expression, he raised his hand and used a frenzy 8-trigram palm. Accompanied by a loud bang, Su Jianghu's subordinate was sent flying into the air and crashed into several trees. When he finally fell to the ground, his body was shockingly full of bumps and hollows. Not to mention his life, even his corpse had been beaten beyond recognition. Chapter 4085. Kowtowing to Lin Yi repeatedly, Su Jianghu hurriedly begged for mercy. "Senior in the gold core stage, please spare my life. I have eyes but fail to recognize you. I won't do it again. Please be generous and forgive me this time. I don't want the myriad crossing Jindan fruit anymore. I'll give it all to you." As Su Jianghu's cousin, Su Jianghu had seen a lot of things. Lin Yi's 29 moves of Raging Fire Fist only had the power of the Foundation Establishment stage, but this palm was clearly the power of the early stage of the Gold Core stage. Only the masters of the Gold Core stage could master the martial arts skills of the Gold Core stage. This was beyond doubt. No matter how arrogant Su Jianghu was, he would never dare to be presumptuous in front of a master of the Gold Core stage. Even his genius cousin was only at the peak of the Foundation Establishment stage. "You want me to let you go?" Lin Yi lightly raised his eyelids. "Well, I know I'm wrong. I won't dare to do it again. You are a superior senior in the Gold Core stage. It's not worth dirtying your hands to kill me." Su Jianghu knelt on the ground without a care for his image, begging for mercy with tears and snot. "You also said that you're a villain. You want me to let you go and then ask your sixth cousin to kill me, right?" Lin Yi curled the corner of his mouth playfully. No, I would never dare to do that. You are a senior in the Gold Core stage. Even my cousin is absolutely no match for you." Su Jianghu hurriedly kowtowed in panic. Lin Yi snorted coldly and ignored his begging for mercy. He turned to look at Qin Muzhuang on the other side and said, "Qin Muzhuang, you just said that these people were all brought here by you?" Qin Muzhuang had long been scared out of his wits. He was stunned for a long time before he came to his senses. He also knelt to Lin Yi and begged for mercy. "Senior, please spare my life. They forced me to do this. If I don't do as they say, I can't survive in the North Island at all. I will be hunted by them. I'll give you a chance. Kill him." Lin Yi ordered expressionlessly. Ah! Qin Muzhu and Su Xiaohu were both startled. Su Xiaohu's face was filled with fear, while Qin Muzhu hesitated. He wasn't soft-hearted. Just now, Su Xiaohu burned the bridge after crossing the river. In his heart, he had already killed this bastard 1,000 times. But Su Xiaohu was Su Xiaohu's cousin. If he, Qin Muzhuan, dared to kill Su Xiaohu, even if he could survive today, he would definitely die when he returned to the North Island. "Qin Muzhuang, you dare. If you dare to touch a single hair of mine, I'll make sure you die without a complete corpse." Su Xiaohu was both shocked and furious as he threatened. Qin Muzhua's heart trembled, but when he saw Lin Yi's sharp gaze sweep over, he quickly got up and braced himself to attack Su Xiaohu. If he killed Su Xiaohu, he would only be hunted down in the future. But if he didn't kill Su Xiaohu, he would die now. He had no other choice. Seeing Qin Muzhu's murderous intent gathering, Su Xiaohu finally didn't dare to waste any more time. Before Qin Muzhu could attack him, he suddenly pierced his opponent's heart with one finger, killing him instantly. However, before he could relax, Lin Yi sneered and said, "In front of me, you dared to kill a member of my squad. You just said that you wouldn't dare to do it again? Are you fucking lying to me?" No. Su Xiaohu quickly wanted to deny it, but Lin Yi didn't give him a chance. He lifted his leg and used a frenzy 1,000 kicks. One kick sent Su Xiaohu flying dozens of feet. When Su Xiaohu fell heavily on a tree trunk, he had already become a mutilated corpse. Frenzy 1,000 kicks. This was a new martial technique that Lin Yi had recently combined. After all, Meng Tong's 1,000 kicks were not weak. Moreover, after cultivating it, it could increase the speed of one's movement technique. Now that it had evolved into a frenzy 1,000 kicks in Lin Yi's hands, it was considered an extremely practical martial technique. "Senior, I'm sorry before." Seeing Lin Yi's gaze fall on them, Huang Xiaotao and Song Jima were immediately scared out of their wits. He killed so many people in such a short period of time. This person simply killed without batting an eye. Although the two of them didn't do anything wrong to Lin Yi, letting a golden core expert do hard labor was in itself a fatal mistake. According to this person's terrifying murderous nature, it wasn't impossible for him to kill the two of them if he was unhappy. "Alright, you two don't have to be afraid. Get up." Lin Yi smiled bitterly and shook his head. In fact, he really wasn't this kind of ruthless person who killed without batting an eye. It was just that he was about to reach the Golden Core realm, and the myriad Golden Dan fruit today was too important to him. Moreover, in the past 6 months in the Welcome Pavilion he was restricted by all kinds of rules. He also had to take into account the background of his opponents. He couldn't kill this person, he couldn't provoke that person, and he had to be cautious when doing things. It really made him feel suffocated. Now that he was outside, how could he not kill this kind of ignorant scum? Seeing that Lin Yi really didn't intend to pursue the matter, Huang Xiaotao supported Song Jima and stood up carefully. However, her gaze towards Lin Yi was still full of awe, and she didn't dare to approach him. Lin Yi shook his head helplessly and said to the two of them, "This task ends here. We should also go our separate ways. You two take care." Since his strength had been exposed, Lin Yi simply couldn't be bothered to go with them to collect those elixirs. Finding the aspect-growing mushrooms was his ultimate goal. Moreover, looking at the situation, even if he was willing to go with the two of them, the atmosphere would definitely be very awkward. It was better to go their separate ways. This myriad golden Dan fruit. Huang Xiaotao was a little embarrassed. Although she really wanted the myriad golden Dan fruit, logically speaking, these were all things that Lin Yi had snatched from Su Xiaohu's hands, so they belonged to Lin Yi. It had nothing to do with her and Song Jima. Lin Yi smiled and threw 2 of the myriad golden Dan fruits that he had retrieved from Su Xiaohu and the others to Huang Xiaotao and Song Jima. He said, "I want 3, 1 for each of you. Do you have any objections?" Huang Xiaotao and Song Jima were instantly overjoyed. They thanked him profusely. No. Thank you, senior. Thank you, senior. No need. This is what you deserve." Lin Yi lightly waved his hand. Huang Xiaotao and Song Jima looked at each other. They mustered up their courage and said, "We will never forget senior's great kindness. Now that our task is almost complete, we don't have enough manpower. Moreover, both of us are seriously injured, so we are preparing to return now. However, this will bring the spiritual bird with us. What do you plan to do, senior?" Chapter 4086. It's alright. You don't have to worry about me. I have a map in my hands. We can return without flying spirit beasts. Lin Yi shook his head. Apart from searching for the life mushroom, his other goal was to make a breakthrough. If he returned with flying spirit beasts, it would be ineffective. Then, alright senior, we'll return first. If you need anything in the future, you can look for me at the Blue Cloud Pavilion. We'll definitely go through fire and water for you. Huang Xiaotao immediately whistled to the sky, summoning the spirit bird that was circling above her. Then she supported Song Jima and was about to leave. However, at this moment, Lin Yi suddenly extended his hand and stopped them. He said with a serious expression, "Wait." Huang Xiaotao and the young man were shocked and couldn't help but feel terrified. They thought that Lin Yi was going to change his mind and was going to take back the myriad golden pill fruit in their hands. However, they heard Lin Yi say, "Someone is coming. Don't take off first. Run in this direction for a while before leaving. I'll stay here and cover for you." The jade was already warning him, and Lin Yi could sense an extremely strong aura rapidly approaching them. If Huang Xiaotao were to take off now, she'd be too obvious a target, and it'd be easy for someone to target her. Huang Xiaotao and the young man then realized that they had misunderstood Lin Yi and felt extremely guilty. However, when they saw Lin Yi's serious expression, they knew that the situation was urgent. They didn't say anything else and quickly left with the spirit bird after telling him to be careful. After watching Huang Xiaotao and the young man leave, Lin Yi stayed where he was and continued to wait. Judging from the other party's obvious intentions, he had a hunch that the other party was also here for the myriad golden pill fruit. Soon, a middle-aged man who maintained his appearance as if he was in his 40s appeared above Lin Yi's head on a flying spirit beast. After looking at the situation on the ground, he immediately descended from the sky and landed in front of Lin Yi. The middle-aged man looked at Lin Yi coldly and said playfully, "The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind." He said playfully, "The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. I didn't expect a little sparrow like you to get ahead of me. What are you waiting for? Take it out quickly." "What is it?" Lin Yi pretended to be at a loss. "Humph, a mere late-stage foundation establishment cultivator dares to play tricks on me? Fine, then you don't have to take it. When you're dead, I'll personally search your body for it." After the middle-aged man finished speaking, his aura skyrocketed. In an instant, it became even more horrifying and violent. Lin Yi was instantly shocked. Judging from this aura, the strength of this middle-aged man in front of him was at least a golden core intermediate stage expert. Lin Yi originally thought that those who came to Wuxia Tianwu Mountain for a trial mission would at most be experts at the peak of Foundation establishment. It was unlikely that they would meet any golden core experts. After all, which golden core expert would lower himself to come to a place like this to collect spiritual herbs? But he didn't expect. Now, not only did he encounter a golden core stage expert, but he was also in the middle stage of the golden core stage. This was an unprecedentedly strong enemy. While Lin Yi was still in shock, the middle-aged man had already made his move. With a casual wave of his hand, a ferocious giant claw condensed from true chi suddenly appeared above Lin Yi's head without warning. If Lin Yi hadn't reacted fast enough and used all his strength to activate the butterfly subtle steps, he would have escaped in the nick of time. Just this claw alone could seriously injure him, and it was not impossible for it to kill him in one blow. A golden core intermediate stage expert was really not to be trifled with. Lin Yi's heart was in awe. However, before he could heave a sigh of relief, another two ferocious giant claws enveloped him, accompanied by the middle-aged man's sneer, "A mere late-stage foundation establishment cultivator, to be able to escape my claw, you're not bad. Unfortunately, you still can't escape death today." The two giant claws surrounded him from left and right, not giving Lin Yi a chance to react and dodge again. Even if he used the butterfly subtle steps, he couldn't completely dodge this time. Blindly escaping would only lead to death. In desperation, Lin Yi had no choice but to brace himself and choose to face it head-on. 28 styles of raging fire 8 trigrams palm. Choosing one of the ferocious giant claws, Lin Yi clenched his teeth and fiercely struck out with his palm. At the same time, his figure followed closely behind, ready to wait for an opportunity to break out. This was already the strongest martial art he had mastered at the moment. If even this couldn't break the opponent's giant claws, then it would really be dangerous today. Boom. The raging fire 8 trigrams palm hit the giant claws head-on without any suspense. The incomparably brutal true chi madly collided, instantly setting off a terrifying storm. The vegetation within a radius of 100 feet was all flattened and swept up into the sky by the storm caused by the powerful true chi. For a moment, the sky was covered as if the end of the world had come. Unexpectedly, the power is no less than that of the early-stage gold core. Kid, where did you come from? The middle-aged man couldn't help but frown. An ordinary late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator wouldn't even have a complete corpse, let alone contend with his giant claws. The kid in front of him was a complete anomaly. However, even with the powerful power comparable to that of the early-stage gold core, compared to a real mid-stage gold core master, there was still a big gap. They were not on the same level at all. Bang! Amidst the chaos, Lin Yi's figure flew out like an arrow, and he spat out a mouthful of dazzling and captivating red blood out of thin air. In a single move, he'd shockingly suffered a heavy internal injury. The 28th move of the Raging Fire 8 Trigrams palm was unable to block the opponent's savage giant claws in the end, and in the end, it was only able to offset a portion of the opponent's power. Although Lin Yi wasn't killed directly, his internal organs had already been shaken to the point of shifting, and his stomach was like a raging sea. His situation was worrying. Oh, you're actually not dead? Kid, you've really made me look at you in a new light. A mere late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator being able to hold on to this extent, you can be considered to be a rare genius figure. But unfortunately, I've never known how to cherish geniuses. What's even more embarrassing is that my greatest hobby is to strangle you so-called geniuses. The middle-aged man laughed coldly without end. As he spoke, the middle-aged man's expression abruptly became extremely ghastly and cruel, and out of thin air, another 2 savage giant claws struck out of thin air. This time, Lin Yi even faintly heard a roar that seemed to come from an ancient ferocious beast. Lin Yi's expression changed greatly when he saw this, and he couldn't care about the sharp pain coming from his internal organs as he gritted his teeth and urged the butterfly's subtle steps with all his strength. Bang! Grass and wood splattered as Lin Yi was once again scratched by the giant claws, and his entire body was sent flying by his true chi once more. Moreover, his internal injuries that were already not light had worsened a step further. If this goes on, I'll undoubtedly die today. Lin Yi knew in his heart that the current situation had already arrived at a moment of life and death. If he still didn't take out an effective countermeasure, then perhaps he would die miserably here in the next moment. Chapter 4087. Just then, Lin Yi waved his hand and 3 rare fruits that looked like golden pills appeared in his hand. They were the golden pill fruit of 10,000 crossing. What do you mean? You want to surrender now? Let me tell you, it's too late. The middle-aged man was stunned. When he regained his senses, he sneered in a self-righteous manner. Then his expression froze. His face was filled with embarrassment and anger from being toyed with. Lin Yi had not taken out the golden pill fruit of 10,000 crossing for him. Instead, he had tossed them into the depths of the dense forest. Lin Yi's expression said that since he could not have them, he would not let him have them either. Damn it. Seeing the golden pill fruit of his dreams fall into the dense forest, the middle-aged man was so angry that his face began to twitch. He wished he could tear Lin Yi into pieces on the spot. However, he dared not chase after Lin Yi anymore. Although he was 200% sure that he could kill Lin Yi, the most important thing now was to retrieve the golden pill fruit of 10,000 crossing. Even if he knew that Lin Yi was taking the opportunity to escape, he could only fall into his trap. After all, there were countless powerful spiritual beasts hiding in the dense forest. If he were to ignore them, the 3 golden pill fruit of 10,000 crossing might have been eaten by passing spiritual beasts by the time he returned after chasing after Lin Yi. The reason why the 5 high-level spiritual beasts did not eat the golden pill fruit of 10,000 crossing was that it was not fully ripe and could wait for a while. However, now that it had been plucked, it would wither very soon if it was not eaten. These spiritual beasts were not stupid. If they discovered it, they would definitely eat it immediately. If that really happened, it would be useless even if the middle-aged man killed Lin Yi to vent his anger. He would only be drawing water with a wicker basket. Humph, I'll let you live a little longer. Once I retrieve the golden pill fruit of 10,000 crossing, you must die today. The middle-aged man cursed bitterly. He turned around impatiently and chased in the direction of the myriad crossing golden dan fruit. He was determined to get it. The middle-aged man entered the dense forest and raised his domineering aura to the extreme, scaring away all the spirit beasts within a few miles. Although doing so in a place like this was akin to asking for trouble, he had no choice but to do this to ensure that the universal golden core fruit would not be eaten by the spirit beasts. This is infuriating. Where did this kid throw the myriad golden dan fruit? Watching as Lin Yi took the opportunity to escape, the middle-aged man couldn't help but gnash his teeth in anger. However, he had no choice but to suppress his anger and retrieve the item first. The appearance of the myriad crossing golden dan fruit was indeed dazzling. However, if it fell into this dense forest, even an immortal would not be able to find it easily in a short period of time. After all, this thing was not like humans and spirit beasts, which could sense obvious aura fluctuations. The only choice left for the middle-aged man was to push aside the grass like an ordinary person and search inch by inch with his naked eyes. This went on for half an hour before the middle-aged man finally found traces of the golden pill fruit of 10,000 crossing. It was shot into the trunk of a giant tree, but it did not suffer any damage. It could be seen that Lin Yi had used a skillful technique and purposely protected it with vital energy. The middle-aged man was overjoyed. He immediately went forward and wanted to reach for it. Unexpectedly, an inexplicable sense of danger arose in his heart. Could it be that I've provoked a powerful spirit beast? The middle-aged man frowned. Before he could figure out what was going on, a figure suddenly descended from the sky above him without warning. It was Lin Yi who had just escaped. He would never have thought that Lin Yi, who had clearly escaped in front of him, would actually turn around without any warning. Most importantly, he had taken advantage of the time when he was focused on searching for the golden pill fruit of 10,000 crossing. At this moment, he was almost unaware of Lin Yi's sudden appearance, and he was not mentally prepared at all. In a fight between experts, as long as one was distracted for a moment, it was often enough to be a fatal flaw. Seeing the middle-aged man's reaction, Lin Yi was instantly overjoyed. The strange big circle that he had just used with the butterfly subtle steps just now was not in vain. As long as he caught the middle-aged man by surprise, he could reverse the passive situation that he had been suppressed just now and obtain the opportunity to make a surprise attack. You actually dare to come back and attack me with your insignificant strength, so what if I let you make one move first? You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Even though he was caught off guard and fell into a passive position, the middle-aged man still did not change his arrogance. The fight just now had already let him know the strength of Lin Yi. At most, it was comparable to the power of the early stage of the Golden Elixir realm. If Lin Yi wanted to rely on this to deal with a dignified middle stage of the Golden Elixir realm, it was still far from enough. However, when Lin Yi, who was descending from the sky, combined the pure energy bomb and the pellet fire bomb into one, and swooped down on his face with the power to destroy the world, the middle-aged man's face finally changed, and he turned pale instantly. What kind of demon is this kid? This move is not only at the early stage of the Golden Elixir realm, even the middle stage of the Golden Elixir realm is only this. Boom. The huge Wuxia Jianghu mountain suddenly shook violently, and countless spiritual beasts scattered in panic. Even the vast sea on both sides suddenly set off monstrous waves, like the arrival of a tsunami, which could not subside for a long time. He actually didn't die like this? Enduring the constant pain in his body, Lin Yi looked at the huge deep pit in front of him, but he still could not find the middle-aged man's figure. His heart could not help but sink. He had even used his most powerful trump card. If even this could not kill the opponent, then Lin Yi really had no other way. He deserved to be called an expert in the middle stage of the Golden Elixir realm. It was still too much for him to fight to the death with such a strong enemy. But fortunately, from the eye-catching pool of blood on the ground, after being hit by the earth-shattering super-killing move just now, even if the middle-aged man did not die, he at least lost half of his life. He was already seriously injured and did not dare to fight anymore. Otherwise, he would have killed Lin Yi long ago, and would not have escaped without a trace. In this situation, Lin Yi did not dare to stay for too long. He picked up the 10,000 golden elixir fruit and immediately chose a direction to escape. If the middle-aged man turned around with his current state, he would definitely die. He was already seriously injured before, and now he risked both sides to forcefully activate the super-killing move. At this moment, waves of dizziness began to attack Lin Yi's nerves. Even if he did not receive any more attacks, perhaps in the next moment, Lin Yi would lose consciousness and fall on the spot. Forcibly maintaining the last trace of consciousness, Lin Yi did not know how long he ran with serious injuries. Seeing that he had already left the boundary of Wuxia Jianghu mountain, he suddenly saw a man-made road in front of him. Only then did he relax, and then he fainted on the ground. Chapter 4088. Lin Yi fainted on the side of the road for half a day, and he didn't move from beginning to end. Fortunately, he had left the boundary of Wuxia Jianghu mountain. Otherwise, he would have fallen into the mouth of a powerful spirit beast and become its food. Finally, a group of people came from afar and stopped beside the unconscious Lin Yi. "Why did you stop?" A charming woman's voice came from a luxury car modified by a spirit beast. An accompanying disciple came forward to check Lin Yi and reported, Miss Situ, we found an injured and unconscious cultivator. Do you think? Oh? Is it a man or a woman? The woman in the car called Miss Situ asked quickly. A man, the accompanying disciple replied. That's great. I can wear out iron shoes in fruitless searching, but I find it by chance. Quick, bring it to me. Miss Situ immediately ordered someone to open the door, and she gracefully walked out of the car. This woman's face was like a peach blossom, and her face was covered with makeup. Her figure was hot and alluring, and her clothes were light and thin. Even the people who served her all year round couldn't help but secretly swallow their saliva when they saw her. Especially the natural seductive aura that she exuded from her body was enough to take someone's life and make them unable to control themselves. Search him carefully and find out who he is. Miss Situ looked at Lin Yi with her charming eyes and ordered the accompanying disciple. Yes. The accompanying disciple immediately obeyed and searched Lin Yi's body carefully, but found nothing except a map with the logo of the North Island Cultivators Guild engraved on the corner. Miss Situ, if I'm not mistaken, this person should be a cultivator from the North Island. And judging from his attire, he should be a rogue cultivator, not a disciple of the 3 pavilions of the North Island, the accompanying disciple reported. A rogue cultivator from the North Island? Miss Situ's charming eyes suddenly curved, and she immediately smiled and said, Isn't that great? Bring him up and take him back. Miss Situ, you mean? The accompanying disciple asked with some uncertainty. Miss Situ smiled coquettishly, licked her lips seductively and said, I've decided on him. There's no need to continue looking. The accompanying disciple hurriedly nodded. Yes, do we need to treat him? Looking at his injuries, if we don't save him, he won't be able to hold on for long. And what you said makes sense. Let's treat him then. However, we don't need to use too good a medicinal pill. It's fine as long as you can bring him back to life, young Miss Situ casually instructed before throwing out a 3rd-grade Great Recover pill. The accompanying disciple hurriedly took it and forced it into Lin Yi's mouth. He then asked someone to throw Lin Yi onto a spirit beast carriage at the back and continued to ask, Miss Situ, shall we go back now? Of course, let's go back to Middle Island now. Miss Situ's tone was filled with excitement. Yes. The accompanying disciple immediately ordered his men to turn around and follow the path they came from. He retraced his steps. Although Lin Yi's body was still unconscious, his primordial spirit had almost recovered under the recuperation of the Jade Pendant's space. Relying on his divine sense, he had a clear grasp of everything. Listening to Miss Situ's tone, could it be that there's something unspeakable? It doesn't feel like she's a good person with a pure heart. She seems to have other intentions in getting me into the carriage. There's even a special guard to open the way. Even the way they address me is Mississippi. Why do I feel like I'm back in ancient times? Lin Yi couldn't help but wonder. However, this person fed him a 3rd-grade Great Recover pill. It helped him a lot. Now that Lin Yi's primordial spirit had recovered, he still needed time to heal his physical injuries. This 3rd-grade Great Recover pill could help him recover faster. Half a day later, Lin Yi finally woke up. At this moment, the location of the carriage surprised him. They had almost reached the edge of the mountain forest. It was a completely unfamiliar place. Lin Yi frowned secretly. He could still vaguely remember that before he passed out, he was running like crazy and was almost at the edge of Jianghu Mountain. Looking at the current situation, he was afraid that they had already left the range of Jianghu Mountain. Even on the mission map given by the Cultivators Guild of North Island, he couldn't find their current position. As far as Lin Yi knew, once they completely walked out of the range of the mountain forest, there were only 2 possibilities. One was to return to North Island, and the other was to enter Middle Island. However, looking at the surrounding environment, Lin Yi had no impression of it at all, and he couldn't compare it with the route on the map. In other words, the direction that this group of people was heading in was very likely not North Island, but Middle Island. As soon as Lin Yi woke up, Miss Situ received a report and personally came to Lin Yi's carriage. She asked in a sweet voice, My name is Situ Qian and I'm the owner of this group of people. Who are you? How did you get so badly injured and in such a dangerous place like Jianghu Mountain? Thank you, Miss Situ, for saving me. My name is Lin Yi, and I'm a rogue cultivator from North Island. I came to Jianghu Mountain for a mission, but I was attacked by spirit beasts. Lin Yi answered calmly. Although he guessed that the other party might have ulterior motives, he didn't plan to leave for the time being. After all, he had just recovered from his injuries and he didn't know where he was. The map was completely useless, and if he left halfway, even with Skybolt Pig, it would be very difficult for him to find his way back. After all, Skybolt Pig's talent was to hunt for treasures, not to find a way. Oh, I see. Situ Qian didn't suspect anything. After nodding, she suddenly leaned forward and posed in a seductive posture. I heard that there are no female cultivators in the North Island. Do you think I'm pretty? She said, that's right. Lin Yi was slightly stunned and he didn't understand what she meant. If he were to measure her with the eyes of an ordinary person, Miss Situ would have a good figure and a pretty face. She could be considered a rare beauty in the world. However, Situ Qian had a coquettish air about her which made Lin Yi dislike her. He even thought of another woman who had a similar temperament to her, Murong Zhen. Moreover, when it came to looks, Situ Qian could not even be compared to the girlfriends he had in the secular world. Even his little concubine Rock Candy Snow Pear was more than enough to beat Situ Qian. Chapter 4089. Therefore in the end Lin Yi pinched his nose and complimented her. Miss Situ is very beautiful. You are as beautiful as a fairy. Is that so? You really are an honest man. Hearing this, Situ Qian smiled happily. She then said, this young lady also thinks that you are very heroic. It is rare to see someone who dares to do a mission in the Huatsai Tianwu mountain alone. It would be a pity to miss such a rare talent like you. How about you come to our Situ clan and work for us? This. Lin Yi was stunned. He had been wondering what this Miss Situ wanted to do. He did not expect her to make such a sudden request. Situ Qian smiled as she lifted Lin Yi's chin and licked her lips. If you agree, I'll give you one of my maids as a reward. She's not as pretty as I am, but she's still a rare beauty. Just nod your head and she'll be yours. Lin Yi's eyes lit up as he said, I'll give you one of my maids as a reward. She's not as pretty as me, but she's still a rare beauty. Lin Yi could not help but frown. No matter how he thought about it, these words were full of conspiracy. This flirtatious woman first used words and body language to seduce him. Then, she said that she wanted to betroth him to a beautiful maidservant. If it were any other cultivator who was slightly more impulsive, they would not be able to resist such temptation. However, Lin Yi was already on guard against this woman. He remained calm from the beginning. These random seductions had no effect on him. In fact, he did not even look at Situ Qian. Just take Shengguan Lan'er and Ning Xuefei, who had been together recently, for example. Both of them were prettier than Situ Qian. Even the disfigured Huang Xiaotao gave Lin Yi a better impression than Situ Qian. However, Lin Yi had to go with her for the time being. He could not fall out with Situ Qian. He could only pretend to be happy and cooperated. Really? That's great. To be honest, Miss Situ, I've always been lonely and depressed in the North Island. Female cultivators are rare, and only those cultivators with powerful sex and backgrounds have the chance to meet them. It's an extravagant dream for me to even meet one, and ordinary women can't be my partner. Miss Situ, you not only saved my life, but also helped me in my hour of need. I can't repay your kindness. Seeing that Lin Yi had taken the bait, Situ Qian's lips curled into a smile, and she used her sleeves to brush Lin Yi's cheeks. Very well, rest well then. I'll make arrangements for you when the time comes. As long as you listen to me and do what I say, I'll make sure you get the girl. Yes, I will listen to Miss Situ. Lin Yi pretended to be lecherous. His eyes even wandered up and down Situ Qian's body and nodded repeatedly. Situ Qian did not show any displeasure. Instead, she seemed to enjoy it very much. She even deliberately twisted her waist and rubbed against Lin Yi's body. Then she got out of the car with a smile. Looking at Situ Qian's back as she left, Lin Yi's face suddenly turned cold. This woman was really not easy to deal with. Just now, he deliberately took the opportunity to observe her strength. She turned out to be an expert at the peak of foundation establishment. She was really something. For the next 2 days, Lin Yi stayed in the car. Besides completely healing his injuries, he also took the opportunity to slightly consolidate his strength. Recently, his strength had also improved by leaps and bounds. He was a little complacent, but after the battle with the expert at the middle stage of the Gold Core realm, his impetuous mood had long disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by an infinite desire to become stronger. Only strength could make a foothold in this Heaven Stage island. In these 2 days, the convoy had completely left the range of the mountains and forests and entered a bustling area. To Lin Yi's great surprise, whether it was the customs or the architecture, it was almost the same as the ancient capital city. Unlike the solemn cultivation sects in the North Island, this was a bustling big city. All along the way, various inns, shops, restaurants, brothels, and casinos appeared ceaselessly on both sides of the road. Every single place in the mortal world that one could think of could be found here. Besides this, it was the deep courtyards of some great clans that were scattered amidst the bustling downtown, and it had a deep and serene aura of tranquility amidst the hustle and bustle, causing others to feel envious. Is this the central island that everyone yearns for? Lin Yi could not help but be amazed. In his imagination, the central island, where the legendary top sects gathered, should be similar to the 3 pavilions in the North Island, with famous mountains and Taoist rites everywhere. However, he did not expect it to be such an unexpectedly prosperous scene. It made him feel as if he had returned to the secular world. It was noisy and lively, but it always gave people a rare sense of peace. Of course, this was the ancient secular world. While he was amazed, the convoy had driven into a deep mansion. From the dazzling layers of courtyards, it should be a rare rich family. After getting off the car, Lin Yi was immediately arranged to a separate guest room, but no one came to greet him. It was just that the guards outside had received orders from Situ Qian to not allow Lin Yi to leave without permission. In desperation, Lin Yi could only stay in the room and wait. With his current strength comparable to that of an expert at the early stage of the Gold Core realm, although it was not difficult to get rid of these guards, it was hard to say after he went out. After all, this was the central island where all kinds of people gathered. With Lin Yi's current strength, he might not be able to deal with some sudden changes. Instead, it was better to stay here for the time being and observe the changes. In the evening, Situ Qian finally arrived. This time, she had purposely changed into a thinner and more revealing low-cut gauze dress. Her breasts were surging and her flesh was showing. Coupled with her coquettish and seductive aura, she was constantly provoking the instincts of men. "Young Master Ling, I have really neglected you today. After a few days of traveling, my body is sticky, so I went to take a bath. I hope you don't mind." Situ Qian smiled charmingly and stuck to Lin Yi's side. Her alluring body then rubbed against him. "Not at all. Miss Situ, you are very considerate. I am very satisfied." Lin Yi laughed secretly in his heart. She wanted to seduce him with this kind of thing. She was simply asking to be humiliated. However, on the surface, Lin Yi still deliberately cooperated. His eyes were shining and his breathing was rapid. He looked like a typical pervert. Chapter 4090. "Miss Situ, you are too kind. I am not worthy of your kindness." Lin Yi quickly thanked her. I am giving you this ginseng soup. It is not only to nourish your body, there is also a deeper meaning behind it." Situ Qian pretended to feed Lin Yi the soup herself. At the same time, she chuckled and said, "I have personally decided that tonight will be the wedding night between you and my servant. Every minute is worth 1,000 gold. How can you not take this opportunity to nourish yourself? What do you think?" "Really? That is great. Thank you so much, Miss Situ." Lin Yi pretended to be impatient. He took the ginseng soup with both hands and took a small sip. Back in the mortal world, Lin Yi was already an expert in medicine. He could tell what was in the ginseng soup with just one taste. With just a small sip, he could already analyze the ingredients in the soup. There was nothing wrong with this ginseng soup. However, there was a small amount of seasoning added in. It was nothing else but a tiger's wolf's potion for sexual intercourse. It was similar to the medicine used in the mortal world to nourish Yang. Could it be that Situ Qian really wants me to consummate my marriage with her servant? Lin Yi was even more confused. Before this, he had always thought that Situ Qian was just teasing him with a little sweetness. She wanted him to do something shady. But now, she was actually giving him this kind of medicine. This was too strange. "How is it? Is the ginseng soup good?" Situ Qian stared at Lin Yi with a burning gaze. It seemed that if he did not drink it all in front of her, she would not let Lin Yi go easily. Delicious. Lin Yi decided to beat her at her own game. He tilted his head back and drank the whole bowl of ginseng soup. After all, there was only so much seasoning. After drinking it, he could directly refine it in his body. It would not have any effect at all. However, after drinking it, Lin Yi deliberately pretended to be burning with lust. His body was burning hot and his eyes were bloodshot. Panting heavily, he reached out to touch Situ Qian's body. Situ Qian did not dodge and allowed Lin Yi to take advantage of her. Her lips curled up as she said, "All right, young hero Ling, I'll get someone to send you to the bridal chamber now." After saying that, Situ Qian snapped her fingers and summoned a guard from outside to take Lin Yi away. However, in the next moment, Situ Qian, who had been flirtatious just a moment ago, suddenly had a cold and vicious expression on her face. He said to a maid who pushed open the door and entered, "Little Chihuahua, how is it? Have you arranged everything?" "Everything has been arranged. Miss, please take a look." Little Chihuahua handed over an item to her in a flattering manner. It was an MP4 that looked like a tablet computer. Situ Qian took it and turned it on. A surveillance image of a room appeared on the screen. There was a beautiful woman sitting in the room. She was dressed in a white dress and looked like a fairy who had fallen into the mortal world. She was untainted by the mortal world, causing people to admire her, but they could not bear to profane her. TSK, the things that this Central Chamber of Commerce sells are really advanced. It is said that this is the most advanced technology in the mortal world. Only the Central Chamber of Commerce can do it. Just a small surveillance device like this costs 10,000 spiritual jades. It's really expensive. Situ Qian looked at the woman on the screen and sneered. Yes, miss, but this thing is really useful. When the time comes. As long as you show this video to Senior Brother Wei and let him know that the woman that he has his eyes on is actually a slut, he will definitely change his mind and know how good you are. Little Chihuahua chuckled as she flattered Little Chihuahua. That's right. A mere maid who is not even worth a fart dares to compete with me? Let's see if I don't kill you this time. Ah. Situ Qian laughed proudly and said, Originally, I told Senior Brother Wei that this maid Xiao Shui has a mistress outside, and she is a slut. Senior Brother Wei didn't believe me, but I didn't expect that he would catch a fool so quickly. Anyway, there is no sound in the video. Let this fool go and fuck that bitch. When the time comes, they will be unable to explain themselves. Little miss is still the smart one. The facts are right in front of us. Senior Brother Wei has no choice but to believe it. In any case, that slut's virginity has already been taken by that idiot, so Senior Brother Wei will definitely give up. Little Chihuahua also laughed complacently. Of course, if it wasn't for fear of Senior Brother Wei's suspicion, I would have already killed that bitch. Why would I go through so much trouble and waste 10,000 spiritual jades to buy this surveillance device? Situ Qian said hatefully. 10,000 spiritual jades was not a small amount for anyone. Even for a young miss like her, it could be considered as a big loss. There is nothing we can do about it. Senior Brother Wei is such a smart person, if there is no solid evidence he will definitely not believe it and that will be troublesome. However, the current situation is already foolproof. Young lady's decision is very safe. With young lady's outstanding intelligence, Senior Brother Wei will definitely worship under your skirt, and no one will be able to snatch him away. Little Chihuahua said with a flattering smile. You little girl, you always like to speak such truth. Situ Qian was overjoyed when she heard this, and then suddenly said, By the way, has the thing that can restore a virgin's body arrived from the Central Chamber of Commerce? Not yet, but I have already urged them to send it over as soon as possible. Little Chihuahua replied. And this is a very important matter. Little Chihuahua, you have to keep a close eye on me. Otherwise, if Senior Brother Wei finds out that I'm not a virgin, then the consequences would be unimaginable. Even Situ Qian herself felt guilty. Seeing this, Little Chihuahua comforted her and said, Miss, in fact, you don't have to worry so much. Those male toys who accompanied us for fun have been quietly dealt with. No one will know about this matter. If it is really not possible, you can say that it was torn during cultivation and it should be no problem. Don't people often say this kind of thing? Hearing this, Situ Qian shook her head decisively and said, No, this is an important matter of life and there is no room for carelessness. It is better to be safe. Otherwise, if I say that I have torn it, will you also tear it with me? Little girl, have you forgotten that when the time comes, you will also have to serve Senior Brother Wei with me? Yes, then I will go and urge them now. Miss, you can rest assured, When Little Chihuahua thought that she would also throw herself into the arms of Senior Brother Wei, she was instantly overjoyed. This was her long-cherished wish, and she immediately trotted out of the door. Chapter 4091. This is the place you can go in by yourself. Under the guidance of the guard, Lin Yi walked past a few courtyards before stopping in front of a closed bedroom. Lin Yi's footsteps paused for a moment as he pondered what Situ Qian was up to. No matter how he thought about it, what happened today was too strange. Either that, Situ Qian had something she wanted him to do, so she gave her maidservant to him as a reward in advance. Or, there was something strange about the bedroom in front of him, or the so-called handmaiden was a monster and he was being used as a sacrifice. Otherwise, there was no need for her to give him medicine. While he was secretly on guard, Lin Yi did not show any hesitation on the surface. Under the supervision of the guard, he pushed open the door and walked in. However, as soon as he entered the door, the terrifying and dangerous scene that he had expected was completely different. Not only was there no danger in the closed bedroom, but there was a beautiful woman in white sitting in the middle. Lin Yi was stunned at first glance. He actually knew this woman in white. Sydney? Lin Yi was stunned for a moment before he shouted in disbelief. Back in the secular world, strictly speaking, Lin Yi and Sydney did not have many interactions and their relationship did not develop clearly. However, on the way to Heavenly Island, the two of them accidentally confirmed their relationship. Even though their relationship was not as close as it was with other girlfriends, after half a year, Lin could not help but feel as if a lifetime had passed since they met again. It was just like when he met Tian Chan on the extreme North Island. At this moment, his heart was rippling with the rare warmth of reunion. However, at this moment, Sydney did not notice Lin Yi's call. She only raised her head and stared blankly at the ceiling. He was lost in thought. She had originally come to the Heaven Stage Island full of longing, thinking that it would be a paradise for cultivators, but she hadn't expected that the law of the jungle was even more cruel and merciless than the secular world. What was even worse was that she, a Heaven Stage great perfection expert who could walk unhindered in the secular world, had become the weakest existence here. After he was teleported to the Middle Island, he looked around. Almost all of them were much more powerful than her. Tian Chan, Patriarch Xianxin, and the others who she was familiar with, were taken away by others one after another. In the end, she was brought to a place called the Snow Sword School. She thought she would become a disciple there and start over from the bottom. She had already made mental preparations for this, but the reality was even crueler. She was not even as good as the ordinary disciple at the bottom. Instead, she was taken in as a maid by the granddaughter of an elder of the Snow Sword faction. The Valley Master of the Snow Valley, who used to be such a noble existence in the secular world, had now become a servant girl who served others. Every day he was forced to do the lowliest and most vulgar work. Life was full of impermanence. It was truly laughable. However, when faced with such a cruel reality, Sydney could not resist at all. She did not have the strength to resist. This granddaughter of an elder was already a high and mighty expert at the peak of the late stage of Foundation establishment. She was just a mediocre person at the peak of Heaven Stage. If she wanted to break free from this person's shadow, it was no different from a fool's dream. For the past 6 months, Sydney had been doing the menial work of a servant. Every day, her only hope was that she could serve this Miss Situ well and get her to teach her some techniques to break through to the Foundation establishment stage. Unfortunately, this Miss Situ did not take her seriously from beginning to end. Not only did she not treat her well because of this, but she also disliked her in every way because of her appearance and temperament. She repeatedly found all kinds of excuses to punish her. There were several times when she was beaten black and blue and could not get out of bed. However, she still had to grit her teeth and continue to work. She could not bear to look back on the bitterness. Struggling like this, Sydney endured for a whole 6 months. She thought that her miserable fate would continue like this. She did not expect that a secret tryst between Situ Qian and her lover would become a turning point in her life. It was just that this turning point was not a good one. Senior Brother Wei, who was mentioned by Situ Qian, accidentally discovered her existence. He was immediately shocked and fell in love with her at first sight. Then he found out that Sydney's constitution was that of an innate cold body, which was very suitable to cultivate the core mental cultivation method of the Snow Sword faction. Chapter 4092. At that moment, Sydney could no longer control her emotions. She threw herself into Lin Yi's arms and started to cry. For the past 6 months she had been trying to find out about Lin Yi. However, no matter what method she used, there was no news at all. No one knew who Lin Yi was. Unexpectedly, just as she was about to lose all hope, the lover that she had been yearning for day and night had appeared. Finally, she could feel the warmth of his embrace again. Fate had played a cruel joke on her. However, at least it had not completely abandoned her. Sydney's reaction caught Lin Yi off guard. He did not know what she had been through in the past 6 months. However, as a man, what he needed to do was to hug her quietly and let her vent all of her grievances. As he gently stroked Sydney's skinny back, Lin Yi was slightly surprised. In his memory, Sydney's figure was quite voluptuous. In the end, after not seeing her for a few months, she had become so skinny. The bitterness in this made his heart ache. Buried in Lin Yi's arms, Sydney cried for a long time. Finally, she gradually recovered. She looked up at Lin Yi with her tear-stained face. It was an enchanting sight. "All right, Sydney, tell me. What happened to you in the past 6 months? How did you lose so much weight?" Lin Yi could not help but ask. Sydney nodded obediently. She immediately began to tell Lin Yi everything. She was full of grievances and she needed someone to listen to her. At the same time, Situ Qian, who was monitoring the room through her MP4, was overjoyed when she saw the two of them hugging each other tightly. Although she could only see the image and could not hear what the two of them were talking about, she felt that it was enough. Everything went according to her plan. After drugging Ling Chen, he could just let him go in and push Sydney down. In any case, she could say that he was Sydney's lover. Regardless of whether Senior Marshal Brother Wei believed her or not, the rice had already been cooked. He could only kill this adulterous couple to vent his anger. However, none of this had anything to do with Situ Qian. She could just say that her lover had snuck in on his own and that she had only found out about it after watching the surveillance footage. However, the scene before her eyes had completely exceeded her expectations. The two of them actually hugged each other and whispered sweet nothings to each other as soon as they entered the door. There was no trace of coercion at all. Now there was even foreplay. It was simply too perfect and realistic. Just as I expected, this bitch looks like she's as pure as ice and as clean as jade, but she's actually a slut. She even wants this kind of unbearably vulgar wild man. She's really coquettish to a certain level. You actually dared to snatch senior brother Wei from me? Bitch wants to have such a good life? Situ Chen cursed with a smug look on her face. From her angle, she could not see that Sydney was crying. She could only see the two of them hugging each other tightly. Therefore, it did not matter whether the two of them did it or not. Just this scene alone was enough to prove that Sydney had a wild man outside. Senior Marshal Brother Wei would definitely not want this kind of dirty bitch. Her plan had succeeded. Furthermore, it was unexpectedly smooth. Situ Chen could not wait any longer and immediately asked someone to call Xiao Chihua back. Soon the next step could be started. In the closed bedroom, Lin Yi quietly listened to Sydney's tragic experience. Even he felt wronged for Sydney. He gritted his teeth and said, "This Sydney is really not a good person. However, since I'm here now, you don't have to be afraid anymore. I'll definitely avenge you 100 times, 1,000 times." Okay. Sydney nodded happily. However, she then said worriedly, "She is now a foundation-building full-cycle expert. She is not someone we can fight against. Let's wait and see." Being able to see Lin Yi again today made her very happy. She did not want Lin Yi to lose his life in a moment of impulse. That would turn a comedy into a tragedy. We don't have to wait for too long. However, we do need to find a suitable opportunity. Lin Yi shook his head. He had the ability to kill Situ Qian. The biggest problem was that he was unfamiliar with the place. What should he do after killing her? He could only figure out the situation first. "Alright, Sydney, you are still at Heaven Stage full cycle. Have you not broken through to Foundation building?" Lin Yi asked. "No. In the past half a year, I have not even seen a method to break through to Foundation building. I also do not have any cultivation resources, let alone trying to break through to Foundation building," Sydney said helplessly. Lin Yi could not help but feel distressed. Even people like Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai who followed him were already in the early stage of Foundation building. Sydney was the leader of the Snow Valley. In terms of talent and foundation, she was much stronger than these people. However, she had not broken through to Foundation building. Fate was unpredictable. Fortunately, for the current Lin Yi, getting some Foundation building pills to help Sydney break through to Foundation building was a very simple task. As long as Sydney was in the right state, she could try it at any time. "Sydney, I can?" Lin Yi was about to tell her about it, but when he looked down, he found that Sydney had already fallen asleep in his arms. She was sleeping very soundly. Ever since she came to Heaven Stage Island, she had never slept so peacefully. "Sleep well, have a sweet dream, I'll take you away from here when you wake up tomorrow." Lin Yi patted Shui Li's back gently and pulled her into his arms, snuggling against each other. On the other side, although Situ Qian did not see the two's next move, she could not hold back anymore. After little Chihua came back, she immediately asked her to bring the video to Senior Brother Wei so that he could enjoy the show. After an hour, Senior Brother Wei rushed over angrily. When he saw Situ Qian, his first sentence was full of killing intent. "Where is that shameless couple? I am going to kill them." "Senior Brother Wei, don't be angry. It is not worth it to hurt your body because of this bitch. I will take you to her." Situ Qian was very proud of herself. While leading the way, she said, "I told you that this bitch has a lover outside. Senior Brother Wei, you didn't believe me at first. Fortunately, we caught you in the act. Otherwise, you would have been tricked by this bitch to become dual cultivation partners. Senior Brother Wei, your reputation will be ruined. You see, I am still the best." Hearing this, Senior Brother Wei's face darkened. He did not say anything, but the killing intent emitted from his body became even stronger. Chapter 4093. In his eyes, Shui Li was like a fairy who had descended to the mortal world. Otherwise, he would not have fallen in love with her at first sight. He did not expect her to be with such a crude and boorish man. This was simply unbearable. If he had not seen the surveillance video, he would not have believed it. But now, the only thought in his mind was to kill this adulterous couple to vent his anger. Bang! The door was kicked into pieces. Senior Brother Wei stepped into the bedroom. Looking at the two who were still hugging each other, he was so angry that his eyes were on fire. He pointed at Sydney and cursed, "You bitch, which part of me Wei Xinjin is inferior to this boorish man? He looks so boorish. I did not expect a bitch like you to like this. Good, very good. I will kill you both today. Yes, yes, a adulterous couple should be killed. They should be cut into pieces. Situ Qian fanned the flames. At this moment, Xueli, who was sound asleep in Lin Yi's arms, was awakened. She was startled when she saw Wei Xinjin, who looked like he was going to eat someone alive, and shrunk into Lin Yi's arms. As for Lin Yi, he had already noticed Wei Xinjin before he kicked the door. But even if he had noticed it in advance, he could not do anything about it. The only problem he had to think about was how to take Sydney away from here. This guy should not be underestimated. He was an expert in the early stage of the Gold Core realm. Lin Yi was on his guard, but his face was cold. You're sick, aren't you? Sydney and I are in love with each other. We have known each other for a long time. What does it have to do with you that we are together? What did you say? You have been together for a long time? Wei Xinjin was so angry that his eyes widened. He felt that he was being cheated on. All this while, he had been busy preparing for the wedding in order to marry Xueli. He had even let the news out. What was done could not be undone. Little did he expect that Xueli had already had such a wild lover. He was going to be so embarrassed this time. Seeing this, Situ Qian chimed in, Xueli is my maid. She belongs to me, so her marriage is naturally decided by me. You vulgar wild man, you actually dare to clamor in front of senior brother Wei here? Could it be that you think that our snow sword school doesn't have anyone left, that we can be bullied by an ant like you? Lin Yi looked at Situ Qian and smiled coldly at Wei Xinjin. This junior sister of yours is the real bitch. You don't even know how many men have ridden on you before you interfered with me and Xueli's business. You'd better take care of your own family matters first. Don't come out and embarrass yourself and make people laugh their heads off. Hearing this, Wei Xinjin did not react. However, Situ Qian jumped up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She pointed at Lin Yi and said, Senior brother Wei, this man dares to insult me. Help me kill him. This adulterous couple, we can't let them walk out of here alive today. Otherwise, senior brother Wei, you won't be able to face anyone. Situ Qian was a woman who could be ridden by 1,000 men. Lin Yi was right. It was no wonder that she was panicking. It did not matter if Lin Yi had guessed it or not. Just based on this sentence alone, Lin Yi had to die today. No matter what, she was going to kill him to silence him. To prevent future trouble. At this time, there was no need for Situ Qian to instigate. Wei Xinjin had already attacked Lin Yi and Sydney. Just as Situ Qian had said, they could not let this adulterous couple go today. This was not only to vent their anger, but also to cover up their shame. Only by killing them would they be able to put an end to this scandal. As for the marriage that had been rumored before, if things did not work out, they could only ask Situ Qian to take the blame. Anyway, this woman was more than happy to do so. Lin Yi's eyes narrowed slightly. Wei Xinjin was a master in the early phase of the Golden Elixir stage. Any one of his moves was no small matter. If it was just Lin Yi, he wouldn't have to worry. With his current strength, he could even fight with a master in the middle phase of the Golden Elixir stage. Moreover, the opponent was only at the early phase of the Golden Elixir stage. However, the key point was that he had Sydney in his arms. She had the strength of a heaven stage exceptional realm. Even a casual brush from a foundation building expert would be seriously injured or even killed, let alone a beginner of the Golden Elixir realm. If they really fought here, Lin Yi could not guarantee the safety of Sydney. If something really happened, even if he could kill them to vent his anger, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Moreover, this was the territory of the Snow Sword faction. If he really killed people here, he would inevitably be wanted by the Snow Sword faction. In the future, it would be difficult for him to move in the Middle Island, and he might not even have a place to hide. Retreat first. Lin Yi made up his mind instantly. Facing the fierce attack of Wei Xinjin, he did not have the slightest intention of fighting him head-on. His body flashed and he was about to rush to Situ Qian. This wild man is quite fast, but he still has to die. Seeing this, Wei Xinjin paused for a moment and then changed his attack. His body flashed and he reached out his hand to block in front of Situ Qian. Although Situ Qian was also a foundation building expert in the peak, and it would not be so easy to sneak attack her, this woman must be lacking in actual combat. If she was not careful, it was very likely that she would be defeated by someone stronger than her. After all, she was the granddaughter of an elder. If she was taken hostage by the opponent, Wei Xinjin would not be able to take action. However, the next moment, Wei Xinjin's face suddenly turned extremely ugly. Lin Yi's action of rushing to Situ Qian was a premeditated fake move. The purpose was to trick Wei Xinjin. Taking advantage of this subtle gap, Lin Yi instantly changed his direction and performed the butterfly subtle steps to the extreme. He carried Sydney on his back and rushed out of the room. He just happened to pass by Wei Shinjin, who was busy protecting Situ Qian. I am so angry. Watching Lin Yi and Situ Qian rush out of the room, the feeling of being defeated in front of him made Wei Shinjin angry. Relying on the powerful strength of the early stage of the Gold Core realm, he more or less underestimated his opponent. He did not even think that Lin Yi could burst out with such amazing speed in an instant. Even he did not have time to react. Despicable scum, do you think you can escape from my palm like this? I want to see where you can run to. Wei Shinjin immediately followed. He said that he would kill the two of them so they would definitely die. No matter where they escaped to, they would not be able to live. Chapter 4094. Lin Yi, why don't you put me down? Sydney leaned on Lin Yi's back. She was nervous and embarrassed. No need. He won't let this go. It'll be faster this way. Lin Yi said without turning his head. He performed the butterfly subtle steps with all his strength. Even with a person on his back, he was still much faster than Sydney, who was at the peak of heaven stage. Although the butterfly subtle steps were very exquisite, Wei Shinjin's figure had already caught up with them in just a moment. Carrying a person on his back had a huge impact on his speed. Moreover, his opponent was an expert at the early stage of the Gold Core realm, and one who was good at lightness skill. Go to hell. Wei Shinjin grinned hideously. His already extremely fast speed suddenly increased. In an instant he dashed to the back of Lin Yi and Qin Xiaobei. He struck towards them with his palm. He was going to kill them both at once. However, Lin Yi was already prepared for this. He condensed true qi at his fingertips. Without turning his head, he only used divine sense to lock onto his opponent's thigh. Wei Shinjin was caught off guard and hit the target. The Finger of Power was the martial arts technique that Su Jianghu used to kill Qin Mujuan. It was powerful but not profound. Lin Yi easily mastered and improved it into the Finger of Power of Fire after seeing it once. At this time it could be put to good use. In the future he could blame it on Su Jianghu. Anyway, this person was already dead and the dead could not testify. By the time these people realized that something was wrong and suspected him, he would have already returned to the North Island. Fuck. A sharp pain came from his thigh. Wei Shinjin's face suddenly turned black. His feet trembled and then he bumped into a pile of garbage. He watched Lin Yi and Qin Xiaobei run away, but he couldn't get up to catch up. He could only clench his teeth and say, "This insidious bastard. If I had known earlier, I would have killed him with my sword." As a core disciple of the Snow Sword School, Wei Shinjin's real strength was using the sword. However, when he moved his sword, there would be a sign of snow. This was the downtown area of the Heaven Stage Island. Fighting here was clearly prohibited. On top of that, due to his carelessness, he was prepared to deal with Lin Yi and Zhang Xian with his palm. He did not expect that he would be injured instead. "Senior brother Wei, why are you injured?" Situ Qian, who had caught up from behind, was stunned when she saw Wei Shinjin lying in a pile of garbage. Wei Shinjin was a core disciple that was viewed as a pillar by the higher-ups of the Snow Sword faction. He was a golden core expert. In Situ Qian's eyes, it would be a piece of cake for him to hunt down Ling Yi and Sydney. Ling Yi had just recovered from his heavy injuries. Moreover, he was carrying a burden like Sydney on his back. Their target was so obvious. It would be a miracle if they could escape from Wei Shinjin. Who would have thought that they would actually fail miserably in such an easy task? "It's nothing. I was just careless and was ambushed by him." Wei Shinjin's face suddenly became a little embarrassed and he replied gloomily. Situ Qian helped him up from the ground doubtfully and asked, "What should we do now? We can't just let that bitch couple escape, right?" Situ Qian could not help but suspect that Wei Shinjin still had fantasies about that bitch. That was why she had shown mercy just now. Otherwise, the other party would not have been able to escape so easily. But if that was the case, she was in an awkward situation. Wei Shinjin still had feelings for Sydney. If that was the case, how would she be able to become his Dao companion? Furthermore, just now, when Lin Yi scolded her for being ridden by 1,000 men, she was really shocked. Therefore, no matter what, she had to find a way to silence this bitch couple. Only then would she be able to be at ease. Otherwise, if the two of them were to live for another day, it would be a fatal danger. How can we let them go? These bitches must die. Let's go back and report to the sect now. Let's have the entire city arrest them. Let's see where they can run to. Wei Shinjin gritted his teeth and said. When Situ Qian heard this, she was overjoyed. This was exactly what she wanted. She then asked, Yes, we must make it impossible for them to escape. But what excuse should we use to report to the sect? If they were to directly tell the truth, Wei Shinjin would lose a lot of face. He thought for a while and said, Let's say that Sydney eloped with that wild man and before she escaped, she ambushed and injured me. Senior brother is wise. That way she would be considered to have betrayed the sect. We don't even need to do anything ourselves. The upper echelons will definitely tear this bitch couple into pieces. Situ Qian praised happily. After the two of them discussed, they immediately acted according to the plan. As expected, the upper echelons of the Snow Sword faction were furious when they found out about the situation. Betraying the sect was the most serious crime in any force. They immediately mobilized the entire sect's power and issued a warrant to the entire city for Lin Yi and Sydney. After all, the Snow Sword faction was able to establish a foothold in Middle Island. Once the Snow Sword faction took action, it was like a thunderbolt. In just a short half an hour, the warrant had already spread all over the city. On the warrant was a rough sketch of the two people's appearance and temperament. The man was named as a rough martial artist and the woman was the Snow Sword faction's handmaiden, Sydney. When they saw that there was a warrant posted in front of them, and it just so happened that the warrant was for the two of them, Lin Yi and Sydney were instantly shocked. They didn't expect the other party to react so quickly. Fortunately, they had been moving in an empty alley and there were no passers-by. Otherwise, their whereabouts would have